So
easy
easily
to
get
get
to
the sticks.
going
But
and getting
you also
some
got to
of these
watch out
guys
for the
that
chuds.
hardcore,
want an altercation
physical
with
trace
there or
case
whatever. Some
people,
people
who are field
go into
researchers.
abandoned places.
That
You never know
that's
what you're going to find.
guys like Nick Redfern.
They're all over the
freaking
freaking place. Well, they live above ground.
Nick Redfern is probably one of the greatest
basically
researchers I've ever met.
Giant
The guy
raccoon,
can find
above
anything.
lizard man coming at
So
you.
it makes you wonder who do they do? Who do they go to at TPSA?
And
They
when
go to a
these
street
legends,
factory.
you hear
Everybody on that board,
stories, and then the
everybody
people who hear the
that's an
stories
advisor, everybody
go
who's
out
anybody.
looking for these
They all
things
work for the
specifically.
CIA.
You
They
know,
work for a massive
it
defense
doesn't matter so much
contractor,
party
Lockheed,
or whatever. It
Northrop,
matters that
whoever.
it happened.
They all have these like spooky backgrounds, and that's who they go to. And then their front man,
if you have some
he's an ex-CIA dude working as a contractor in the Pentagon.
But
it's like
unless you're taking hallucinogens or something, that's all.
And when I see
I don't
that,
listen
I have
to those
to question,
people as much.
what is the larger picture?
I like to think I'm ready to believe
I don't,
you know, if you have a story.
I don't say
like the Ghostbusters, like we're ready to
I don't say that I can give you the physics on why
we went back into that
XYZ
situation.
can do this or that. I don't claim to be any of that.
We use these lights
I document stuff and I research it
face
to my
the
best of my
opposite
ability.
direction.
But if I'm going to go get an expert, I'm going to go to JPL, MIT,
they're all over the place. But they will go on. They will go on, and they'll go on if we ask people to walk.
They do a lot of like aerospace.
Whatever we got to do. But we came out of that investigation with a lot of pictures,
people in general who are experts in propulsion.
Just very interesting stuff, and also people through the floor, which was not goodness. You gotta be like really uber careful walking through old buildings that just in decay. Plus, you never know what's going to fall on top. I mean, you can party like another instance up in Manchester, New York. If you know, there was a train crash. You know, we went on the 99th year anniversary, the very day of that train crash. I had all the names. I don't listen to those people that died in the train. Had all their names, and I wanted to go to the gully, which was a Canandaigua lake outlet, where this train had went down. And we went terrible story. They just put the new rail in, and they got sold the rail to the railroad. Just down on the metal. So as soon as the train hit the metal, is sealed, and then the train, the trestle, everything kind of went right down to the gully first. Imagine we're talking about
it happened a while back, but it was
steel, no safety, nothing. You know, we're talking about 100 years ago. Now we came out of that.
It was out on perimeter.
So I want to go to the trestle. I want to go to the gully. And we brought this woman Tammy with us. Who was pretty good psychic. Man, she was spot on.
So they sent him out to go find it. So he goes, finds it. They got a radar loss.
So we took her along.
He's trying to keep up with it. This whole
so we're down there in the gully.
Intercepted radio
She's picking up on a young girl. And then my intention was to go over by. There was a store in the 99th that was now a deli. But before it was furniture store, and that's where they stored the dead bodies. I know about people getting their names in that deli, thinking there was 29 dead bodies laying there in the basement for like a couple of days too. You know, they had to pack the train until they can get enough people in to. The thing about back in the day, they didn't have so many corridors. You know, they didn't have so many funeral type people that will come and do what needs to be done, right? So there was that going on.
If I'm an alien, why am I flying to NATO?
Didn't really find anything. We're bugging out some locals who were looking at us, man. You know, this is like rural New York, and we don't look like we belong there. You know, so we look like we absolutely the opposite.
And what we have.
We brought this one Tammy with us.
Because the one thing that I've learned from you over time,
I wanted to go to
there's a lot of secret ways.
This area where they used to turn the train. And this train, so we're down there in the gully, and people got off picking up on the
So how do we tell the difference?
So I'm like, bing, if they're going to die in the gully, and they can move around, if they're going to go back to, they usually go back to a place where it's familiar. You know, that's about people. What I've experienced
inside these defense contractors like Lockheed,
or sometimes they go into a place for a couple of days. They don't even know what they're doing, right?
Is because using a special access
in this
program,
case,
they are not.
They went to the roundhouse. They didn't have 200,000 square feet round.
They can just go and do what they want. And it's basically the Air Force writes them checks and they go
spindle that would turn the trains. They get on there, they move around, they point them in different directions. And there was also the area that was,
knowledge as to what is
basically
actually
where
creeping around in there.
the trains
Some of the
pull
project
through,
managers
and
and
people
program
go.
managers.
So anyway,
we absolutely.
I think
this
if
is
you
where the
talk to a
story came
walkie
from.
program
There was a
manager,
guy
you get a
that
pretty
hit me
good
up
idea.
online,
New York.
But
and
they're
he said
funneling the
they
stuff
were
that goes right
partying,
out of DARPA
I wanted
straight
to
into
go
this country.
drinking beers
So,
or whatever,
House,
you know,
which is what
and a
this area
chain
where they used to turn
came
But it always
flying
comes
at
down
this
to, my
from the
friend,
middle of the
where are they
stop
hiding
there, and
these
and it had a
toys?
guy in the
Where are
his
they?
back.
So I'm like,
this
bing.
big chain,
If they're gonna
and it
die,
bugged
they're
them all
going.
out. And he
that's a
said it
good
wasn't even the
question. I
fact
mean,
that
what
he
I
got hit
what
by
I
a
will
chain; it
tell
was the
you,
fact that
they
the
could really
feeling,
hide them anywhere.
the feeling
I mean,
was.
most
I always
they could
ask
put them in your
people how do they
backyard.
feel.
This is what
What
I've
I
But what I
feel
would
of the
argue to you is
paranormal
that a lot of them are
world,
solitary.
how does it make
or
you feel?
sometimes
Because
You know,
that's
they
going to be more
use
telling
what is it, Cold Lake
than
up
the
there in
experience.
they don't know even
If you
Canada.
see that shadow
You know,
figure,
So,
they
you
use
know,
in this
other
case,
if it's a person,
places that are very
want
you're going to have a
remote.
way
House,
different
big
feeling than if it's not.
You know, we have
and
black sites all over
because
the
your
world where they
soul,
can test this stuff.
your
But what
essence
I will say
is
is that they're
absorbing
spot up
that.
in
It
these
knows what's
areas that I
going
go
on
to.
more than you do.
You know, and I haven't gone for a
even
while
if you're
just
bugged
because
out
I noticed
or
that
something's
there's
not
a
right,
spot up there.
or something is
You know,
different.
you go on
I
a
mean, there's
Saturday
all kinds
night,
of
you can just
emotions
watch the stuff
around
climbing
this
out
stuff.
of there for
So
fun.
this is why we actually decided to go do it.
You just watch
And
it
then
fly
I
straight up
researched
into
it.
the sky and
I
vanish.
found out about the
So you
train,
see
and all that,
lights
and the
like doing
rail,
all kinds of
and
crazy
the whole
things.
this is
bit.
where the story
So
came
So, you know, I
plus
think
I had
there's
all
still a lot
kinds
of it there.
of people. So my intention was to
in
go
a
into the
white
roundhouse, do
van.
the investigation,
You know,
you know, go to a common
it
area and
depends.
call
Like,
your
it depends
neighbors
on who's sponsoring it. You
and
know, if it's the
just see
Navy,
what was going on.
it's
So
going to be
the
an
main
OTEC,
thing, I mean, this building
OTEC, which is technically in
had
the
these
Bermuda
ceramic
Triangle.
tiles
If
all
it's
the way
the
up to the
Army, you
ceiling.
know, they
Huge
have
ceiling height chain.
they
A
have
lot
the
of them
one
have
out in
fallen, hit the
Utah,
ground.
Dugway,
These are heavy
you know,
things.
White
So,
Sands,
you know,
Kirkland.
it's important to
You
wear
know,
like hard hats
Bella,
in
and
places.
Noah, Area 51 is
Protect
not the only
yourself because
secret
you
part
never
of
know what the
Noah.
hell's going to happen.
You have the tunnel
You
pot
know,
test
as you're
runs.
going through
I mean,
there. So
they fly
we went
renditions
through
fly
there,
in and out of
and
the test
then I
range
was
all the
drawn
time.
to a certain
There's
area.
a place in Mercury
We
in the
all ended
back
up in this one
that's like
place.
a
We
little
shut all the
airstrip,
lights
and you
off.
can go up
The
to
three of us standing around close together,
Really?
and we were calling. I was calling out to the victims of the train
Yeah,
crash.
you'll see a few
Kind of saying, you know, it was because of a rail that had broken. You know,
It's kind of
kind
scary.
of giving them closure
Right off the
on why
freeway,
it
you pull on
happened.
the
Because you know,
BLM
when
land
sudden
management.
death happens,
You
you
see
know,
a
you have to think
Q-130
in
land. You
those
see a Gulfstream
circumstances they
5.
don't know,
You see a whole
and there's
bunch
no
of
way
really
of them
scary
finding
guys
out
in
unless
like
someone tells them. That
beige
sounds
pants
silly,
and white shirts.
so it's really how it
Wearing
goes.
body
A
armor,
lot
carrying
of
assault
times when
rifle.
people go into
And you'll see some
to
dude in
ground out a
shackles,
building,
and then
it's
they
just
walk
that
from the
closure. Go to a
C-130
common area
to the
and,
Gulfstream, and that
what I've
Gulfstream flies to
experienced so far
Guantanamo.
anyway.
See what was going
But
on. So
at
another
one
You
point,
know
this
where else they
building,
do it? They
I was
fly
being
a lot
interviewed
of
not long ago
flights
about
all the way up to
out of
Discovery
Nineveh.
Paranormal and the shows
Is it
that
Nineveh?
we
It's the one
do.
that's in
And
these were heavy
yeah.
things.
of course, you can
They
see
fly a
them
lot
on
of stuff where it flies out past
YouTube.com/Discovery
Nineveh
Paranormal.
and
But
Newfoundland,
important to
and they circle out
that was
over
one of
the
the
Atlantic
incidents
for
that I
5,
felt
6,
most
7
as
hours
you're
and
going
then come
through
back.
there. Not afraid.
we
but
went through there,
spooky, you know,
and
where
that
you know
doesn't
you
surprise
know
me.
something's going around.
No,
At
but I
one
mean that's
we all
not
ended up,
secret
and
aircraft.
there was
That's
so
just
there was a
secret
little girl
spooky
that
stuff
called
that
out.
they're doing.
just
So I
Took
mean,
her mom.
you know,
She's like,
close
"Mommy."
a wise
And
man
I
once
was
told
calling
me
out. I
that
had heard
if
it
you're going to hide something,
and then we
you
definitely
hide
had
it under a
recorded it.
flagpole.
And I have that
Whether
recorded,
it's a
you know,
Canadian
EVP,
flagpole or
Class
American
A,
flagpole,
right there,
or
EVP.
French
Kind of
flagpole,
just
or
like that.
German
I'm like,
flagpole, or
whoa.
NATO flagpole,
when
or
At
what
one point,
it doesn't matter.
we had gotten
You
to the
just do it
point
out in
where
the open.
the light was
nobody
off
notices.
for quite a while, and we're
I
still
mean,
going
a secret
around.
airplane could fly
And you know,
overhead
there was
at
outside
night.
lights here and there, so you can kind of see, but not.
In fact, the other day,
But as you
I was
like,
watching
your
the
eyes get
radar,
used to the
a lot
light.
of times
So
when
it is
people
what
go
it
in,
is.
and I noticed that there
At
was a
one
global
point, we're
hawk, which
standing
is a
there,
high altitude
I was talking
surveillance
to
drone.
the majority,
what
and
I've-
It was doing a search pattern over
Tammy
Northern
picked up
California.
about a dozen
at one
people
point,
that were
Tell me.
around
I was
us.
being
I don't know.
interviewed not long ago
And
about
They were looking for
she
something.
said they're
paranormal
physically
They did a
surrounding
search
us right
pattern
there.
over all of Northern California
And
with 49,000
not
people.
only could you
see them
feel
on
That's a drone.
you can hear
That's
them
not a plane.
shuffling in the dirt. The whole floor was
Okay,
like
so-
crud and
So
dirt
with all
and
this
whatever.
going
that was
on,
one of the
and
what
incidents
is
all
the
of
race
those
for
tiles
technology
too.
these
You can
days?
not
hear them.
afraid,
And
I think
that
it's
was like
altitude and
just
speed.
such a
If you had
weird,
to ask
amazing
me,
experience. How
it's
it was
altitude
you
and
went.
speed. If they can get altitude, they can
Tammy,
get speed.
was doing her
It's
best to
harder to
cross
shoot
the
them down.
field.
It gives
That's
them
why
more
we brought her.
flexibility at the speed,
Was to
which
kind
is
of
the reconnaissance.
finish
See,
the
a lot
deal,
of times,
right?
so like we see things in the air, and people say
when
that's
you
a
engage in
UAP,
these
or
things,
UFO, or whatever you call it this days.
it's what
Because
what
it
does
is.
your
I mean,
heart
it's in the air, and you
say
can't identify
when
it.
you get
But
involved
it doesn't mean it's aliens or
spirits that
ultra-terrestrials. It just
basically
means
you
it's
don't
an
know.
object.
I mean, you're
And this thing's flying so high.
you
I
want
mean,
to
it
help
came over
them.
my house.
The people that I
night
know,
vision goggles, and I watch them
want to
doing
help
weaving
them.
patterns.
It's not like hunting
And
for
they're so
UFOs,
high that
right?
they look like satellites, but they're not, because they're changing
That's more of a
course.
thirst for knowledge.
And so you get up that high,
you know,
and it's hard to shoot you down.
technology and knowing that
And you
there
can
was
also
other
get around the
species
world,
out there.
and if you can
different
achieve
levels of light,
suborbital,
which
like
of
you can
course
circle the Earth
we
in
can
like
look on
90
this
minutes.
planet
So
and
think
see
about that. I have a little airplane
lots
with a
of
bomb
different
on it
levels of
with a
light,
nuclear bomb,
from
and I can
bacteria
get anywhere in
all
the
the
world
hell
in
the way
90
up
minutes.
with
That
like
seems
the
pretty
elephants
attractive.
or whatever, whales, and all of you see it all.
This is our guest tonight
So
on Space
no reason
Out Radio.
to believe
We have
that
5 minutes
that
before
doesn't
we're gonna go to
exist
break
elsewhere
here
in the
at
universe
bottom of
in
the
different
hour.
levels. But
Or
anyway,
for you, as you are
for the ghost
investigating,
hunting,
how do you find your information?
I know
on
people
these
that had gotten into it because
A lot of
they wanted to walk
documentation.
around and,
Oh yeah, you
act,
got
act
aliens,
like
Dave.
jerks, and
I'm an alien.
they thought they were doing something
you know that I'm
cool
an
and
alien?
they had nothing else to do or whatever.
That's
not
a
what I
wannabe
said.
Canadian is what you
When
are.
you
With all
the
your
ones that I know that are
politics.
serious about it get into it because
One,
they have a
A
desire.
lot of
to help.
digging, a lot of digging,
And
a lot of
it's
reading.
helping someone
a lot of
also
putting pieces together.
a spirit that doesn't
It's, you know, nowadays we call
necessarily
it open
belong
source
here.
intelligence. That's
I'm
all.
not talking about visitation
Okay.
type of stuff either.
But for
I'm
your
talking
information,
about
and I look at
the
Michael
people who are
Pratt as
stuck.
well,
And for whatever reason,
kind
they're
of
stuck.
add him to this
Sometimes they're
category as
confused.
well.
Sometimes they don't know they're dead. We have an EVP guy who fell in the well
For the
who
fact
said,
that
"I'm
you
not
are-
dead."
are,
Said just like that. I'm
going
not
through all of
dead.
this,
and see,
finding this information.
I heard that.
Michael
Let me tell you,
Pratt does as well.
when you're
a lot of
when
the
you leave all the
information
hell
that
the
you're
way up,
finding,
and you have all this
coming
whatever
through slip-ups
tales
from
go
the
through,
government who accidentally
and you
posted
get
it.
home 4:35,
Yeah,
6
it's
o'clock in
absolutely
the morning,
true.
whatever.
The 99%.
You don't go to
It's just
bed.
like Aurora.
The first thing you
The
do
Aurora
is
program, right?
open up your computer and
The
start
only
going
reason
through
we know that
episodes
it's
of
called
Ghost
the
Hunt.
Aurora
And this could go on for quite a
because
while, man.
I know
And
people
the person who's doing the
also, when you do these
classification of the
investigations,
budget
they want to walk
goes
around. It
back
kind of
to
pulls you into a
obfuscate the
different
name
world. You don't
Aurora
feel quite
program
right for
out
a
of the
few
budget.
days.
they thought they were
You
doing
got to
And
kind
so
of
once
level
the
off,
name
man.
Aurora program was
And
in the budget,
but
everybody said, "Oh my
when
God,
you
what's
when
the
you
Aurora
are
project?"
awake
And they all
at
went
that
out and
time in the
started
morning
reading
and
it.
everybody's quiet,
And
the
then,
whole
you know,
house
we're
is
all
quiet,
human, right? So you
and
find
then
out one
you got your
aerospace
headphones on
engineer,
and you
he
listen
got
to these
fired,
EVPs
but
and
he
you
was
hear,
like a material
"I'm
guy who
not
was
dead."
working on the skin.
That is some stuff.
You know,
right
and then you
there.
start
That
piece
is some
things
stuff.
together.
And you
So
know
yeah, it just takes
that
one small
you didn't
strip.
say it, and
It's
you know
it's
that
kind
the
of
person
like
you were with
the
didn't
thing with
say it,
Gary McKinnon.
and there was
Like,
nobody
the
else
reason I
around.
really love the
You
Gary
know,
McKinnon
and we have
story
so many
is that what did
that are
Gary
amazing.
McKinnon taught
You know,
me?
just
Gary
beyond that.
McKinnon
So
found
it
all the
shows
garbage,
you that
the
there.
bureaucratic garbage
It
left
shows
over
you that
from the
there
quote unquote
it's not
secret space
temporal
program.
bleed
You
through
know,
like
he
some
found
people
movement
would say.
orders. He found
It shows you
equipment
that
transfers.
there's an
You know, he
intention
found
for
ammunition,
communication, especially when
movement.
you're there
You know,
to talk to
let's
them. I mean,
move
it's
some
not
food
one
around.
thing
It was nothing like,
for these
you know,
spirits.
here's a
And then a lot
mounted
of times
alien super
you got
base.
these
Right?
idiots
It
who go
wasn't
in
like that.
cross
It was
their
more like,
arms and they'll act
oh,
all
well,
tough,
you know,
you know,
ship XXX
show yourself to me
57
now.
uniforms.
You know what I mean?
You know? And they need some extra ketchup. He found stuff like that. And that's how you find this stuff. It's the little things
They
that
look
people
like
don't pay
bouncers
attention
from
to.
the bar
It
business
takes a
from
long
like
time
the
to find
80s,
it.
man.
What is the biggest piece
And
of
they act like it.
when you are awake,
They're
Me
not.
personally,
It's not a healing type of
I
life.
think
It's not.
it's not that I found
Something
it. It
that
found
goes
me.
on towards
I'm a business
to
owning
have
meal prepping
and your
24/7
outcome
supermom. But who isn't
of
nowadays?
transition
And for me,
and
first day of
helping
school success
is
is being
something
for Office
completely
Depot
different
Office
when
Max,
it's like
where
that.
everything my kids need to start the year strong is
That's
in
why
one
these
place.
shows,
Like a laptop for my high schooler, backpacks
sometimes
and
nobody
notebooks
else
for the
doesn't
little
matter.
ones, and
Could be
hand
on my own
sanitizer
network.
for all of the above.
There,
I can
you know,
even order
I think there
things
are
for my
people that
business.
are
It's all
genuine.
available in-store
in
and
what they
online
do.
at
It's my humble
OfficeDepot.com and at low
opinion.
prices all
But
season
in
long.
the same
Office
sense,
Depot Office Max. Their
I've
business
observed
is to keep
enough
school
and
going.
I've heard enough
it shows
where
that
when I hear people
there's an
talk,
intention.
It's
especially
my
about
daughter's
negative
having a
encounters,
sleepover with
and they
five
you're
of
not
their
only
friends, but I know
brag
just the
about
place
it,
to go to get
I
something
mean,
for
they
everybody,
put spirits
and just
and
a
a lot
little
of times
something for
people
myself too.
and
Maybe.
talking about these horrible
There's a meal
negative
for
things.
every moment at a McDonald's.
When I
1, 2,
first
3
moved up
dollar
to
menu.
the
Like a
area,
full for $4
this
Get a
area
double
called
and a 4-piece
Compton,
chicken
got
nugget,
that
small
thing,
fries,
which was a
and a
bunch of
medium soft
stores, and
drink
it
for
was a
$4.
street. They decided to make it a sidewalk.
They look like
You know, which
bouncers.
economically
Impression
killed
is
the whole area there.
Man, like,
But
and they
I think the most
there's these
fascinating thing
people
that
who hung out,
I ever got
and
happened
they
to
would
me
do,
on the radio.
you know, the vampire games at night. They were,
No,
I don't
I
know.
told that
I still don't know
story
anything about it
often in
because
the
it
last
wasn't
5
something
minutes
I
of the
was
show.
interested in.
I was on
But I
a
met some
radio
of the
show in the
people. They
last
seem
5
they were
minutes.
kind of cool.
This guy
Whatever.
who was a
You
retired aerospace
very
engineer for a
very Celtic
aerospace company in the Pacific Northwest.
That's why I
Very-
hate these shows.
And he was working out of
very
some secret
Renaissance
facility
type
down
of
by
people, man.
Palmdale.
And I like that
Back
type
in the
of group,
mid
man.
'70s,
You know,
and he was saying that he worked
I
on
tend to
something
hang
called
out
solar
with
warp.
intelligent people who are
And he
artists,
described it to me, and
and
the
I
whole
like the
conversation
vision, and I
lasted
like to have
about
sense
3 minutes,
positive,
but it was
strong
incredibly insightful.
conversations.
And I've heard
You know,
enough
I don't know.
The
Even
amount of
about politics
information
and
he
whatever,
passed on in
especially
3
about
minutes
So,
negative
but there was
was
a
fairly
group within
amazing.
it
Or
not only
that
you know,
called
another
themselves
time,
the
like
Wolf
brag
Pack.
about it,
And then these were
I
the
spoke
guys
at
who
Paranoiacon eons ago.
say
And this guy was like, "Oh, I'll give you a
did
ride back to your hotel."
rituals and things to bring about
This seems all right.
negative
And he was a
energy.
defense contractor, and he
You
was
know,
telling me about
the power
installing
of
like
the
particle
dark
cannons on
side.
Navy ships and rail guns and stuff.
And
The level of
those people
sophistication
always
he
make
had
me
about it
laugh.
is pretty indicative that he wasn't making it
Because
up.
their dark side
Those are probably the more interesting ones. But a lot of times,
and
I think the best thing I ever
the
found
power exists
was a radio transmission between the North Koreans and a cargo ship where they were smuggling missile parts
and it's
through the
about the
Panama
energy.
Canal.
And if you want power,
That's probably the most interesting
kindness
one
and love
I kind
will
of found and
always
figured out
conquer
myself.
anything else
Why
that's
would they
trying
be
to
doing that?
undo it. But when people are talking
Because they wanted to
about
build an
terrible
nice museum.
situations,
A nuclear
situations
missile.
where people
So they
had great
bought the
insight
parts.
and they're
I guess
excited
bought the
about
parts and had them
it.
shipped to Cuba.
They want
And
to
then they
tell
were
you
trying
their
to run it through
story.
the Panama
The very
Canal.
fact that they're
And
doing
then
it to try to make a
got
buck
caught. And the
has got to tell you
Panamanians,
something
like,
about them.
they found the stuff,
Then,
they
of
didn't even
course,
know what it could
if you
be.
converse with them, you
And
realize
so they called us
they're not
and the
very
Army guys from the Army
intelligent.
base down there.
The way
They
they
went
use
into look at it, they couldn't
proper
figure it
English,
out.
certainly,
So they had to bring a bunch of guys in from the
like the
Pentagon.
people that don't know they're there,
And then when the Pentagon guys got there, the
they're
whole
the
story
ones who
went
kind of
down.
got to
and
roll
went
your
dark.
eyes. You automatically know those people always
So I
you
think
can't
it was
learn anything
an
from
attempt to
them.
ship in ballistic missile parts.
You automatically
There's
know
a whole story there of like,
there's
you know,
not
burst
something you can
transmissions,
learn
encoded
from
radio
them.
traffic, being
So
intercepted by
I
him
kind
radio
of see them as
operators. And
parasites.
it's a whole
nothing
story in
more,
and of itself.
of just
That's probably the
unusual,
coolest thing I ever
and it's about the bedbugs
That
gone
is
wild
absolutely
type of
awesome.
power.
Olaf, I'm going to need you to
And
hold
the
on
more-
right there as
the
we
more
are
I
going to break
hear
here
about
at the
anything,
bottom of the
the
hour.
negativity that they
It is
push.
the dark
But
side
the
of
more
ufology,
I don't want to
solar
hear
warden, UFOs,
So,
secret
and
space programs.
we have a duty
I'll tell
to
you,
ourselves
one of
and
the
to
best
each
in
other
talking about
and
this
to bring
subject,
healing
Olaf
into this
Phillips
world
is
and try
our
to get
guest
away
tonight
from
on
talking
Space
about
Sound
cause
Radio.
harm or do other
And when
people
we come
harm
back,
or be gleeful
we're gonna
while
get
other
into
people suffer or
who's
have
flying
suffered.
what with
You
whom.
when you know
Here
what
on
the
Space
area I'm
Sound
in right
Radio
now.
and Olaf Phillips.
There was Sullivan's
Return
March.
right after that.
George Washington told General Sullivan to go up and decimate the Indian population.
Like the
Native
people that don't know
Americans,
they're there and there.
men,
you know what I mean? Like,
women, children,
ones who
different
kinda gotta roll
tribes,
your eyes.
all along
You
the
know
Finger Lakes,
automatically know you can't
along
learn
the
anything
shores
from
of the
them.
lake. So here
You
comes
already-
his troops
you
for years and years
know
as
that.
All
well.
right, buddy, we're clear.
And then
There's
they,
not-
Yeah, I
they
was able to
basically
pin my phone.
scoured the lakes
Good.
and
So
they
it should be
killed every
stable
Indian
now,
that they
not
saw.
I kind of
Good.
see them
Babies,
as
everything didn't matter.
Polar
Nothing
Eclipse,
You think that
F-bomb
kind of
for not
energy
telling the
goes
truth
away.
about what's happening in BG.
Maybe
It
one
just
day,
got announced
but not
today,
so
buddy,
soon.
so
And
lay
don't
the
you
F
think
off
that
back.
that
More
type
about
of
that.
energy
the more I
needs to
hear
be
Right?
healed?
Take a chill
That
pill.
there needs to be
Have a
that
Snickers.
needs to bring about some kind of healing,
the more-
and that
Oh,
comes
Snickers, that sounds good.
self-respect.
All right, I'll be back in 1 minute.
And,
All right, buddy.
and respect of
You know,
others.
we have a duty to ourselves
So
and to
when
each
I hear
other
these
to
people
bring
talk,
healing into this
we'll
world
call them
and
Satanists,
try to get away from the people
and it's kind of a
that
funny
would
word.
do
I
us
gotta
harm.
stop saying it.
Told you
Or
he'd
do
fix
other
it,
people
Uncle
call them
Dale.
trash, man. When I hear
or
them
be
talk,
gleeful while other people
I
my
just
shirt
get
says
drawn
you
into the
got
fact
aliens.
that
you
they
know
don't
what?
have
The area I'm
You'll
in
be
respect
able to get this on our new
themselves.
There was
website.
Sullivan's
in
They
our
weren't
brand
brought
new
up
store.
right. There was stuff happened to
You need
them
aliens
that
too. Hey,
went
Waylon, how you
beyond
doing?
and they
decimate the
of
Indian
normal,
population.
where they couldn't
Native Americans,
process it
men,
in
women,
their brains,
children,
and this is what they
different tribes.
become.
Thumbs
And these,
up from Uncle
know,
Dale and his
there are
power
people I
staff.
know that
along
are
the shores of the lake. So here
over
comes
50,
these
man.
troops.
You know, I
For
mean,
years
they're
and
already.
years this went on.
There's no
And
learning
then,
new
It's like
things
his
at that
five
point. There
calls.
isn't. There
Because the
isn't.
government
Scoured
announced
the
it
lakes.
today.
I kind of
They
feel like
killed every
whatever
Indian.
you are is
I'm
what
a
you
liar
are,
now.
babies, everything.
and
Holy
it's hard to
cow.
get away from that.
You think that
You
kind of
know,
energy
it's your
goes
core
away.
personality. You know,
maybe
so if
one
someone's
day,
a liar,
but not
cheater,
so
thief,
soon.
they're going to be
And
one
don't you
tomorrow
think
too.
that type
And the
of
next
energy,
week, and the next month,
needs
and
to
the
be
next year,
healed?
they're going to be the same
That
way.
there needs to be
The people that have
you
problems,
bring about
I'm
some
talking
kind
about
of healing.
I mean, we all
And
got
that comes
problems,
with
right? Some of people with
self-respect.
nonstop
Doors,
problems,
Kira,
and we all
respect
know
aliens.
those people.
Yen
And
Chi
they're always
Scott.
asking
When I hear
for something
these
or help or
people
whatever,
talk,
Well, as
nonstop.
a
Even in the
police
paranormal world,
announcement,
the people who
and it's
invite
kind
in
of
negativity
is-
because it's
call them
alluring
trash.
to them for
is,
whatever reason, and then they end up biting off more than they can chew. And those very same people start screaming for help because they can't sleep at night because there's things walking up and down the hall.
without
Everyone's brought
any
clawing
type
at
of
them through their
happened to
beds
them
and
that
Yeah, I
whatever
did
with
that on
giant
Saturday,
teeth.
and
Yeah.
normal.
I just showed my
Where-
vaccine
And I
card.
listen to those stories.
processes
Sometimes I think
in
this
their
person
brains
brains
here
and this is
tonight.
what they become.
Magnolia,
And these,
how are you?
You know,
person's
there are people I know that are
Or are
over
they?
50, man.
Because
you know?
that,
I mean, they're
that
already,
same person
there's
that was
no
telling me
well,
those
well,
stories
things that
got
Yeah.
the best
You look at the
evidence ever from
skyline
his
where you
apartment.
are.
I
We
kinda
have a
feel like
Of his
biker
aunt
named
that
Sept
had
in
passed
your
away
area.
there. She was a full
Can you
body
see his
apparition.
head?
It's hard to
And
get
she
away
came
from
around
it.
He's got
because
a
she said she
massive
didn't like
melon.
what he
Can
was
you
Poor
see
doing.
it anywhere?
personality.
Didn't like
Oh,
his
dear God, I
lifestyle.
can see the shine
Someone's
from
a
here.
liar
It's
here
judged from
reflecting
beyond.
off the
One
moon.
tomorrow,
Holy
too.
cow.
And the next
Well,
week, and the
just be
next
careful.
month,
You don't
and
have
next
to
But
be
year.
there
afraid,
is,
okay?
there are
The
people
people that
out
have
there that
problems.
will
I'm
use
I'm talking about
everything and,
Just wanted to let you know.
problems.
and they have no
Okay,
problem
thank
with
you.
it.
People would not.
And if you
appreciate
call
the
them out
FYI.
on
And we
it,
all know
they start
those
going
people.
crazy.
And
And
they're
I
always asking
love
for
that.
something or
I
help or
can't
whatever.
tell you how
That's
much I love
marshmallow.
that.
Even in the
You ever see a
paranormal
cat
Oh, that
world,
was
play
really
with a
people
good.
who
mouse
invite
until
in
they kill it?
negativity
I
because
didn't
it's a
want to do
terrible
that
thing
while
to
I'm on
witness
the
a
show,
world
though.
and
But it's a
I'm
nature
not-
thing.
Also,
and then they
You know
end
what I
up
mean?
biting
I'm not
off
gonna
on
lie.
And that
I
cat's
would love
really
one of those.
enjoying
very
itself.
same
Mushrooms.
people
In
start
fact,
Yeah.
it's having such a
because they
good
can't
time.
sleep at
Yeah,
night.
It's
I'm
Corbin
trying-
Bear,
Walking up
welcome
and
to
down
our
all
channel.
along
How
with
are
us.
How
you?
can I
Clawing
keep
at
this
them
this
through their
thing
beds
from
and
not moving
whatever
anymore?
with giant
So I can have
teeth
more
and
fun
yeah.
watching it squirm. Yeah.
And I listen
dear
to those
God.
stories.
Sometimes that's
Sometimes
me.
I think this person's nuts.
That's crazy considering you're
I'm
in
not going to
Canada.
say it's not.
Crazy.
Like when you say
It
he's in
depends
my
if
area,
you're
what does that
if you're
classify?
battling for
Somewhere in the West
someone, you know. I
Coast?
mean, there's
Yeah,
people
pretty
who come
much.
to me and have all
Northern
kinds of
California,
issues and
Southern
whatever,
California,
and
it's
I'm happy to help
badass.
you.
Okay, that's a big area, dude. You know how long it takes me to get to LA from here?
Especially
You
if
know
it's
how
a
big
communication
Fat Ted is?
problem.
Didn't like his
You gotta
lifestyle.
clear
Okay,
up
but do you
communication.
know how long it takes me
So
to get to LA
we
from
help
here?
people
Yes,
on our
I do.
path.
Are you?
We don't journey off the path.
Right now?
But
You're
there
back
is-
home.
We
There
help the
are
people
people
No, I'm
along
in.
the
I'm
path,
outside
right?
San Francisco.
And whatever comes
Everything
across
and-
that path,
and they
it's
have
your
no
duty
problem doing it.
to do
And
that.
if you call them out, on it,
and you'll know
they start going
if you didn't do the
crazy.
right
And I
thing. Sometimes
love
people
that. I
choose
can't
what's
tell
Alex
healthy
you
Coon,
over
what's
what's
happening,
right,
man?
and
You
they,
ever
they
see a
go the
cat
opposite
play with a
direction.
mouse
You
until
know,
they
and they
kill
make
it?
a bad choice.
It's a terrible thing to
That's
watch.
lack of
All right, we
of
got
strength
just
of
over a
character.
minute.
You know what I mean?
Stoke that
And the
fire
cat's
for us.
really
Give us a little-
enjoying
give
There
a
are
little
people
poke
out
for
there
us.
In fact,
who
it's having such a
Lao
good
Tzu
time. It's
described him
saying,
as
how can I prolong
he said there was
this?
5
How can I
different
keep
types of
this
people,
thing from not
and the
moving
lowest are
anymore?
like
So I
oxen,
can have more fun
right?
watching it
I'm
squirm.
Putting them at the level of an
right
ox.
Now I know what I'm doing.
You know,
Sometimes that's me.
We're not allowed fires right now.
I
a
can
little
understand
warm
that
around
because
here.
I've met people like
gonna
that.
say
You
it's
probably
not.
shouldn't.
It just
I
is what
probably
it is.
shouldn't.
You
do
know,
that.
It
uh,
depends.
I thought
doesn't
it
mean they
did
can't be
good.
good people.
Good thing to do for
battling
space
So it really
radio.
comes down to
I mean,
good
there's people who come to me
So do
with all
I.
kinds of issues and
Joan
whatever.
Dillon
And
from
I-
the
and,
Netherlands.
I
Welcome
try not
to
to
our
say
channel.
evil, you
The
know.
gorgeous Tracy Benna has
especially
it
returned,
does exist,
everyone.
doesn't it?
Especially
Give
if
us a
it's a
wave
And there are
of
people
curtsy,
that
Tracy, if you don't
exist
mind.
because
Clear up the
there are people out there that do evil
So,
things,
we help
Oops.
people
or
on our
they
path.
Have to
you know
move back
want
far
to
don't
too.
journey
you
off
and
Yeah,
the
abuse
that's
path.
you.
fine. That happens.
We help
And
All
they
right,
take
we
your
want to say a
life
big
away,
thank you
right?
to Chad
You know,
Smith,
try
Sonny
to,
Space Cow, and
it's
Black
keep you
Dragon
down
for the amazing
do
super
that.
chats.
and I love it
It
when they
is
get
a
riled.
pleasure to have
I
all
used
of
to say,
your support here on
choose
Spaced
what's
Out
easy
Radio.
over
It
what's
is
as a
a
community,
great way to
go the
support what
opposite
we
I
do
used
on
to
a
say I
nightly
can,
basis.
and
If
anybody
you're
that
new
much
here,
less
we
is
are
20
a live
lack
radio
of
show.
There was
Which is
this
why
movie,
we do
I don't
take
even know what the hell it's
commercial
called,
breaks and kind
this
of
dude on
mess
there
around
who's
at
a
the bottom and
photographer
top of the hours.
His
We're
whole
gonna
deal
get
was
serious
to
in
go
5
out into the
seconds. Here we go. Get
streets
your
and make
horns
people
up.
so
He said there was
mad
5 different types of
that they
people.
want to kill him, man.
the
And then
lowest
when
are
they
like
get mad like that,
oxen.
screaming at it, he takes that picture.
Putting them at the level
For the
of
raw
oxen.
emotion, you know.
You know?
There's something about
I can
moving
understand
that kind of
I've met
energy
people like
around to make life
just
better
is what
for
it is.
others and try
You know,
to flush
doesn't mean they
that
can't.
horribleness out.
So it really comes down
You
to
know,
good.
even anger. Now you go,
Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for joining us. We really do appreciate
They don't know,
putting your
just
listening
especially
ears wherever
if you don't
are
know
in
your
this
attitude,
beautiful
evil
planet we call
you
Earth.
know, or
Want to
they
say
just shut up,
that you can check out all of our
drink a
archives
tall
for free.
glass of shut
By
the
going to
F up,
youtube.com/spaced
move
out
along and do
radio.
your own
Do
thing
me
and
the
don't worry
favor,
about
hit
other
that
people
subscribe
because
button.
those other
Our
people
website
could
is
really
SeptRadio.com,
really
ruin
your day,
features for
week,
you,
month,
including
year,
rocking out
decade,
Bumblefoot and reading up on
century,
Captain Kirk's SOR Newswire.
whatever.
Follow us on Twitter at Space Out Radio and on Instagram.
Think about the
Space
kind
Out Radio Show.
Be kind
on tonight
to each other.
from Paranoia Magazine, Mr. Olaf Phillips,
forgive
the
yourself.
dark side of ufology. Let us make
People
it
that blame
happen.
themselves
Right
for
now,
so
Olaf,
many
welcome back to the show.
and
he takes their picture.
Thanks
It's
for
hard to
having me.
hear.
It's
Those
a
are raw
pleasure being
emotions.
here. Now,
Because
if you want to
you
get
try to let
jealous
them
right
know,
now,
well, these things
Olaf
aren't
is
your fault.
roasting marshmallows.
If you don't have control
Wow,
over
to
the
me,
situation,
better for
continue
others,
this
then you
show.
can't blame
For
yourself
somebody
for the
who's been
outcome.
that horrible
And if
in,
somebody brings
forest
the game
fires
to
for
your
the last
door,
couple of months,
Even
No.
anger.
It's
I
not
always
your
think
fault either.
outrage in the world.
It's theirs for
Put it
sure.
on.
Yeah.
Things they don't
It's
For a
even
roast
theirs
dinner.
for trying to.
Well, I'll tell you, it hasn't been
And
great
keep
here.
in mind, if you're doing well,
During
there's
the
also
day,
a lot of people out there
it's
that
like
would love to see
Tatooine,
not
you know,
do
it's like
well
an orange
and
sky.
poorly, and
The sun is like a
you got to
strange,
protect
like,
your number one
you know,
player. got to
like burned under disc. It's bad.
Listen
But I was like,
don't listen to your
I'm on
critical
Spaced Out
people.
Radio.
When
I always
someone
feel
comes
like when
after
I'm on
you,
the show,
step on them
because I
so
always do
hard
it
they
in my
never want to
backyard.
do it again.
I
And then they
figured,
warn
it
others
felt
too.
kind of like
Don't mess
it was
with
like a
them.
campfire,
Don't mess with
like
us,
I'm around a
baby.
campfire.
Whatever.
I figured, you know what? I'm just going to light one. I'm
No
doing it very
happiness could
safely.
come from
I have
it.
plenty of water to put it out.
Kind
No,
words.
nothing's at risk, and I
In
just
the
thought
paranormal
it'd be a lot of
world,
fun.
as people seek
Well,
things
it is
out,
a lot of fun.
you don't
It is
hook
a
up
lot
with the
of fun,
bad
my
ones.
friend.
You don't
Thank
hook up
you
with
so
the
much for
negative
joining
ones.
us.
You don't
Earlier,
try to
right
put the
before the
negative
break, we were
ones out
talking
there.
about what is
What you
ours,
do
what is
instead
theirs,
is
and
stay
where
around
is
that
it
positive
hiding,
energy. Because,
in the end,
when
I
things
think
start to happen
with
in
the
during an
advancements in
investigation,
technology, from
it's when we're
like
laughing
David
and having a
Goodall
good time
quoting
and sharing
Ben
good
Rich
stories
from
with
back
one
in the day,
another.
who was a good friend
That's
of
when the
his,
stuff
saying
comes
that,
out. When people ask
the
me how they
American
can communicate with someone who
technology
passed
is
away, I
about
said,
8 years
you
ahead
know
of
what?
what we are seeing
Think
today.
about the good
As you
moments
look at
before
this,
you go to
with
bed.
all of
Think
these
about
projects going
those
on,
nice
how
moments,
much
the things that
these
made
black
you feel
projects
so good,
these
made
black
them feel so
aircraft
good.
are out there.
That is what's going to bring them around.
It's
You
really
don't want the
impossible to
negative.
say.
And you don't want to
And by the
definitely
way,
never,
I've talked to DARPA
feel
engineers, and
good
they tell me
about
it's more like
somebody else.
150 or 200
That
years.
is just
But,
lame.
Ben Rich has a very famous comment that he made during a Caltech alumni dinner, where he said that not only does he have the technology to take ET home, he has a contract.
And
So
how
I
all
think
these
that's
people go there.
kind
They
of a
wonder why
stunning
you don't
admission
have
from a
these
guy
guys
who
who are
runs
so
skunk
active.
works,
And your
But,
average person
it's
go there with a
impossible to
camera
say
and
like
get
how many
paranormal
aircraft there actually are.
and why it's so
Probably not
active.
a ton.
It's really, don't you think it's the
I would say that there's
reenactments?
more
Don't you
than
think it's
50
people showing up every
or
year,
100 of these kinds of
dressing
aircraft.
up,
I'd be
firing
surprised.
off guns, having that
You know,
war?
you-
It's not
but
something you need
their
to reenact.
capabilities are
It's
so
something you need
insane.
to memorialize.
But I don't think you need a
And
lot.
heartfelt sorrow that
What's
brother
the
against
purpose
brother
of
were
this
fighting
crap?
each other
Is
on
it just
American
for
soil,
people
and
asking
people died horribly and miserably.
It's a lot of things. Nowadays,
think about the
they're trying to
So for the people
make
out there
things
that take
multi-use.
joy and
So you'll have a
misery,
plane
how dare you?
like the
You're the lowest
TR-3B,
of
right?
the
You
low.
know, it can carry munitions or it can
On
carry
that note,
sensors. And a lot of times, like they make them so they're
next
adaptable,
week on this show.
so they can carry
be
sensor
kind, be
payloads,
kind, be kind. The
taking
Buddha
photos
says,
or
cast your ego
capturing
out,
radio
check
signals
it
or
at the
whatever.
door.
They can do that
Burn that
and
big tree,
carry
all
munitions
the
at the
mayhem
same
and
time. I mean,
craziness going
obviously,
on, and
you take a
maintain
Global Hawk
and
versus
be
like a
yourself.
Predator
And how
or a
all
Reaper.
people go there. They
You know,
will
the
keep you
Global
calm,
Hawk isn't
get the
designed to carry
chaos.
munitions.
Or Lao
It
Tzu
lacks
say, be the tree,
the pylons to actually carry, missiles
I'll see you
and
guys
stuff.
next week on
So
the
it's
show.
pretty much,
On United
solely
Radio
surveillance.
Bye.
But, a lot of aircraft, they're capable of doing both at
firing
once.
off guns.
Now, what triggers me a little bit is because the question is, how come nobody ever sees these being built? How come they're never seeing where these aircraft are being
But they are.
But what I'm saying though is, I think what a lot of people don't understand, Olaf, is that you may have a factory in the Palm Desert in California that's creating the nuts and brackets. You may have another factory in Seattle that is creating the wheels. And yet none of them really know what the project is that they're working on. They just know that they have to change the designs to create these new products.
Check it at the door.
I heard a story once from a
In front of that
machinist.
fig tree.
He was a
with all
very
the
sophisticated
mayhem and craziness
machinist,
going on,
and
and
he basically
maintain
worked for a little
be
tiny
yourself,
subcontractor
who
for a larger
can
defense
become
contractor.
in the
And
chaos.
pretty much
Lao
like
Tzu
all
say,
this company
be the
did
tree
was make
with
this
deep
bolt.
roots in
It was
the
literally a
land.
bolt.
I'll see you guys next week on
And
the
it was,
show on
the
United Public
kind of
Radio
materials that they were using to make the
Bye.
bolt, super complex alloys and other things. But they made bolts. That's it, just bolts. And he never knew what the bolt was for. He just knew that they made a lot of bolts, a little tiny
Welcome
company.
to the Veritas.
They put them in bins and ship them.
University students and faculty in discussions about
One
life's
day,
hardest questions,
he was at
the relevance of Jesus
a museum or
Christ to all of
something.
life.
He had long since retired. And one day he was in a museum and he saw a mock-up of a nuclear reactor. And he saw his bolt. And he said, "Oh my God,
evening.
I
My
made
name
that
is
bolt."
Sharif Girgis, and I'd like
And
to welcome
literally,
you
this
to the
machine
third
shop, all they did
annual
was
Veritas
make
Forum
this one bolt that was
Oxford
used in a
University.
nuclear reactor. But he
Here
had no
and
idea
at
what the
dozens
rest of it was
universities
for.
in
They
North
actually
America
farm it
and
out
Europe,
like that to make sure that
Veritas
nobody can
Forum
figure it out.
offers a chance to
It's very
escape
complicated.
Are sometimes narrow and
I can see that, and I can appreciate that.
And consider
so
together
when you have
some of
all
the
of these
perennial
thousands of people who are making one little specific part, I'm not saying for the 50 or 100 that will actually build the plane.
To which we hope to contribute.
Those are people. I mean, it's easier to control 50 or 100 than it is 10,000 who built the parts.
Right. I'm saying that there's not a lot of the planes because you don't need a lot of the planes. But yeah, there's very few people that actually work on the whole, the entire aircraft. And you were asking, I was thinking about it over the break. You were asking where they put them. It's funny. I saw a
sponsored by the Graduate Christian
like
Union
a film,
and supported by groups like the Oxford Pastorate,
how should I put it?
Catholic Chaplaincy.
There's like a write-up with a lot of photos. This guy was going through Google Earth,
on how secularists
and he found an airfield like in the middle of Nellis, and wasn't at Area 51 or anything. It was just somewhere in the Nellis range. And they showed close-ups of this thing, and it looked like an airfield, like an honest-to-God airfield, like the airport down the street from my house, And then they panned out and they showed the parking lot, and they showed these trucks, like 4x4 trucks, probably like the truck that you have at home in the wilds of British Columbia. I have a Sequoia, like it's a big car. Well, they had a bunch of those in the parking lot, and it dwarfed like the fuel tank. And when you finally saw this thing, it's like, oh my God, that's a drone airfield, and it had shelters. I mean, it looked like a normal military airfield.
How might
it was crazy, but it was just in the middle of the desert. It wasn't like it was underground or anything. It was just in the middle of the desert.
Begins by recognizing that a
how many
vibrant
of these
society
craft,
depends on more than having
let's take the
structure
TR-3B
of
there
liberal
for a
democracy,
second. With your sources that you have,
we also need the moral resources to accomplish
are you
what
looking at
procedural mechanisms of
5
separation of
aircraft,
powers or majority
10
rule
aircraft,
or judicial review
100
alone provide?
I'd say probably 2
we have to
dozen.
find common purpose across creedal and
If I had to
ethnic
guess,
divides
I'd say probably
as we
24.
use those institutions to pursue a genuinely
I
common
mean, you
goal.
don't. It's a funny
Second,
thing. Like you don't
we need
see
to
them a lot,
develop
like flying
a
together.
robust
They're
account
very
of human
solitary.
rights and liberties
But like I followed one
and
once
forms of
from
aid to
Area
the
51 down into the south,
to be asserted and
where
reasserted against
it had
selfish
obviously
interests, the powerful
met up with an
majority,
air tanker or two,
overweening state,
and then it flew off
and
toward
aggressors
Russia.
from within or abroad.
So they kind of fly
Third,
onesie
we
twosie.
need
They
a
don't.
set of shared
It's not like you see with like a
moral
B-52 where you have this
by
like
which to pass on
an
the
entire
same
B-52
civic
bomber
principles
wing like fly
to the
over your
next
head.
generation.
These kind of aircraft, they don't fly in large groups.
Faith-based worldview,
I mean, I've
provide a more
seen
compelling
I've seen
account of
anomalous
these
aircraft
ideals?
flying in large
Or would a
groups. I
secularist culture,
once
one free
saw a
of
dogfight
religiously
with about
informed principles and
14
arguments,
separate
more
aircraft
adequate to the
dogfighting
task?
and making
Would the
geometric
latter
patterns
provide a
in the
more
sky.
neutral common ground?
I watched that for a
Or
couple
is
hours,
there no such
but
thing? These will be our questions today.
I think that's the oddity.
But our discussion will proceed a bit
They're making like
differently than
triangles
usual
and
for
squares
this
in
familiar
midair.
topic.
The reason
It's
why
pretty
Some would
crazy.
one of the
defend their
reasons
side
why I
by
asked
imputing to
is,
their opponents various
I was
crimes
talking
committed in the name
with
of religion
MUFON
or
Canada
irreligion,
president
as may be,
David
forced
Palacic.
conversions, crusades,
And he was
suicide
saying
bombings,
that in
or
Canada,
suppressions of speech,
especially in
gulags,
2021,
and gas chambers.
there has been a real
Though not
uptick
irrelevant,
in
that
black
sort of
triangle
historical
sightings.
tallying can
So
Oh, yeah,
if
I'm
this
sure.
is
confounding
such a
factors.
secret
It also counts a
aircraft,
strike
why
against
do you
any
think we're
one
having so
form
many
of
sightings
faith or
of this
secularism
if it's
as a
human and
strike
not
against all such
extraterrestrial?
forms?
Well, I think they're
And
operationalizing
finally,
it.
it assumes
When you
that
finally
anything done
release.
in the name of some
So in my
worldview
entire life, I've
is done
seen
out of genuine
Aurora
fidelity
twice.
to that worldview.
Tell us
Right.
about that.
Represent a mere distortion.
So the first time I was at ECETI,
To
the
minimize these problems,
James
as noted in your
Gilliland
programs
Ranch,
tonight,
Right.
we've asked
and I
each of
saw
our
this
speakers to
thing
focus in his opening
flying
talk
from east to west.
on his own
Both
worldview
times I saw it
and on
fly
the
from east to
positive within
west.
it.
And
what
I saw
extent
like
does
a
it
black
really
object.
provide
I saw it
reasons
at dusk,
for
and I
our
saw a
public
black object
values
flying.
and ideals?
And then just like these light,
And
like
are
popping
these reasons
lights
sufficiently
behind it.
non-sectarian
And it
to
just
promote
streaked
tolerance and cooperation
like a bat out of
and
hell
pluralism?
out toward the west and disappeared.
Then, in the
The second
moderated
time I saw it at
discussion,
night over
we can
Nevada,
explore
northern
apparent
Nevada.
problems with
The
each
same thing, it was like
perspective,
flashes of
as well
light.
as the
You
comparative
could see like the
question of whether
fuselage
either
kind
is
of
a better
illuminated by
public
the
philosophy
flashes.
overall.
But you see these flashes of light as it
Just
streaked
introduce
across
our
the
first
sky.
speaker.
Didn't even make a sound.
Christopher
He was
Hitchens
silent.
is an English-American
It was
journalist
the
and author
strangest thing.
whose career
One of the
spans
strangest
over
things I've
40
seen.
years.
The only
can't
thing
tell by
strange
looking at
like that I've saw
He's been a literary critic,
was on
columnist,
Vancouver
or
Island,
contributor to Vanity
because
Fair,
I'd always kind of
Slate,
have
The
an
Atlantic,
affinity
The Nation,
for
the New York Review
military
of Books,
aircraft.
and many
Oh, I
other.
love them.
Especially ever
Read
since
philosophy,
the
politics,
retirement
and
of the
economics at
SR-71.
Balliol College, Oxford.
Right.
And has been a
And
visiting
long
professor
story
at the
short,
University of California,
my
Berkeley,
ex-wife and I, we were
University
driving
of Pittsburgh,
on
and the
Vancouver
New
Island. We were
School
driving
of
north
Social
just to,
Research.
because, I mean,
A
if you
trenchant
wanted to do
political
something on the
and
island,
social
everything was
commentator
half
and
an hour to 2
self-avowed
hours away.
anti-theist.
You know?
Right.
Mr. Hitchens has written several books.
Lovely place, though.
It is a
including
gorgeous
The Missionary
place.
Position,
And
Mother
I
Teresa
remember
in Theory
I had
and
just
Practice,
watched this show
and God is not
about
great.
UFOs.
How
This is
religion
going back to
poisons
like
everything.
1999.
Please join me
2000.
in welcoming Mr.
Okay.
Hitchens.
And they were talking about this Aurora program. And
Right.
one of the things they said was, it's contrail, looks like the old style phone calls. You know, that's all intermixed.
Sort of.
Well,
sort
my
of. Yeah,
thanks
sort
to
of. Sort of like
the
that.
And we
Military
actually,
for
my ex-wife and I actually saw one of
suspiciously
those
terse introduction.
going north,
for his,
so traveling south to north.
Kind remarks about my
And we were like,
agelessness.
you got to
I
be
have to
kidding me
confess that
now.
there was a portrait in
she
my attic
obviously
beginning to look
didn't
distinctly
really care
seedy.
too much. That wasn't her thing, but for me, I
haven't been
geeking
here
out
since I came to
because
hear
all of a sudden you're like,
Claude
okay,
Lévi-Strauss
is this
give
what
a-
I
his
actually
wonderful
think
lecture
it
on the
is,
scope of
or
anthropology.
is it a contrail
But
that's
Oxford is my
spreading,
town. It was my
spreading
family's
out?
home,
I don't
Well,
know.
So you saw it. You
my
must have
university.
seen it after it had been up there for a while,
Bailey
because that's
was
what
down the
happens
road.
to it
Before you get to Bailey,
eventually.
you get to the Turl.
But they call it a donut
Where my
on a
mother
rope,
once
because
swore
basically
that
what
she
you
heard
see
the
is a
following
circle.
I'm a
from the
business owning
bewildered
you,
American
prepping
tourist who
24/7
said,
supermom. But who
I
isn't
can never
nowadays?
tell
And
which
for
is
me,
Lincoln
first
and
day
which
of
is
school
Jesus.
success begins at Office Depot Office Max,
To
where
which someone
everything my kids
returned,
need to start the
that's the
year
problem
strong
with
is in
all
one
you
place.
Americans.
Like a laptop for my high schooler, backpacks and notebooks
Now,
for the
but
little
we're
ones,
not
and hand
supposed to do
sanitizer
God
for all of the above.
this evening.
I can even
Strangely
order
enough,
things for
one
my
of the very few
business.
places
It's all
I've managed to
available
date with
in-store
isn't
and online at
not doing God, but I
OfficeDepot.com
can't
and at low
avoid
prices all season
the
long.
side effects
Office
and
Depot
all
Office
that.
Max.
Because I
Their
want to talk
business
about
is
the
to
American
keep school going.
in the secular sphere.
Unexpected trouble? CashNet USA can take the stress
Well,
out of
Abraham Lincoln
borrowing
was
emergency
dying.
funds. Our fast, secure application
rural
process
just
makes it easy to apply online
off
24/7. Plus,
Pennsylvania
CashNet
Avenue,
USA
with a
offers
wound
same-day
back in the
funding
skull
if approved
inflicted by
before
racists.
10:30 a.m. Central Time, Monday through Friday.
Lunatic. He was
Additional
living
terms
in
may
the
apply.
age of
Visit
newspapers, and there was a
CashNetUSA.com
newspaper
or
published
tap
just
the
around
banner to
corner,
apply today.
the Washington Star.
Like a series of
In the
circles,
age of photography,
and then
we have
like a
Matthew Brady's
like a
photographs
contrail,
of
and then
him
a bunch
in
of
the Civil War.
circles.
Yes.
Not in the age of
Because what you're seeing is
the age of very,
the
very good
contrail
stenography.
of the aircraft, and then the
And we still don't
explosions
know
as the pulse detonation engine goes.
when
And that's where you see
his
the
cabinet
circular
gathered around
contrail
him
form out.
and saw him die.
No,
Yeah.
Seward
that's
was there,
excellent.
and he
So
later bought
with
the
an
house.
aircraft like
I'm
that,
sure Herndon
obviously
was
we
there.
don't know
Haven't
how
looked this up.
fast
You
it's
can.
going. You know,
Right.
people
Doesn't
have
matter
said it could
particularly
go
which
up
of
to
them
7,000,
said this.
8,000 miles an hour.
But one of them said
recently,
either,
Danny
as he died, since he
Sheehan,
was an aspirant.
lawyer to Lou Elizondo, was talking
Either
about
now he's with
this
the Angels,
spacecraft that we talked
or
on the show with John Hudson,
with the
who
Angels.
is our
We still don't
new
know. There's no reason why we
UFO
shouldn't.
reporter
Eyewitnesses,
Okay.
that we
literate men,
have, and he'll be
practically
on in
contemporaries of ours.
later on in hour
In the age
3
of
tonight.
print, in the age
And
of
Daniel
photography,
Sheehan was
nobody
talking about
knows
this secret
which thing
aircraft
Seward or Herndon
that could
said.
fly up to Mach 12
And yet we're expected
carry
to take
some
at face
ridiculous
value
amount of nuclear
statements
warheads
of
on it.
illiterate,
and missiles.
stupefied, terrified
Have you,
peasants
heard, have you heard about
from the
this?
most benighted part
No,
of
but
the
I
Middle
find it
East
unlikely.
who founded monarchism.
I mean, when
And I
you get
say
up
this
to that
not
kind of
to break
speed,
the rule
right?
about
If
not
you're
doing
still,
God, but because
inside
until
the
that kind of
atmosphere, I mean,
conflict
you know,
resolved,
the pilot,
and on the
the
principle
pilot
of
can
a
only
necessary
withstand so many
uncertainty
G's
about the recording
before
of
they
these
black
notes
out.
and the hostage it's
you
made
know,
us,
if you get to
all
be
of us,
going
sent
that fast,
to have
you know,
been
the pilot's
exposed
going to have
and
problems
planned
flying the
wars
plane.
in the
I
desert
mean, if it's a drone,
with us
that's one thing.
all the time.
The other thing is that if
of
you're going
being
to carry some
forced to
ridiculous
consider
amount of
the outcomes
some
of
ridiculous
this irrelevant
payload,
combat.
the amount of fuel
Until that's
consumption to get
case, it seems to me
the
that
plane up to
truth
altitude
is and always
and to
will
get up
be
to be that
absolute
fast,
with
To
those who
Prophecy
say
you're
no,
burning
on
water,
FM
you're gonna be
105.3
burning fuel like it's
in
going out of
Orleans,
style.
where we discuss anything
So you're
and
gonna have to keep
everything
refueling that
beyond
thing.
the scope of
And
normal.
the
I'm
next
Jenny
probable
Castillo, along with
answer
Sean
back is,
Kelly and
well,
Jason
it
Petro.
uses stuff
Remember to
for,
like us on YouTube and follow
nuclear
us on
drive or
Instagram.
some
I think
BS.
you're entitled to say
It's
that
like, you know,
something like
the venerable Honorable Stanton Friedman actually became a UFO researcher because he worked on the nuclear power plant program at North American Airlines, North American Aerospace. And they actually canceled that because the amount of shielding required, even today, the amount of shielding that would be required to secure that engine would make the aircraft so heavy that it can't take off.
I love it.
So, I hear a lot of stories from a lot of people that claim a lot of things, but the first thing you've got to do is you got to kind of apply the Occam's razor to it. Does it actually make sense to you?
Going on with you, Jim?
I mean, I don't know what would kill a pilot, but I'm telling you, at 12 Gs, consistent 12 Gs, that pilot's going to have a job.
That's what you get. But I did myself
moving the stick, like trying to fly the plane.
And I sent it out to some
if it's a drone, I get it.
Some
With a
hoping
human pilot, 12 Gs
still
would be
waiting
a lot.
from the sky. I'm still waiting to find out if they're going to actually make this into a movie.
Oh, you mean some sort of an
on
inertial damping system like Star
Other than
Trek?
that, I mean,
It's possible.
I'm okay.
And that's
I've been,
something that Lazar had actually claimed that the disperser model created when they would engage in anti-gravity. They actually created like this sphere, a bluish sphere.
I saw you guys.
And that actually would
Yeah, I have a special witch that I take
so when they would move
here in my room that I usually park outside. But I'm going to rev it up.
That they would just
Transportation for a
and that's actually consistent.
I'm going to rev it up.
I'm
like a snake, maybe. I have to take it out.
Multiple times I've seen objects making strange maneuvers. Like I told you, they were making triangles and squares.
I was going to take it out this Saturday.
Making shapes like letters.
You never know, you might see me flying over.
And you would need that to be
But I did myself screenplay.
Yeah, it's possible. We'll be waiting for you.
That's not an aircraft.
Someone's got to get out there and fly.
That's some sort of a vehicle.
Must be me.
To call it an aircraft.
Let's see. I've seen you guys had a paranormal and you had a show, talk,
the moon and
that little tiny house.
Oh my
Yeah,
god!
I don't doubt it. I mean, I saw it one night when I was coming home from my job. I had a day job like everybody else. One night I was coming home rather late because we had a project. And I saw him on the size of a football field descend through a cloud layer about 3,000 feet up.
Yeah, I have a special
And then you have
So I know they're
actually
real.
slept in that room.
And it was
that I
Oh,
solid.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
I could see the rivets. I knew it was human
I'm
made.
gonna rev it up.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. I mean, the key is to escape.
I'm
Is
gonna
to
rev it
achieve
up.
escape velocity and get out of the Earth's
I have to
gravity.
take it out.
We
Once
froze.
you can get out into space, then you can do all sorts of crazy stuff. No, I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it.
I was gonna
I
take it
mean,
out
we've
this
been talking
Saturday.
about
Yeah,
black
I would
triangles
like.
since
I
the
would
late
like
80s.
to see you guys
You
inside.
know, when they had the ones that flew over Europe.
Well, inside wasn't bad. It was that.
And they would oddly fly along like roadways, and then they would stop
That
and
was
shine
like
lights
a,
on
like a
radios
baby
and do
doll
all kinds of
door.
weird stuff.
Oh, see, Jason
With the
had
Belgian UFOs of the late
hot
80s,
in
You had a
the
show,
back.
uh,
Big
talk.
we've been
door.
talking about it since
And
then.
that little tiny
So I
house.
figured just seeing it being operationalized.
And I'm
Had
surprised
to
that
back
That
out.
would be one
I had to
giant
back
Talking
out.
about two
giant
giant
craft of that.
Oh, I thought it was just
I've
fair to
seen a
say.
couple.
I thought
Sure.
it was
Oh, my
fair to
Oh,
say.
it's hilarious. I agree.
I mean, people
It
have
was,
played.
but I
Bob,
tell you
you-
what, I'm sorry.
You had fun.
Was the
Yeah.
accident. Oh yeah, lots of fun.
Some of these
Lots of
triangles are
fun.
the biggest
You should have.
cities.
You
And then you
should
had a
have. You
walk.
actually.
It's possible.
You
Live.
know,
There was
so
absolutely
yeah,
no
I don't
absolutely.
see something the size of a
Nope.
city being
Not at all.
of human.
Well,
management.
let's get to the show tonight because we have a jam.
We build
packed
aircraft.
night,
We build aircraft
with our
carriers.
guest.
An aircraft carrier is like a
He
small
has lived
city,
a
small
paranormal
town.
life for
Well, I
sure
realize
since
that,
the
but it's
age
still
of
only
4,
1100
having
feet.
experienced
Out, and then the air
angels,
conditioner
demons,
Yeah, but
miles
why-
long.
ghosts.
Yeah, but why can't we build something miles
Yeah,
long?
I
Why
would
are we
like
incapable
to
of it?
see you guys psychokinesis.
We're not incapable of it.
Mediumship.
See, that's the one thing that I
you know,
really
you
hate
name
about
it.
ufology.
Alien
Like,
contact.
I love,
also published a
talking about
trilogy.
weird planes and
paranormal books.
that
are
was
they
like a
extraterrestrials or
paranormal
human? What are they?
Jason had-
Let's have
probably
that
will
debate.
screw it up. There's
The one
timeless,
thing that I
deja
hate
vu,
about
and timeless
ufology is when
trinity.
people say,
Most recently
the
published a
ancient
book
aliens
about
BS.
his
We couldn't
contact
build
with
that.
alien,
Sure we
ancient
could've.
I
alien
had to
mystic
back
name.
out.
I'll be damned if we couldn't build
Amzar.
it.
It sounds
I
like
mean,
Ashtar.
we absolutely
Yeah.
can. If we really want to, we can probably build almost
So
anything.
I am not even going to attempt to do his last
Think
name.
about it, right, Dave?
So I'm going to
In
go
the
ahead and bring him
1960s,
in
right?
because I'll
They
mess
had
it up
just
for
completed
sure.
the transfer
Welcome to the show, Bruce.
In the 1960s.
Go ahead and pronounce your
It's
last
2020.
name.
So what is that, 60
Solheim.
years later?
Soyheim. Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Let's get to the
You know, it's like we have
Oh,
internet.
sure.
We have internet
I have a
down to
problem
us
with
starting
How y'all doing?
from constellations of satellites. And this is just the commercial
I have to
stuff.
say, I'm very
we can,
intrigued.
if you fly in a 757 airplane, a Boeing 757,
everywhere we look today,
if they hit full speed, that commercial airliner is doing like 0.8
creatures,
Mach 0.8. It's almost at Mach 1.
Phenomena that we can't
That's just their commercial airliner.
I want you to tell me,
the publicly
to
stated max speed, that's the SR-71 was what, Mach 3?
What is that? I don't have it on here.
We knew it went
what is the documentary?
it went way beyond that.
Well, yeah, I've been on two shows recently. One was
but we can't build something
Alien
in space
Encounters
that's a mile long.
Declassified.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, we built islands that are.
Yeah, I was interviewed on that one.
What is it?
I was actually in it, which is kind of interesting. And the one that's coming up at the end of this month
the one
is
airport in Tokyo,
called Unidentified with Demi
it's built on
Lovato.
an artificial island.
The pop star
The whole
and
airport.
Solheim. They interviewed him, but I don't know if I'm going to end up.
I don't like the fact that people try to marginalize what we're capable of and say, well, there's no way we can build something a mile long. I'll be damned if we couldn't do it. Of course we can.
I find
It's like saying we couldn't build the pyramids. Absolutely, we could build the pyramids. There's nothing, archaeologically limiting that says we couldn't have done it. Now, was it a good use of human resources and human energy to do?
I want you to vivid imagination.
That you can argue.
How do you know it just
perfectly
wasn't
capable of doing it? You don't need a spaceship.
Yeah, no, it's a good
What is
question.
that? I don't
And
have
I teach a paranormal class in addition to my history classes at the college.
Things
I've
like
been
building a
and
mile
I always
long
enjoy
for
people
especially if we
asking
do it in
questions like
space.
that because I think that's really
We could
important.
totally
It's a
do
very
that.
natural thing to ask those questions
if
and
we're
not
building
just
a craft
on
that's
that
a
one
mile
of the
long,
stories.
where
I
the
was
hell
actually
do you
in it,
park
whatever's
something
kind of
like
interesting.
that?
But so the end of this, I was in northern Norway
So it never closed down.
unidentified at my grandmother's
If it's a
house,
mile long,
where
you're
my
not
parents are
gonna
from. They're from this
require
island 200 miles above the Arctic Circle.
get up and
interviewed
down
me, and I
surface
had
of the earth
an angelic
would be
healing
incredibly
experience.
limiting.
Room floor that was
Because
witnessed by
it's just
also
so
my
big,
mother and my
requires so much
grandmother.
Let me ask
energy
you.
and so
They
much,
told me it was I just told them
What
there
I
was a
find
bright
raise it
light
off
in
the
the
ground
ceiling
to escape
and
gravity,
I felt
it
like
wouldn't be
I
worth
was
it.
I was
That's the
totally
kind of thing you
cured
put in
because I
space.
was very,
And
very
if you
sick.
believe
I
in
thought I
solar
was gonna
wards and
die.
all that,
And
supposedly
it's a very
we have
remote
tons of
place
vehicles up there
today.
doing
It's
all
remote,
kinds of crazy stuff.
especially in
So,
in the early
mile
60s.
long
And
triangle, that's
when I woke up, I was
that's not
perfectly
beyond the
fine,
pale,
and my
especially
parents
if
and
you're
my
buying a solar
mom
wall.
and my grandmother said
Well,
it was
when
a
we get back
miracle.
from the break,
told me about the
I
light, and the
go to
paranormal was in addition to my guardian angel.
We're going to talk about solar
and,
warfare.
and I was very lucky to have survived. And because actually my eldest brother died in that house, the same old farmhouse during World War II. Stories wholesale or whatever. So, but yeah, so it
You
was
can also see
by
it
my,
on cam.
I was in northern Norway, my grandmother's house. What it was, all
you're
grandmother's
the only
sound
person that I would do
parents
video
did.
for.
They're from
Like
these
whenever I
islands,
do
200
shows,
miles. But yes, children do have great imaginations. I had, and I believe they also have great insight into other world, and oftentimes adults don't believe them. They told me, and and some of it might be made up.
One of our listeners in the chat room,
and others might be real. So it's hard to determine.
So he's like, talk about me, love me,
love me.
Sean, what do
it's
you
a very
think?
remote place.
I agree with him. Whenever I work with a client,
we're on
and they're
Space
children,
Radio. I
And,
love
a lot of times the parents will sit down and talk to them.
And I got to tell all of our audience too, if you ever get a chance to meet up with one of these, literally one of the nicest people.
I tell them.
He really is. He is
tell them all
a
the time, I
giant
said,
teddy bear.
let the kids
And I mean a
very
giant
let them
when I
listen.
tell you.
And
He's like
6'3".
Because actually my eldest brother died.
yeah, he's
a
a
lot of
very,
you'd be
very good
surprised.
man.
That's
And
in
you'd
my
be
mind.
all the
I've
better
done.
off in your life meeting a guy like
So,
Ola Phillips.
yeah,
That
so
is
it
for
was
sure.
confirmed by
Paranoia
my
Magazine
listen to the
editor
children
Ola
a lot.
Phillips is with us. We're going to get into solar
They
wardens.
just call them crazy.
What's it all
I don't know
about?
what you're talking
What are they
about.
flying? What are they hiding up in space?
When I hear
Who
that.
is they?
And I believe
Believe it or not, I
also
do get angry.
Ola's going to continue to roast some marshmallows.
have to let them
I'm going
talk.
to continue to be jealous here at SOR headquarters.
and
Not
I
only
got a good
does it
story
make
for you when we
them
get back
happy,
on
but
Spaced
also
Out Radio.
and other might be real. So it's hard to determine
on the kid and what he
which.
is seeing.
Oftentimes,
You know,
it can be very.
Hold on, I'm
That's
going to run
my
my dogs outside. I'll be right back. But
I'll be here.
you can chat with the audience. I'll put you on the
Jason,
screen.
you have a new baby, but I know he's
Let them watch
what do you
because
think
they're all
about
interested in
that?
watching you
Childhood
roast
issues.
marshmallows right now.
You know,
Hey, Chillin'
my wife
Villain,
and I
how
were
you doing?
actually talking about that,
Mike
but,
Mars, thank you for
a lot of
joining our
times it
chat
seems like
room.
he's
Really
watching,
appreciate you, man.
like people
Thank you.
around us, like spirits,
Let the
because
kids talk.
it seems just like
Let
he's
them
like he's paying
listen.
attention to
And-
something, you know, but we can't see it.
And they do.
You know, I
You
feel
know what
like
I mean? 'Cause a
he's
lot
just
of-
like a
you'll be
little
surprised
Energizer bunny
that in all my
himself. You
investigations
know, just
that I've
full of
done,
energy and
he's cute.
and
a lot of the parents
you know,
really don't listen to
kids
their
all the
children
time
well.
are more
You know,
susceptible.
they just let them
because
talk. They
as
just
adults,
call
you
them
know, a lot of
crazy.
people
You don't know
try
what
to
you're talking about.
stuff out.
And it hurts when I hear
Kids,
that,
they're just
you know.
wide open.
Believe it or not, I
vessels
do get
or
angry at
whatever,
the parents. We're
you know, they
doing. I
just
said you have
happen
to let
see
them
a lot
talk.
of
You
different
have to
stuff that
let
we
them
don't.
explain
But that's where,
what they're
like
talking
Sean was
about.
saying,
Not
you know,
only
a lot of
does it
times
make them feel
people or
better,
adults
but
don't believe
also
their
gives you an
kids,
insight
you
on
know, and
maybe
it's something that we should look more into.
You know, so
Yeah,
that's my feeling.
Yeah, I mean, I was lucky in that my mom was very psychic, so she
Jason,
already had
you
had
have a new
experiences her
baby,
whole
but I know
life,
he's
and her
calmed
mother
down,
was
but
very
what do you think
psychic
about
as
that?
well,
Do you think it
and a
could be
healer.
childhood
So
issue?
it kind of, you know, I had that support at home, but there was also the realist aspect, which was my father, who didn't believe in any of this stuff. And then when you go to school, you know, he was a no nonsense fisherman, carpenter guy, you know.
I feel like
And
he's just like a little Energizer
and
bunny
I think that was the only thing that scared him was the paranormal. You know, he wasn't afraid of fishing in Alaska.
Kids
or,
all
you
the
know,
time
he was
are more susceptible
in a labor camp in World War II, in a
as
Nazi
adults,
labor
you know, a lot
camp.
of people
So he
try
was
to
not afraid of
stuff
much, but
out,
he was afraid of the paranormal stuff.
they're just
But anyway, what I was going to say is that in school they start to teach you that your invisible friends aren't real. And I told my mom, I was very upset. I remember telling her, you know, they say that John and Johnny, or my two, I wasn't very creative with the names, that John and Johnny were not real. And I told my mom, and she said, you know, just do what the teacher says, but you know, we know what's going on. So if you see them, they are real to you.
Her mother was
And I think the best word for it is something, the word imaginal,
I had that
which is
supported home,
beyond imaginary,
but there was also the
and closer to real,
realist
this idea of
aspect, which
imaginal.
was my father.
So I think kids are very psychic naturally, and they see things that a lot of adults have been trained not to see. Not that they can't see it, but a lot of times they just kind of tune it out or have been taught to tune it out.
I think that was the only thing that scared him. Was
one of the things I do in my paranormal class
afraid of
is we all do an experiment
where, you know, he was
with
in a labor camp in World
called
War
the
II,
being stared at experiment.
So he was
everybody
not
has
afraid
felt,
of much,
you know,
but he was
feel like
afraid
somebody's
of the
staring at you,
paranormal
and you
stuff.
turn around and sure enough there's somebody staring at you.
That in school,
well, how in the heck does that work? You know, we don't have eyes in the back of our head, right?
And I told my mom, I was very upset.
So we do that experiment in
They
class,
say
and
that John and Johnny
get a great, very impressive hit rate, even with people
John
who
and
are
Johnny,
somewhat skeptical.
were not real.
We just kind of open people's minds to the concept that, you know, maybe there's a lot more than meets the eye.
You know, we know.
Jason, doesn't that sound like Robert the doll sort of kid? You know, the Robert with his,
the best
you know,
word
his little imaginary.
is something, the word imaginal,
Robert the
which
doll
is
that's
beyond
something else,
imaginary
man. Like,
and closer to real.
Yeah.
This idea of
you got to be
imaginal.
very respectful of that doll.
So
and,
I think kids are very psychic.
I got to
naturally.
meet him. You know, I was
They
down
see
in Key
things
West,
that a lot of adults have
and,
been
you know,
trained
I
not
read
to
a
see.
lot
Not
of
that they can't see
stories
it, but a lot of
people
times
that,
they
you
just
know,
Be right
unwillingly
back.
actually
tune it out or have been
pictures
taught
of
to
them
tune it out.
and everything.
And,
And
one of the things
they
I
just
do in
end
my
up,
paranormal
like,
class
cursed and writing
is
letters,
we all
asking
do an
for
experiment
forgiveness. So knowing
with,
that, when I was there,
called
and you know the
being
backstory,
stared
you know,
at
with the
experiment,
kid
which
that
everybody
had the
has
doll
felt.
and he
You
grew
know,
up and all the.
you feel like somebody's
It's a
staring
long
at you,
story, but
and you turn around and sure enough,
you
there's
know,
somebody
like I made
staring at you.
sure
Well,
I asked for
how in the heck does
permission.
that
I
work?
said,
You know,
thank
we don't have
you,
eyes in the
gave
back of our head, right?
donation.
So,
Like,
so
please,
we do that experiment in
don't
class.
curse me, because I'm really far away from him.
Very impressive.
Just for a minute.
Even
Just for a
don't take any
minute.
chances.
Shy.
Yeah,
Bonjour, Jean
You
Paul.
just
How
kind of
are
open
you?
people's minds to the
So
concept.
tell us about And when
maybe there's a lot more.
I'm going to go back. I'm going to go up
Jason,
the list.
doesn't that
I just
sound
want
like Robert
touch
the Doll sort of
last
guy?
one
Checking
that
my
touches
messages.
Stunning.
It's like
Sensational Sherry. How are you?
Yeah.
Robert the Doll. I wrote my one book.
I don't know. I'm not feeling the love.
Character has that. So tell if someone doesn't know about what that is, can you explain it to us? And how does it fit into your life?
I think you need to break in a song.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Psychokinesis is. It's also.
Like, I like you all up, but I don't.
So this idea that you can move or change objects just with your mind, your power of your mind, and it's actually
knowing that.
Well, it's not letting me disengage.
Understanding that we're all connected. So it's really it has to do with the idea that the quantum world is all reality, and what we are experiencing right now is an interface.
Thank you for that super chat,
what the physicist David Bohm called the explicit reality, which is everyday reality. Whereas where all this stuff happens, the quantum world, the spirit world, the alien world, I would expand it to that.
So tell us
Is
about
the implicate reality, which is really how things are, how subatomic particles work. So
last one that touches.
If you can understand, if you can make that connection, then you can, do the things like spoon bending or make objects move. And
tell if someone doesn't know.
all this stuff has been proven in
How does it fit into
and it's been shown over and over again, although it's not generally accepted by most scientists, but because they're afraid of their reputation, that's a big problem. Like Dean Radin, who's a friend of mine, is the chief scientist at IONS Institute of Noetic Sciences in Petaluma, California. And they have done lots of experiments in telekinesis. War Eagle. The idea that a lot of it is
all right.
What we call it at a small level. So you're not like if you're going to make something move,
Space Cow, Sunny and Chad for the amazing super chats. Here we go.
What people expect, and here's why it's not so impressive to a lot of folks. Whereas is that you're not. It's not Harry Potter magic, quantum world, spirit world. It's magic. It's not along those lines. Although there are. Every once in a while, somebody who can do
Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet.
It's a power that we all
We want to say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America.
And it's really pretty simple. Dean Radin
Revolution Radio, and KPNL.
Because all
of our archives are free by going to youtube.com/spaced
so attention, you scientists, focus,
hit that subscribe
and then the intention.
The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight.
You don't need candles and robes and a lot of invitations and all that stuff. It's all at a small level. So
use it wisely.
So you're saying anybody can do this?
Sets the password.
Anybody could do it if they were people enough.
Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Church SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show.
For me,
continue on tonight with our good friend Holden Phillips of Paranoia Magazine, and he is wearing his best Carhartt outfit tonight while roasting marshmallows and talking about all the weird and strange glue that is out there.
I imagine that these tires are going to blow.
Thank you for having me.
Always a pleasure with you.
The
program is sold to people who are very unfamiliar.
But I tell you what,
is this program?
It's like
so. There's actually two different solar
this guy behind
so
me.
One is the one that's like
in my mind. I'm like,
Kennan, and this is the story of the hacker from England, and he broke into a bunch of NASA servers and defense contractor servers.
It works,
and he was looking for UFO stuff, and what he found was a bunch of like movement orders and other miscellaneous stuff related to this mysterious space.
It could be a combination of sending the message,
and they were up there floating around, going out to Mars,
or maybe you're having an impact
going out to the edge of the solar system.
So it could
just doing general wackiness out in space. The second one refers to a program that I heard about that I was told by a retired aerospace engineer at the end of a radio show.
There's many cases.
Where in the
1970s,
75 or 76,
also
down in the Palm Desert, they built
there's a really interesting
satellite constellation.
Called the PK.
Two were
came out
put in
many
equatorial
years
orbit.
ago, but it was about
defense
one of these
satellites
people
with
that comes
lasers and
around
stuff.
every
And the
couple
third
hundred
one
years.
was
that
like
can do the
a hunter
macro
killer that
play.
could actually move around.
But you would think it would be awesome to have that power, but it
So
basically
there were two
destroyed
different,
this guy.
two different
Because
satellites in that one.
he
There's two different stories
he
for
ended up being kind of a nut job, because he had
Let's
this
start off
ability
with the first one that you
to
heard
do
about.
these things, and he wanted the military and the government to pay attention to him, and they thought he was too out of control. It could be a combination of sending him ultimately ended up, dying at a pretty young age.
They called Gary McKinnon a terrorist, and they wanted
I don't know if he
to extradite him out of
but the idea that he just
and take him to Guantanamo
it's kind of
interrogate
him.
when they classified him as an actual terrorist.
We have a comment from Steve Gray
It was so bad.
in the chat.
It
He
was
said
one
there's a lot of
one of those,
evidence
I
that
think, rare
intention can
situations
affect the
where the
outcome.
English
I'm a
Quantum
business
random number
24/7
generator.
supermom. But who is it nowadays? And for me, first day of school.
Yeah, so like really interesting. Like when you have a random number generator came out supposedly, or it can happen, and they've shown it in laboratory experiments that you can impact the outcome of that random number generator.
It's all
But
available
you would
in
think
store
it would,
and
shouldn't
online at
have, you wouldn't
OfficeDepot.com
think
and at
would
low
be
prices all
possible,
season
but
long.
it is
Office
possible.
Depot
It's been
Office
shown
Max, their
because
business is to
in
keep school
experiments. So
going.
that is he ended up being kind of a nut. That's what that's about. So
Kids,
it's
I have my
Go
daughter's
ahead,
house
Jason.
sleepover with 5 of her
and
friends.
he wanted the military
I know just the place to go to get something for everybody, and just a little something for myself too.
ultimately ended up.
There's a meal for every moment on the McDonald's $1, $2, $3 menu.
Like a four for $4, dear. At a McDonald's, chicken McNuggets, small fries, and a medium sausage for $4.
I don't mean just like a flash here or there.
Prices,
Like,
participation may vary. Can
We have a
only
comment from Steve Gray.
refused to actually allow the
Chat. He
extradition.
said there's a lot
I
of
mean,
evidence that
I remember when I
intention
lived in
can
England,
affect
just
the
to say
outcome.
that,
we were
that
in
if
church,
America
random
catches a
numbers.
cold
all the
and
lights, the
coughs,
ones directly above
Right.
us
and
are flickering.
right, and so
Yeah,
the
so like
idea that
later on,
the
like
English
when
judiciary system,
like, is that some kind of,
prevented the extradition.
telekinetic
And one of the things they stated specifically is that in no way would he dare, amount to anything that resembled being
I mean, that's kind of well
and they
documented
didn't
that
like
a lot
the
of
idea
people
that
have
he
that
was
ability
literally
to
going to be sent
impact
to
like street
Guantanamo.
lights and lighting.
Because the U.S. government was
electrical
we're going to
fields,
send
you
you to
know.
Guantanamo.
Interestingly, a lot of
And
people
so,
who
you know,
have been
you broke
abducted
into, I
by
think, a dozen or
aliens,
2 dozen computer
have
systems.
this.
We found a bunch of really
this
strange
thing
stuff,
happened
and
to
he
my friend
printed it
Terry
out.
Lovelace, who was
But,
abducted when he was in the Air Force.
It's just a very interesting story
an impact
because
on
it's like he found
electrical
mundane
equipment.
stuff.
Because
everywhere
you try to get a hold of the
You know,
guy
it
on
was
the phone,
nothing
everything
like-
always goes wrong on
Yeah.
the computer.
Like
Everything
he-
goes
you
wrong.
know, he
Just like
found
he
some
has,
strange
he doesn't
pictures,
want to have that
but
effect on it, but it does.
Right.
It was nothing like,
And I think the
you know, you'd
younger
expect like
somebody
big
is, the
schematics
less
of
they
like
are
on
aware that
bases
they're
and
causing it.
videos of
And
abductions
and
or
more
like that.
importantly,
Literally
they
found
don't
like
believe that they can't
a bunch of
cause
ships
it to
that don't
happen.
actually
They just,
exist,
you know,
requesting like
they're not going to
more,
write it off.
you know,
Like,
more canned fruit.
A little kid
Like,
has
is
that
that some
effect. They're
kind
not
of-
going to
And the
say,
second
"Oh,
program?
I shouldn't do
The
that."
second
Or, "Oh,
program
that's
was
not
a
real."
Star Wars
You know, they'll
defense
just,
system
"Oh,
where
it's just the way
it
things
was
are."
two
They just
two
accept it.
killer satellites put
Yeah,
in
'cause there was
equatorial orbit
Hereditary?
that were designed to shoot
I
down.
think so. I mean, that's
you
kind
know,
of well.
Russian,
Well,
Soviet
here's
at the time
the two things. I
missiles
think
or
there's
other objects
I'll
coming
use a
from space,
baseball
and then
analogy.
the
I
third
love
one,
baseball.
there was a hunter killer that was
Everybody
actually
can throw a
autonomous
ball,
that
right?
would,
Most everybody can throw
break away from the
Some
other
people
two
can throw it 100
and
miles
just kind
an
of
hour.
fly around blowing
Very
stuff
few.
up.
Some people can throw it 90 miles an hour. That's pretty impressive. Some people 80 miles.
One
That's
giant-
still
one giant
impressive,
W,
right?
right?
So there's
Well, I
varying
mean, it all
degrees
is.
of
They
what
say
people
drone
has
warfare is
the
like
impact
limited
they can
electrical
have in the paranormal world.
You know,
You try to get a hold. That can also
I would
be
love to
enhanced
sit
with
in that
training
kind
as
of
well.
code
People are
container.
dedicated everything goes wrong.
Because, you know,
Whatever
they
your
sit in
natural
code
ability
containers
is,
and
want to
fly
enhance
that
that,
stuff.
or if you have an elevated
So,
ability. And I
they're
think the
conditioned to be
younger
more containers.
somebody is,
Oh,
but
yeah,
the
they
most
get them right out
important
of
thing is
flight
that you
school.
learn how to
You know,
use it.
they're like, oh, you're a mediocre
and
pilot.
that's the
You
problem.
fly
Guys
drones
tell you
now.
don't believe that.
Well,
I remembered his name.
while,
Ted
and I
Owens.
actually saw an
You know,
article
they're not going to write it off. Just want to look him up. Ted Owens, the PK man.
that the United States military
He didn't
was
have
actually
good control.
looking
That's
to
his
hire,
emotional side. He had all these
professional
abilities.
gamers,
They just
right?
like, can you imagine having all these abilities and being able to hurt people?
They were so.
I think so. I think. I mean, think about it. You know, we'll talk about that earlier. Just kind of in a joking way, right?
That it was a hell of a
Can you
lot
imagine
of
if that
fun
was something you could do
when you could hire these
instantaneously? Everybody can
gamers
throw
and pay them
most everybody
good
can
military wage.
It's very, very scary.
Not a good
and
wage.
probably more
the military
power.
well.
You can throw it 90 miles.
But either way,
you're 18, right?
So they're varying
I just wanted to mention
degrees
the
of
weird
level.
part about after
but
my
what
son
I'm
and I
saying
would get
though is,
together, lights
and
flashing, it actually kind of
that can
carried
also
over
be
into
enhanced
myself a
training
little
as
bit
well.
too.
you know,
dedicated
there was
to
times where I
whatever
would
your
start
natural
about
ability
it,
is, you
but
can
it's
condition
conditioned, thank you,
an
conditioned
elevated
for killing in a lot of video games.
But the most important thing is that you
Right.
learn how to
that
use
to
it.
them, seeing real humans on the
That's the
screen was
problem.
just like
strange
playing video games and taking out Taliban on Call of Duty or something.
Well, it could be that.
Well, yeah, and a lot of the video games like Call of Duty,
he's acting like an empath.
they have missions where you're flying drones.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, when you run around the house screaming, let me tell you.
Yeah, I mean, I saw that article too.
Oh my God, yeah.
I mean, with the drones,
and a lot of
kind of
poltergeists,
taken the depersonalization of warfare.
A lot of that is
step
attributed.
beyond.
You
I mean, I remember,
remember,
hearing stories when I was a kid in Boy Scouts. Scout leaders of my troop, they were all Vietnam vets, and they would tell you these stories about being gunners and helicopters and marching through the jungle.
I just wanted to mention
these firefights and terrible things.
I know that when a young
but it
woman
happened to them as
starts
people.
going
They were
over
there.
to womanhood,
The guy was, when the engine got blown out and they went into auto rotation, my assistant scoutmaster was hanging on to his M60 as the thing was swinging
they
around.
released by that.
Going down into a rust valley, like that happened to him. But the minute you introduce something like a drone, you depersonalize the warfare.
So
The pilots literally in Vegas doing something at the time in Kandahar,
all that
in Afghanistan, or in Yemen.
And so as I sat down in my
wherever. They're thousands and thousands of miles away. They're completely disconnected from their car. So it becomes very much, I mean, this is the argument for Ready Player One, that you turn warfare into video games.
there on the weekend.
Right.
That's when all this crap would
attracting.
You know what I mean? And whenever she would go back to her mom's place for a week,
activities are continuing
most of the time, everything in the house was quit.
As part of
so I believe,
or whatever battle
especially in houses, when teenage girls, young girls are going, changing into womanhood, that the energy that they wear causes a
fall under the CIA or some other alphabet agency.
I think there's a
I would imagine that it falls
like I said, between
because remember, it's not just
and if they're having
just one part of
difficulty
it.
in their in that transition,
it was a NATO thing.
that can often
So I would imagine that
attract
some
other
black
energies
project
or attract
inside
things
of
that they're not
utterly
able to really
massive
push away or
military budget. Think about it for a minute.
I mean, this can happen to anybody.
We just pulled out of Afghanistan. Every
decent
news
people
operation
can still
is,
happen because it's out
decrying
there.
the chaos.
Those things
and
are out
whatever.
there.
One of the things they keep talking about
and
is
sometimes
that for 20 years we spent over $90 billion
let them
to train
in, or
the
if you're in a
Afghan
location that
that's
already has
$90 billion
that energy there,
right?
Then of course it's
if we could spend $90 billion over 20 years,
how do you know it's
to fight in Afghanistan?
Like you have
if we
this,
wanted to put a 1 mile long Super Star Destroyer in the sky,
telepathy.
we could hide the money.
Do you experience
And back when I was a
telepathy?
kid, there was a huge scandal where they were coming after like Lockheed and Boeing and stuff for selling $1,000 toilet seats.
No, I've
in actuality, what they were doing is that they were selling them a $20 toilet seat and keeping keeping $900 for $100,000 toilet seat for black projects.
Entities
that they were using that money to subsidize it and to hide it. So, our understanding of the finances.
I don't want to.
Very complex. The other thing that I heard that's actually kind of
what am I thinking? Could you
is that I was told one day by somebody who should know
it's not that simple.
When
It's
they,
what people
when
are
they
thinking. It's what
go
they're
like invade Saddam Hussein's house,
let them
and they
you can
recover
pick up on
millions
their
and millions of dollars.
Is that really? Is that
But
really
some of the
considered
intelligence
telepathy?
operations, like the NSA,
yeah, because
the CIA,
let's say what would happen to me
National
before I
Geospatial
really
Agency,
learned how
others,
to deal with
NGA.
this. I hated to go to parties.
This is particular to the
NSA.
When they would get some of this money from,
start
when
hearing
they capture it from
people's
Saddam
not what they
Hussein or
were
whatever,
saying, or not even
they
what
would
they were
actually
doing.
take that
Before I
black
even
money
saw them,
and they would invest it in the stock
hear
market.
what their intentions were. I could feel their intentions.
And I would point out that in the stock market,
well,
the rule of
can
thumb
drive you
is
crazy.
whatever you invest, if you can pull, I think, an 8% return, every 8 years your money doubles. So if you think that they put in, let's say 30 years ago, they put in 20 million.
You hear everybody.
And if it doubles every 8 years for the last 20 years, it would have doubled almost 3 times.
I don't want to.
That 20 million would be hundreds of millions. So, they have a bunch of different crazy ways that they fund their various programs, none of which we have access to.
Telepathy,
Media Fox is asking, how come
that would be like what my mom and I used to do with cars. So like if you like what we would do is we would get a deck of playing cards and then she would send, let's say
I think it's because it's not a high priority.
And then I would pick up, that's the
I know it's going to sound a little crazy, but I think we're already
we would
there.
get a hit rate that was way greater.
Why go back there?
I mean, much
we're
greater.
already there.
Not perfect.
You could spend the money to entertain the public some other way.
Isn't that the same thing as old
Because remember, when you think about it,
am I seeing a star?
If what I believe is true,
all the
then
different
everything that you see NASA do is just public
in your mind.
But what the military is doing is way beyond.
So that's telepathy. And
what's your
my mom and I used to do that, and then my dad would walk in and see us doing it, and he'd tell us to put the cards away. And then my mom would put the cards away because she didn't want to make Dad upset, and then she'd wink at me. So I knew that it was real. I mean, I knew it was happening. So that is.
I think it's irrelevant.
Empathic. So
I think it's
if I put a card here, can you figure?
I think the whole UAP thing
that would be like what my mom and I used to do.
I mean, they don't.
You can do it.
So like
from orbit.
I'm being totally serious. I'll write down.
In high school, I did a paper on the Cold War on surveillance satellites. They're called keyhole satellites. I went to a library and I looked up this book, and this book had a representation. This is in the 80s. This is in the mid-80s. This is in the late 1980s. They showed it was a simulation of a keyhole satellite. And it started out by showing the Western Hemisphere, and it kind of drilled down to North America. Drilled down to like the United States, the Western states, kept drilling down until eventually it got to California. And it kept drilling down until it got to San Jose. And it kept drilling down until you saw a guy laying in the hammer. Then it drilled down to when you saw the guy laying in the hammer. And he had a book on his chest that was open. It was War and Peace. And you could actually read the lines
I'll
off the
share
book.
with you what a psychic told me.
That was in the late 1980s.
I think applies to telekinesis.
Think of what it can do now.
He said that a professional has been doing said you're as psychic as you need to be.
If it's extraterrestrial, ultra-terrestrial,
if you don't need to be any more than you are already, then you might not.
or at least know their capabilities.
It depends
if
on
it's
what's
us,
available to you.
we built it, so we know our capabilities. So either way, I don't think that they're showing you videos of stuff that's already
yes, I think you can train yourself. But there's also the idea, and this is also in Dean
if they can track every object
that's intention and attention,
then
but he also warns
like 1 foot in length.
If you're doing something that impacts
they know exactly what's going on now,
then that will come back on you. That's going to harm you.
They have a term for it. They call it fastwalkers.
If you're like saying, I want to make this other person do something against their will, to benefit me, then it's a very slippery slope. Everybody's, I guess in everybody's Star Wars terms, that would be using the dark side. I'll share with
that
you
kind of
like
part of the Wiccans as well,
like
whatever you put out onto like somebody else.
He said that well, there's white magic and there's black magic. You're as psychic as gray magic, which is kind of in between. You could do like a binding spell, which is to stop somebody from hurting other people. That would be different, even though you are technically impacting their free will.
That's okay.
Their free will to do bad things, right? So that's called a binding spell. These things are possible. I think you can train yourself, but they're not also like it's not like Harry Potter magic.
Why you keep saying Harry Potter? I'm a very big.
He also warns the person.
Why isn't it like Harry Potter?
Because that will come back. Made for theatrical release. That's a movie, so they're gonna make things very sensational. When in reality it's much. The reality of magic is much more of a micro. It's a very slippery slope.
I can't pull a rabbit out of my
in Star Wars.
Well, if you were a stage magician, you probably could.
Why do you think we're on?
Okay, I didn't forget about the ESP.
Well, if nothing else,
test.
there are very.
I have one. I wrote down something. I'm going to tell you.
White magic.
You have to choose between a star, a square, a circle,
a binding,
or it's like oblong.
I show
so
the
what do I
photo
have
to
here?
people,
and I ask them what they think it is.
Even though you are
rich
technically
house in Malibu, it's
will.
actually
Yeah,
some sort of
their
structure
free will to do
on
bad
the side of a
things, right?
massive
So that's
canyon.
parallelogram or something.
Not far from
these things are, I don't know, I'm not really prepared.
Just do it.
They're not
graveyard-looking things.
what's that?
Just take a
all these
chance.
geometric shapes.
I will, but I need to, okay,
coming
hold
out
it
of
up
the
without
ground. I mean,
showing
there's a bunch of really
Why
strange
And are you
stuff.
concentrating on
In fact, even
No, okay, I'll start
what's his name?
concentrating.
because
I'm not
that's
hearing
that's made for theatrical release. That's a
Oh, he
movie,
was
so
the
they're gonna
pilot
they're gonna make
for,
things very
the Apollo
sensational.
program.
When
Apollo
in
mission.
reality it's much
Buzz Aldrin.
the reality
Buzz
of
Aldrin.
magic is
I'm
much
not getting
more
clear signals, but I'd say
micro
it's
You know
sort
what
of.
I mean? Like, you can't show a rabbit.
So I think we've been
Well,
there.
if you were
I think
stage
we've
Yes,
been
I
there.
called it too.
I wouldn't call it that good of a
So-
circle, but it's.
I called it too.
I would almost
like an egg.
I have one.
I
I
almost
wrote
said
down
egg.
something.
Make a lot of sense.
I called that
That's
too.
starting a
For public
star,
consumption that they don't
a
follow.
square.
So would
okay,
somebody
so
like
can
Elon
you do
Musk
psychic
not
readings
be
on
read
or
into
it's like
what's
oblong.
happening
So
on
what do I
Mars
have
if we
here?
are?
It's
something
you really
You're going to get tired in 2 hours.
Number one,
No,
if I recall, he's not a
actually-
U.S. person.
Actually,
He's
I'm
not
on a
US
new
citizen.
thyroid medicine.
So according
It's
to
I get,
our
I get
laws,
T3
states,
along
I don't know. I'm
if
not
you're
really
doing
think it
defense
actually
teams,
works.
you
Just do
have
it.
to be
It's just a little
a
bit
US
of T3,
person.
but I
So,
think it works.
people who are resident,
I will, but I need to
status
okay, hold it up
and a green
without.
card's
No,
another
don't
stuff,
make
they
it
can't
fun.
get security
Bruce,
clearance.
And are you
have
concentrating
you,
on
So I doubt.
No,
The
okay,
one thing I would say
I'll
about Elon Musk, though,
I'm
is
not
a
hearing
lot
you.
of the
What's
stuff that Elon
have
Musk
you worked with a lot
is
of
coming in,
children?
like the tube, the tube
I've had a
train
lot of
thing,
children.
like, and,
I have
a lot
four.
of
I
these
have
other
four
ideas.
kids,
These are
and I have
literally
two
being
grandkids.
rated out of
But I'm getting your
There's a-
signal. So I
There's a thing
teach,
called
but I
Rand
teach community
Corporation,
college.
a think tank.
So I
A lot
haven't.
of these
That's my everyday
programs
job. No, I don't work. I work with
are
young
actually
adults.
ex
But
Rand
I called it
projects,
too.
like the
I would
I forget what they're called,
Did
but
Did they just join?
That was a
Did they
Rand
just
project.
sign up for your class
that
too, man?
started.
So I feel like somebody gave him the key to the Rand vault.
Okay,
To have an elective, or are there some in there that
He's just
really
going
want
to
to
the
know
building.
what's happening?
In fact, there's
Oh, okay. So my day job is I teach U.S. history, Vietnam War, World War II. So that's my training. That's my bread and butter. And then the college allowed me, which I couldn't believe it. They allowed me to also in the evening. I haven't taught it since the pandemic, but a paranormal personal history class, which is a community-based class. So it's not credit. So the people who take the class pay to take it, but they don't get college credit for it, which makes it kind of fun. There's no exams or quizzes, a lot of children, pressure of any kind. And also the type of student I get, and I get very young people. I'm a teacher, maybe I teach, but I'm 17, 18 years old, and I got a lady who was in her as my everyday job, same class. I work with young adults, all races, all ethnicities. Some were skeptics, which is kind of cool. Some were professional psychics that wanted to take the class too. But they all shared one thing in common. They wanted a safe place to talk about their experiences. And that's what drew them all together. And the first time I offered it, I was shocked. I teach history. I was shocked the college doesn't teach it, for one thing. It had to go through the president and the board of trustees.
I think we have a lot
And
more
these are not willy-nilly decision makers. Which I couldn't believe. Worried about. They allow reputation of college and all that. But anyway, so they allowed me to teach it. First paranormal personal history. 35 people signed up of all ages, and it was such an awesome class. And I offered it for about 2 years before the pandemic shut us down. They don't get college credit for it, which means I had people taking the class over and over again. Pressure that
I do. I think
the camaraderie, and I get very young freedom to express themselves and be themselves, and not feel weird by telling their stories in the same class. Excuse me. But that's the main reason they take. I didn't even know that when I started the class. I had this whole curriculum planned out. I had readings. We were going to do experiments like you were doing there, Jenny. We were going to do things like that, and then I had guest speakers lined up with Eddie Wright and Sean talked about. And then I found out really what they want to do is tell you their stories and tell you their stories. So I had to incorporate. I had to quickly. That's what you do when you teach, you have to quickly adapt to your students. How so they allowed me to teach it. So we had to take a certain amount of time every class period, every time we got together for them to tell their stories. And then, like if somebody had a ghost story, then I would talk about apparitions and how this might work, and what some of the experimental data is, things like that. So I worked it into what I was going to do anyway, but allowed them to tell their stories.
What's your thoughts on
this? So anyway, that's
sales of scientists.
Yeah, that be themselves.
Oh, yeah, no, that's fine.
Feel what I do with that. So it's separate from my day job.
When you
excuse me.
So before we go any further,
that's the main reason
I see that
I
you
think that it sounds like science fiction.
I had this whole
content.
Until you realize that some of these programs are real. That in the late 50s,
want to explain the kind of alien content now for the audience?
We were going to do things like that, and then
was it something that you actually had a close encounter?
And then I found out really what they want to do is tell
a UFO sighting. Did you actually get to see an alien?
So I have to incorporate it quickly. That's what you do when you teach.
The Soviets had
all of the above.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah. So in this, what's funny is that when I first started writing these paranormal books and had a ghost story, I didn't decide to do that until 2016. What some of the experiments. So not that long ago, just 5 years ago. And I was always afraid to tell my story, even my ghost stories, because I thought that I wouldn't be taken seriously as an academic, as a professor. And so I was afraid my colleagues would disown me, and the college would fire me, and all that, which is a common thing with academics. They're afraid to talk about this stuff. In 2016, a friend of mine passed away in September, and in October I had a vision. He came to me in a vision. When I say a vision, it's like we're talking. He is a spirit, so he doesn't look like
UFOs, are they ours? Are they theirs?
Holographic.
We'll find out.
And that's how I best describe it. But he told me that it was time to tell my stories. All of the above. And I told him, hey, I'm afraid I could lose my job. And he said, don't worry about it.
There we go.
He said it'll be okay.
Hello,
and even gave me the name of the
gorgeous
writing. He said you should call it Timeless, because he said where I am.
So there, where have you been hiding?
There's no past, there's no future. It's all not that long.
You got aliens.
We are timeless.
You got aliens.
And that's what encouraged me to start writing those stories. And I had collected all my stories, but he said never seriously as academic. And I started publishing them. Before I knew it, I had 3 books out. I was afraid my colleagues 89 different paranormal experiences, including alien stuff, and all that, which is a common thing. I started off slow. My first book, I just talked about ghosts and apparitions and telekinesis and telepathy and stuff. Passed away. I didn't talk about the alien stuff. And then the second book, I think I mentioned a little bit about it. And then the third book, a lot more. And then this fourth book, which is not part of the Timeless trilogy, but it's a standalone book, Anzar the Progenitor. That's all it's about. It's one particular ancient alien mystic who has been in my life since I was at least 6 years old. He told me that it was time to tell my stories. So I'm no longer afraid of talking about it. And I know it for some people it causes a lot of eye rolling, and call it timeless, because he said. But then when you think about it, look how things are changing. There is no government. There's no past. A lot more. Future. It's all the. I'm not going to say forthcoming, but they've recognized, and that's in their own way. They've recognized this idea of what they call UAPs, or because they don't want to use the term UFO. And I started publishing them. So they call it a UAP, unidentified aerial anomaly aliens. But they came out with that report a couple months ago, and now, just recently, they are now making the UAP task force into a permanent office as part of the Department of Defense. They just passed on a budgetary bill, and then that just came out, which is not part of the. So they are taking this very seriously, although they're not saying there's little green men, whatever. They're just saying we don't know what these things are. We don't think, I'm not quite sure. It could be enemy stuff. It could be some other. They always say other. They don't want really alien. So that's code word for and I know, but they're taking it very seriously, and that's the official stuff. It's unofficially, and then when you think about it, look how things are privy to a couple of conversations. People that are, I'm not going to mention their names, but they're recognized, their names released in their own way. They'll go much farther in the idea of talking about
25 years of serving over 2.5 billion. Cooked to order chicken fingers. longer meal.
So it's becoming much more of a serious
lots of times.
was.
Yeah.
Oh, even 25 years of the
But they
same
came out with that
mascot.
report.
Oh my
so
God.
Okay,
a couple
different
months ago,
mascots are the same
you know,
thing.
there's all these shows.
25 years of serving
they
our
are now,
community.
and all of a sudden
Thanks
there's
for making us
interest.
your
You know,
chicken
people,
pigs.
that,
Since way back in
producer
96.
called me, would you like to be on this show?
25 years.
Yeah.
One love.
And they didn't even tell me who was. They said there's going to be. It just came out. They didn't even say celebrity. They taking this very we have talent. Although they're not saying no green man. It's like, everybody has a talent. We don't know what names are. They said, no, we have a talent.
They want to keep it secret, huh?
Yeah, they have to keep it secret. You know, keep it secret, keep it safe. They always say.
So tell me about Anzar. I mean, because I know we've talked to a guest who said I want to see if it's the same guy because the names are almost the same. She called his guy Ashtar. So tell me what this guy. You said you've had his experience
with
when you were 6 years old.
We're number 4, buddy.
I didn't know his name. They'll go much farther in private. You know exactly what he was at 6, but he helped. Actually, speaking about children, he helped save me from a child predator.
So is it just all about?
Oh my goodness! How did that happen?
Well, it was actually our neighbor, and he was babysitting. Their family was babysitting. There's all these shows coming out, and I knew that was weird. Even though I was 6 years old and didn't know a lot about the world, I knew there was a producer called with this guy. So I didn't go along with his stupid things that he was doing. And they didn't even tell me who was. They said there's going to be locking them up in a closet with him all by themselves.
Oh my goodness! You were there and you seen all this stuff.
Everybody has a talent. Yes, I saw it, and I didn't take part. I was too afraid. I just said I didn't want to go there anymore. And then Anzar shows up. I didn't know him as Anzar. I actually thought he was a monster.
He sounds like a monster to me.
And then I said, "You look like a monster," and he said, "No, the real monster is in the house up above your house. That's the real monster. I might look like him, but he's the real monster." And that guy just looked like a normal person, which most child predators do look like a normal. It's not like they actually see some kind of Frankenstein's monster or something.
No,
like Ashtar. Can I ask you this?
It was actually our neighbor, Blue, and he was babysitting. Their family was babysitting. He has different appearances. And I knew he looked pretty much like a very tall alien, upside down, teardrop-shaped head. So I didn't go around slanted eyes, wearing a robe. Can't really remember the color of the robe or locking them up. So that's how he appeared. But he's appeared. Oftentimes he appears as kind of like a soda I did very tall. He was always very like 7 feet tall.
Every time people have
Sean, was Ashtar, was he?
I didn't know.
Jason, he was handsome, right? They said,
anybody
white hair,
right?
to me.
And then
this guy was very handsome.
Out of their last penny. It is true. If you go up to a Dutchman and you pat them down, you will find their first dollar.
Yeah, I wouldn't describe that guy
Mighty Boo's beard oil is no different. But
no, he was.
The winter blend.
It's not like
this stuff smells fantastic. You still have it on
I've actually had
like Ashtar. You want to ask you this? I just got that feeling blue.
It's all natural.
What did you say?
It helps prevent split ends.
I had somebody. I belong to this organization called Zero Close Encounter Resource Organization.
As of right now,
and anyway, I was at a meeting and I asked Anzar, who I'm in communication with, whenever I do a spirit walk, which is a couple times a week, I do a spirit walk. That's how we get into a meditative state. Oftentimes, as I walk up towards the mountains in a very special place here where I live in Southern California. And I asked Anzar, would you be willing to come to the Zero meeting? Because it's all these UFO alien people, right?
He was handsome, right?
And he said, sure. And so at the meeting, after the meeting was over, I asked, did anybody see anybody with me? And everybody there knew I didn't mean
radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much.
Nobody really said anything except for one lady named Lucy. And Lucy said, yeah, who's the big native-looking dude behind you?
Muscular.
You can check out our
and she said native as in Native American. Yes, it's kind of proto-human look. And I said, that's Anzar. And she said, yeah, he's been there the whole time. I've just been trying to not concentrate on
you,
there he is.
including rocking out to Bumblefoot
and when I said his name was Ansar, and she went away, and he said, yeah, that's my name. And then
follow us on Twitter.
I came over to her, and she took out her wallet, and she had a driver's license. And the street she lived on was via the end as I walked up
talking the
towards
dark side of UFOs. All right, Olaf, stoking his fire
she's a shamanic, shamanic practitioner
he's
in
not
Native
being
American
very successful right now.
She has a meeting, so that's how she saw him, and that's most of the time when I see him. How everybody there knew
because he's a Carhartt addict.
So I even had corroboration. I had her write the forward tonight, and nobody really said anything except as somebody who, incredible person who works in the aerospace industry. She's an engineer. And anyway, she wrote the forward based on that experience. She wrote it in a very humorous way.
You've experienced talked to people.
Anyway, so that so I've been in contact with him, and I talked to him a couple times. And when I said his name was Ansar, when I do these spirit walks, when I say a spirit walk, a lot of people, I came over to meditation by sitting down. She had a driver's on a pillow or something. I can't do that. I got to move. So I'm walking up towards the mountains, and there's a specific route I take.
It's just unidentified.
And I know that it was the same route that Native Americans have seen imagery of that it's an unidentified taking this route up towards the mountains, the San Gabriel Mountains.
That's why I don't like.
And there's like this long 3/4 mile stretch road. That's how I saw him, and that's most of the time would be a natural river when it's so rainy season. So I even had corroboration. I had her and at the base of this road
to identify
is a Masonic person.
It doesn't
seem
like
and the Masons don't build their temples just anywhere, because they do a lot of ritual magic. So they build it forward based on that. They build them where she wrote it in a very advantageous way to do so. So it's not surprising that he built it right at the base of this road where I start my spirit walk. Well, it's during that spirit walk that I go into a meditative state. I have my phone and I record everything that I hear. It's not that I hear spirits in the phone.
Whatever they are,
meditation by sitting down, but I record what I hear and what I ask you that I gotta move. And the reason I do that is because I don't remember after I've done this spirit walk. I don't often remember what is just. And I know that it was the same route for Native Americans, so I have to record it. And then when I get home, I train Native Americans. So right now I have over 300 pages of transcribed notes, and there's like last 3 years, 3/4 mile stretch of road, which includes all my communication.
Yeah, they've been tracking it for over 100 years.
Have you ever
lights moving across the surface of the
gander or a look?
There's a catalog.
And at the base of this road,
it's not
one
like
time that you went
a Masonic
words together
I think
to
that
get
they
something
absolutely see
the
that.
Masons
might
don't
sound
track
interesting.
temples just anywhere. Oh yeah, I mean he tells me a lot of what he says is what he wants to prepare me for what's to come. It's not surprising. Some people might call that a prediction or a prophecy, but he's always very careful when he says that predictions can be wrong, but preparations are never wrong. And I record everything that I hear. There's free will and there's other variables. He always talks about that. So he says this likely could happen what I hear. So when the first UFO and the reason I do that is came out, I don't remember. He told me that the government, our government, and not just our government, but other governments too, are focusing on this in the wrong way. They're looking at it as a 300 threat when it's actually an opportunity for humanity.
But yeah, the DSP satellite.
I'll tell you his exact words. He said, "Extraterrestrial technology and wisdom are precious gifts for all, not a strategic advantage for the few."
We know exactly where they are.
So that's the part that we don't understand. Our government doesn't understand, and not just our government, but every. I'm sure the Russians and the Chinese are trying to get a leg up on UAP technology, right? They want
digital version
as one a friend of mine who's former FBI, if there is such a thing as former FBI, but he's retired FBI, and he says that he told me that what the government's looking to do is try to figure out how to strap a bomb. There's free will and there's other various strategic advantages. So he says this, and that's not going to be allowed. When from what I've been told,
so they were supposed to catch
Congress. So I always hear something very interesting and informative.
So yeah,
sometimes it's more personal on this level, or like more pedestrian, like things that are just happening in my life, or an opportunity for. Oftentimes it has global I'll tell you his exact words. He said extraterrestrial
signal intelligence.
I have to make a little quick pause here to
photographic intelligence satellites that we have up there
tonight,
that
and
the
our first
Soviets and the
hour
Russians
is
have,
that we don't
that
understand.
the English have, the Germans, we all have
the Russians and the Chinese are trying to get a leg up.
Very hard, the Chinese.
UAP
It's very hard for you to put
It's
something in the
a
atmosphere
teaser
without
as
somebody
one
our first
friend of mine who's
hour
former FBI,
If our satellites are that
Hunting,
tightly close
Legends and
together,
Podcasts.
retired FBI.
and granted space is quite
he told me
large,
that
we have no idea how large.
what the government's looking to
Like
do
I
is
said,
try
our
to
first
figure
hour
out
is
how to
sponsored
track
by the
question
Ohio
for you is
Hunting
this.
Legends.
How are these motherships
And
getting
they
in
are,
here?
and
it'll
through all
take
of
you
those
to
satellites
the
without actually
thousands of
gliding
haunted
into one?
locations,
From what
unexplained paranormal, campfire stories,
so I always hear something very
happenings, and legends from all over Ohio's 88 counties that have stained by the pages of Ohio's history. The stories are haunted in our society, and many of them
so that
are
they
going
don't
to
blind
scare
each other.
you. So
So I think
remember,
it's
the
about
Ohio
timing.
Hauntings and Legends
I mean, you know, we
podcast.
do rocket launches through
I
it.
have to make a little quick
Right.
pause here to
You know, we used to launch a
and they
spaceship
will tell you, and I don't know what's going on with the mic.
Soviets,
Others are
the Russians,
legends
they launch
or
rockets all
hearsay.
the time.
Believe those that choose or
Launches
believe
on, you know,
in none. It's up
SpaceX.
to you to choose.
It's about
So
timing.
I think
You
they're
have
a
to know where
great
things are.
Well, and
podcast.
that's what I'm
Again,
saying
for
is,
Ohio Hauntings
you know,
Legends podcast.
that is
Ohio
something.
Haunting. They take you all over the
That
place.
is something
And they
that
explain
I
unexplained paranormal campfire stories. I've listened to a few of them.
Somebody
And if you
call me in our
guys
chat
have a
room, but I'm
chance, make
pregnant
sure
with
you go
Dave's
to the
alien love
website,
child.
download it.
That is
No,
There's a whole
that is
playlist
my
that's going
love
to be
child.
on the website.
That
We'll
is
take,
my
and
love
have these,
child.
they have
Sorry,
many
apparently I've been
episodes
named.
that are genuine. Other legends
That is
are
my
hearsay.
love
So they have the
child.
jet, they have the real thing,
Well,
real
well, if I
happening,
have to tell
something
the
and
truth,
legends from all
you know,
over. So
Ola,
if you
apparently
Sean,
the truth
Jason,
is going
and
around
Bruce,
the
the
internet
chance in our
that
audience,
I
Joni
follow
out there.
that
The
I've
stories are
not-
haunted. I mean,
you
they
know,
are
worked
really
hard to
good.
get the
Many I
followers
just
that
want
we
to shout
have,
out
so I had to
scare
buy them.
you. Okay, guys.
So
You know how
apparently,
Ohio
all the
onward,
stories that are on
boys,
the
and thanks
internet now are
again,
true,
you
and
wonderful
Connie in our chat
podcast.
room is apparently
Oh, they'll
pregnant with
scare you,
Dave's,
but go
which is
ahead.
my alien
So
love
they
child.
will tell
That's
you.
Yeah,
I don't know
I was
what's
just
going
going to
on
say
with
my
That-
two
that's
eldest
absolutely-
sons live in
What are you
Ohio.
gonna name
Hearsay,
them?
believe those.
Oh, really?
I don't know.
Yeah,
Well, you know what? I want to get them on. I want to get them on the show. I think they're great.
Very.
Like I said,
Figure it out.
it's a
Maybe Carl-
it's not
maybe
a
Carl
brand
will.
new podcast.
Ohio
Hauntings,
Carl.
Legends been around,
Okay.
but
You know.
they're I
that's
like
just
the
the way
fact
it is.
that they
But,
have the
yeah, I
Ohio
appreciate it.
Hauntings
I totally
and
forget
Legends
where I
stories.
was
I mean,
going
there's a lot of
with-
them.
with that
I mean,
topic.
to make a whole, you know,
It felt good, though.
weekly
It felt good, though.
show
It just
on it
made
has
me
to be
laugh.
great. And the way they
You were
do it
wondering
is
how they
really
get in
cool.
here.
I like the
I'm
way
telling
they
you,
have many
everybody
acted
on
out
the
or
face of the earth sees
but
it.
I
So
would
it's not-
recommend they have the
it's
jet,
not a
they
hidden
have the real
gem.
thing, a real legend.
So we had a good
Somebody-
question in the
somebody
we
else.
know.
So if you Sean,
We know.
Here's
Jason,
one. It's for
and
Bruce.
Bruce, if you get a chance in our
How
audience,
does-
Joni out there,
Unless they can
his
defeat
historical
our
knowledge
you will love
interact
it.
with
which is
they
paranormal
are
possible.
really good.
Are there
And I just
times
wanted to
where
shout
they
out.
cross
if they
over
can, I
form?
mean,
Okay,
even
go ahead.
optically, they
Considering
would have to.
unknown
Onward,
occurrences
boys,
in
and
history,
thanks again.
system,
do
which
you
You
find
doesn't
yourself
wonderful
considering
podcast.
the
Yeah.
paranormal
Oh,
with
they'll
your
scare
abilities
you, but
involved,
go
or
ahead.
do you tend to try and
Very true.
compartmentalize?
I was just
Very
going to
true.
say my
Lisa Phillips
two
is our
eldest
guest
sons
tonight
live in Ohio.
on Space
That's a
Down
very good
Radio
question.
as we
I would say
continue
there's a
on.
lot of
I wanna get them on. I
crossover.
wanna get
So,
them on
for
the show.
instance,
I think they're
look towards
great.
everything.
talking
Like I
about
said,
Antar again,
quick
when
it's a- it's
he's
not-
trying to
I
have a
explain
really
something
brand
to
new
me,
story that
oftentimes
happened
it's
right
not
before the
easy
show.
Been around, but
And I
for
want
me to
share
understand.
our
So
eyes.
sometimes he'll show
right
me
before the show,
almost like a
I go
a
outside.
documentary, like a film,
I mean, to
and
make
I'm
a
gonna
whole,
quickly
from
run the story.
what he's
That's
trying to
crazy.
explain to me, something from
show on it
world
has
history,
one
something
gets
from
more.
American
the way they
history.
do it is really
Like he
cool.
was
I
trying
like
to
the way they
explain to me
And
about.
my son,
I asked the question, what do
I-
the
I
alien, you know, those
recommend
different
it.
alien
My
groups,
son's
what do they
friend lives
want
like 2
with
doors
us?
down.
So we had a good
Why are they
question.
here?
And my
What are they
neighbor-
doing? And he
I can
showed
hear them
me
yelling
over It's for
in my
And then
mind's
my
eye,
son comes
like
running
the
home on the road,
conquistadors,
crying
you know,
his
coming
eyes
to the
out
New World,
and
or
holding
Columbus,
his runners. He's
you know,
running-
all these
his
early
sneakers.
explorers.
He's running down the road,
what I took from that, and he confirmed it after I kind of got what he was saying, or what he was showing me, was that
what's going on here?
They come here for different reasons. Some are not that friendly.
Okay?
You know, they want to do something that's not very good for us. You know, I would say some of them are very want to help us. Some want to enlighten us, kind of like missionaries or something. Some are more after adventure.
He's like, there was a bear, and he really
there's all different motivations. So just like with the human beings that came, like we're coming documented world. They're coming to us from
sure enough,
what he's trying to explain with this idea that they have superior technology. And like he was trying to explain,
disappears into the gully.
So I think that was one way that he could convey that want, which is I think kind of interesting. So because I understood the history, and he showed me, it made sense. It was a reference point that I could use. And in terms of my class, I call it paranormal personal history. In the class, we all take the time to look at how this all spiritualism came from the United States.
Come on,
there's ancient shamanism.
Come on, show me where
there's the modern spiritualism. They come here for different reasons. The Fox sisters in the early 1800s in upstate New York.
So that's what I was
doing. The rapping, they had a spirit in their house.
That's our headquarters.
And then you had the people that came after them, and spiritualist societies, and like newspapers in the 1800s. They were mostly about paranormal stuff. So just like human beings, and go back and look at it. It's always about hauntings and spiritual, coming to seances and stuff like that.
Going on,
and it was really quite interesting. And then it kind of fell to the wayside a little bit. I think with the turn of the century into 1900, I think that in the 20th century, but then it made a comeback, and it's making a strong because I understood the history. The paranormal, spiritualism, aliens, you name it, the whole thing.
And
Bruce, you have a
contact with the extraterrestrial species.
Definitely. Bruce, you have a
take the time to look at how this all spiritualism came to the United States.
That there's a whole series of
conferences that took place. But then there's the modern spiritualism.
Let me do headphones here so you don't get an echo.
Fox sisters in the early 1800s in upstate New York.
I was talking to you guys.
Had its spirit in their house.
Yes.
Oh yeah. You had a lot of people that came after them.
Thank you for joining us.
Spiritualist societies, newspapers in the 1800s
UFO barbecue.
were mostly
the
about
majestic
paranormal
documents, the
really
burning
Bruce, you're
house.
talking about aliens,
a lot of hauntings,
and you've got a story that's pretty similar to
says, yeah, sure, we did.
what a lot of
It
contactees
was really quite
talk about.
interesting.
I mean,
and then it
I don't know.
kind
You
of
know,
fell
it's
to
not
the wayside a
something
little
that
bit. I think
you
with
sort
the
of
turn of the
benevolent
century
one way or the other,
1900s,
because
type
I don't
of
think
contact
there's any
experience
evidence,
where
this is true of
there's
made a
to
comeback,
help
and
us
it's making
things
a
like
I don't
strong
think there's any
comeback.
evidence strong enough.
The
obviously,
paranormal,
what you talked about before, that's your experience. Two things.
And Bruce, you have
One, do you think these
a show.
entities
according
are
to John Muir,
actually like
I love John Muir, but
bringing
according
me
to
a
John
question for you,
Muir,
Steve. Go
real
ahead.
we have a
beings
series of deals
from a different planet, or are they some other sort of
massive
non-human?
base in the far side.
Let me do
And
headphones here, so you don't
are
are there
so
more
there's-
than
it
just
really
these
depends on who you talk to.
type of entities? I was talking to you guys.
Yeah, well, okay. I'll go back to my. That's a good. That's a good question. I'll go back to my theory that I think how all this stuff works.
I've seen UFOs.
I think that the alien world, the spirit world, and the quantum world are all really the same thing.
You know,
I think they're
I've
all
never
talking about,
operate in the same
or seen an
realm.
alien.
So, like when
Yeah,
ghosts,
you've got a story that's-
I mean, I've
people
had
talk
pretty
about
similar
ghosts,
to
when I was a
apparitions.
kid,
They
I
appear
had
out of
a lot of
nowhere
contact
and they
these
disappear
talk
through
about,
walls
but
or
I've
windows
never,
or whatever. The same thing when people
knowingly,
report alien
consciously,
experiences. They
you sort
appear
of
out of
benevolent
nowhere. They
that I'm aware
vibrate
of.
into
Now,
our
that's not to say
reality.
that if you
As a
believe in the
physicist
whole
friend of mine
valiant
explained
thing,
it.
that they're not like
They
walking around
vibrate
and you
into our
still see them
reality,
because
and then
look
they
like
can
us.
vibrate out, and they can take you with them as well.
Rays,
So,
anything like
two
that.
things.
yes, they
I've
are
never, to my knowledge,
One,
seen
do you think
physical
that
in the
doesn't
sense
mean
that,
entities
but they
are-
operate in a
I
different
just
realm.
don't
They
actually
can come into our
physical.
world,
I
and we
saw
can
one.
see
My next door
what
neighbor
we need
raised
to
some
see,
monsters
you
on
know,
Elm
from a
Street.
different
But
planet.
I think
or
just
some
to
other
say they're
sort of
purely
non-human.
physical would
Although I
be,
don't think he is.
And
just like I don't
are
think
there
we're
more
purely
than
physical.
just
You know, I think
possible,
we're spiritual
but I did,
beings as
when I
well.
was young, I
But
But
had
we
a
see,
weird
you know,
experience.
the inexplicable reality that we have. We see the flesh and bones when there's really much more to us than that, especially when people pass on and their flesh and bones is in a coffin somewhere.
Out of all the
And
people out there
like my
that
friend
claim
Gene
having
was a
all
spiritual
the
being that I
contact
spoke to.
and everything
And I
that's
think
going
they're all
on.
in the
Myself
spirit
included. Why do you
operate in
buy
the
into
so
those stories?
and in terms of ghosts, benevolence, some of these alien entities are not here out of nowhere. In fact, a lot of my friends, my friend Terry Lovelace, who died, the same thing with people report alien experiences. Was abducted in 1977 when he was in the Air Force, along with another friend of mine.
I know
camping in Arkansas somewhere. And they vibrate out. And Devil's Den, which is a perfect name for a terrible thing. Yes, they are. Devil's Den.
Never stay off that
In the
place.
sense, so they got abducted there, and they were severely injured. I mean, severely injured. What we need, and so it was a terrible experience. It was just obviously purely physical, and he didn't know the full extent of what was done to him, although he knew that he was hurt. His friends said they were received, so they acknowledged that.
Really, he tells a story.
I mean, I've had a very scary experience with aliens too. It's not all been
and I think in a lot of cases,
I had
these moments.
I was having this very pleasant friend meet my mom. My mom passed away in 1990. So I was having this very nice dream where I was in the house and I was talking to my mom, and it turned so great. I get to talk to my mom again. It was a very lucid dream. And then all of a sudden, my mom started acting weird. Like she was acting kind of like Mae West, you know. And I thought, what the heck's going on? My mom wasn't like that. That's not the way she was. And then all of a sudden, she morphed into this reptilian. They were camping in Arkansas, and this reptilian female was extremely strong. Perfect name for it. And she lifted me and pushed me against the wall like I was nothing. And I'm 6'3", about 275. They were a big person, and like I was like a feather. And she told me, she said, and he didn't know. I can do whatever I want to you, and there's nothing you can do. There he is, hurt, and his friend. She was incredibly frightening and sensual. I mean, I've had the same time. It's a very scary experience with him, and it was a very unnerving. And actually, that's good. I was having a very pleasant dream. My mother, timeless book is an artist's rendition of what it sounds like.
So we were chasing this bear around.
She's pretty frightening.
I love that.
It was a very lucid. Yeah, it's my friend Gary Jones. All of a sudden, my mom started. I've had people tell me they wanted to read the book, but they couldn't get past the piano, and I thought, what is this going on? My cover just reached them out, and I like the way she was. And then all of a sudden, she, in fact, after I had that experience, that lucid dream with her, where she intruded into my dream like that, I started to draw a picture of her, that I then gave to the artist later. But when I was drawing the picture of her, I got violently ill. I'm 6'3", and I started throwing up. And that doesn't happen very often. That happens. And so, I was throwing up. Finally, I felt better, and then I was fine. I didn't get sick after that. It was just the process of putting to paper her image. It was incredibly. And then I gave it to my friend who's an artist to sensual.
I have a question for you on that one. This guy
excuse me, Sean. Thanks, Steve, for coming on.
Thanks, Dave.
The business of educating 24/7.
And one more second. Do you have
Who
any
is it nowadays?
questions?
And for me, first day of school success begins at Office Depot Office Max, where everything my kids need to start the year strong is in one place, like a laptop for my high school, backpacks and notebooks for the little ones, and hand sanitizer for all of the above. I can even order things for my business. It's all available in-store and online at OfficeDepot.com, and at low prices all season long. Office Depot Office Max, their business is to keep school going.
How come he never came and helped you out?
Beverage, founder and master distiller at Tito's Handmade Vodka. When I got into this business, I used to make flavored vodka infusions for my friends as gifts. I started to make a go of it. The owner of a local liquor store showed me the dust on some flavored vodka bottles.
I couldn't figure out exactly why.
You can make a straight vodka so smooth that you could drink it just by itself. Then you'd really have something. So I did. And now all these years later, we still only make one flavor, vodka flavored vodka.
And then I had another lucid dream before this where I was.
Excuse me, Sean.
I saw a friend of mine. I thought it was a friend of mine down. He lived kind of up on a hill a little bit, and down on the road, I saw him, and I thought it was him. He was wearing a hat and sunglasses and an overcoat, and I thought it was our friend Bobby. He's kind of he's kind of a little guy, and he's part Filipino, part Mexican, so darker skinned, and I thought it was him. And then I waved to him, "Hey, Bobby, how you doing?" And all of a sudden, this thing looked at me, and I saw it was a reptilian face. It was a darker skin, and it wasn't Bobby.
How come
it was a very frightening looking person.
Why do you think the reptilians are like stepping in and help after you?
I don't think I think they're just letting me know of their presence.
For me, my belief in it really comes down to
the only thing I could figure out was why I started. I was in the process of publishing my first comic, A Flash of and the reptilians are the bad guys in that comic. That's kind of weird. What's going on here? Maybe they don't like it. another lucid dream where they're
they might not know what a comic book is.
Yeah, definitely. You have another question from another caller.
They all have the same message. The extraterrestrials. It's all about the environment, the way we're treated.
You have a question for Bruce?
Clean up our mess. Have you noticed this as
kind of a
well?
little guy, and
yeah, I mean that's been happening since the 50s, in contact here.
And I thought
back then it was,
and then I
guys are
waved to
going to
him,
blow
hey,
yourself
Bobby,
up
how you
with
doing? And
atomic
all of a
weapons.
sudden,
And,
this,
later it became, oh, you guys are so warlike, and now
it
it's,
was a dark,
oh, you're destroying the environment.
and it wasn't Bobby.
I don't care if it's Ashtar Command or, the Pleiadians or, whatever. They always have these messages, but it's like, they have these messages, and you can get this the message, but they're not going to do anything else about it. It just sounds weird
was
to me.
that
I guess the first one is
I was in the process of
people
publishing my
that they
first
do pick and
comic
choose
book,
certain people
and
who are
the
different
reptilians are the bad guys in that
to be
comic
authentic.
book. Yeah, that's a really good question.
Except for
Whitley Strieber, who wrote the book
They might not know what a comic book
talks about that
you have
he
another
calls them the
question
visitors
regarding
from
the rays
Nina?
and potentially MK
He says
Ultra and
that
Myos.
when they see us in our world, there's certain people who have an indicator. He calls it a glow, and that's the people they go for because they know they can reach you more easily. And I think it has to do with psychic abilities, maybe your experiences. It's easier for them to reach you and impact you than it is other people who just deny the existence of the afterworld or the alien world or the spirit world. So it's much easier to make that contact. So they're going to follow the path of least resistance in that case, and they know that they're probably going to be able to communicate with you, both if it's a benevolent reason or
because I think
a less
the
than
biggest question
benevolent
that I have
or
about my
malevolent reason. So I think that's part of it. I call it my radar dish.
Why?
Like when I walk around, I got to make sure that I don't have that. Yeah, that's a really good because then I'm going to get all kinds of information that I don't contact. I don't want.
It's in the owls.
Talks about, and I'm not prepared for it. So when I take my spirit walk, I go through a lot of prayers. I go through a procedure. I get protection before and I'm very specific about. Like I have two spirit guides that help me. They're kind of like the way I look at them is kind of like bouncers.
They're more sporadic.
They're not going to let just anybody in who I want to let in. And I think I put the radar dish up, and then I got protect psychic abilities. Maybe your experience. If you don't have that protection, you put the radar dish up. You're open to whatever's out there, and that could be good.
With the whole UAP,
not so good. I think most of what spirit is out there is probably not bad. So they're going to, but could still be harmful in a different way.
And
that there are a lot of spirits out there. I mean, there's spirits all around us right now. Both there's like a couple feet away from us all the time. Or, you don't always sense it unless you put up that radar dish. I call it my radar, and they're not, they don't necessarily have a bad intention, but they really, they know that they can contact you, so they're not going to waste their time. Contact some other guy that doesn't believe in it, doesn't listen to them, doesn't care. So when they're going to go to you, and that's who they're going to talk to. Now that doesn't make me any more special than anybody else. It just happens to be that everybody has the two spirit guides that help me. They're kind of like a talent or a hidden talent or something. I mean, that's just the way it is, and it's easier for them to contact us. So I think that's why they do. And once they do, and once they establish that relationship, if you invite the relationship, as I have with open to whatever, then the relationship can
Cosmic Journey, where this guy Bob
I think most of what is out there is probably not bad, but
there's a whole thing where he was like brought in via Timothy Good to like
there's spirits all around us right now. I mean, they're like a couple feet
like
away
a road
from us all
show,
the time.
where they're gonna have seminars. They're gonna have like
you don't
alien
always sense
bodies
it
and
unless
stuff in
you
it.
put up that
It's
radar
supposed to
dish
be like
you
a
want to
disclosure
communicate.
event.
And they're not, they don't necessarily have a bad intention, but they really, when they know that they can contact you, so they're not going to waste their time.
He had these conversations
Some other guy that
with
doesn't
Bobby
believe in it, doesn't listen to them,
been head
doesn't
of the
care.
CIA,
They're going
Admiral
to go to
Bobby
you,
Raymond,
and that's
about
what
like doing this
now, that
project
doesn't make
called Cosmic
make
Journey.
me any more special than anybody else. It just happens to be what
I mean, that
everybody
makes
has.
me think that aliens are real too.
I guess a
Let's
talent,
hold
or
that
hidden
thought right
talent,
there,
or something.
because we are going to go to break here at
And
the
it's
top of
easier
the
for
hour.
them
We
to
got Olaf
contact.
Phillips
So I think
from
that's
Paranoia
what
Frequency
I think
UFO Talk.
we're going through some
Project.
preparation. What Ann's
Whatever
going
we
to
can jam in the final half half hour with Olaf. Then we got John Hudson with the Unbiased UFO Report next.
Where we're evolving to the next higher level of an entity, and to do that, so we can make more easily make contact with them, and not just one or two people or a handful of people, but as a human race, as humanity, to take this leap of consciousness. So there are a few people who are kind of like scouts, or kind of blazing the trail, trying to kind of like once again using that explorers in the new world, kind of idea, that are going out there and kind of blazing the trail, then other people will follow. So a lot of experiencers, as people are called, who have alien contact, often call themselves. You have this sense of responsibility that you are preparing not just yourself, but you're learning to help others make that leap of consciousness, that Anzar calls it. And then ultimately that'll lead to what he calls an era of reconversion, which means that we're going to be able to take the wisdom of our ancestors, who were very close to the spirit world and the alien world, what they would call the star people of an entity, and whether they're indigenous Aborigines or whether they're Native Americans, they all have this connection, right? And we're going to take that wisdom, bring it into our age of technology and science, and combine humanity to take this. And that's what ultimately happens. So there's kind of a nice vision of the future, kind of like. But the problem is, you get there, and there's a lot of bumps in the road in the world here and there, as we should use it all the time. And whether it's kind of blazing, armed conflict or people hating each other, so a lot of experiencers, as pandemics and all that stuff. But ultimately, I know that we will get there. Sense of responsibility that you are. That's why every time I contact Anzar, learning, he always reminds me to keep love in my heart and operate from a position of love. And then ultimately, that's what I'm always told and reminded of, which is really hard because it's easy to say, right? A lot of people say, "I'm going to keep love in my heart." That we're going to be able to take, but to actually do it and put it into practice,
you know what I'm talking about, right? The frequency.
But it's essential, and it's absolutely essential.
Oh, Dave, you know what we should do?
To do it. Whether
do you have any listeners that are?
I don't know if that answered your question. Americans, they all have this connection.
Yeah, I do.
We're going to take that wisdom, bring it into our age of technology and science, and combine the two. And that's what
you should try to get one of your people.
So there's kind of
to make the Tesla ghost box.
Well, it sounds like you have a lot of interest, which is probably based on some experience that you may not be consciously aware of.
Wire it in your board.
Whether it's
you should try to talk to
armed conflict, people hating each other, killing each other.
I never have luck with those. I haven't had seven here.
But ultimately, I have. Well, it reaches like the late Jim Mars. That's why every time I contact the guy from Texas, the investigator, did a lot of paranormal stuff, JFK assassination stuff.
How are you?
He used to call it the boggle point. A lot of people reach, and myself, I do too. Somebody tells me something that happened to him that's incredible that I've never heard of before. My immediate response is, I don't know. I just don't know. Is that possible? And then I start thinking about it. So I think that natural bit of apprehension to just believe everything you're told, I don't know if it's a good thing. Probably a very good thing. And then when you get experience and you find out, you've made the connections, then it adds to your list of things that you know to be real or true.
Yeah, I have a
Well, thanks, Nina, for coming on.
Thank you.
Well, it sounds like you have a lot of interest, which is probably based on some experience that you may not be consciously aware of.
No, but you know what? I bet you
have a very astute audience.
I actually had a question for you. I had an experience that it's still kind of boggling my mind.
It reaches.
And my answer is yes.
The late Jim Mars,
just barely. Get Greenfield on for Halloween.
Investigator did a lot of paranormal stuff. JFK assassination stuff.
They're here now.
We used to call it the boggle point. A lot of people reach, and myself, I do too. Somebody tells me something that happened to them that's incredible that I've never heard of before. My immediate response is, I don't know.
I think
that might be paranormal thing.
And then I start thinking,
I gorgeous.
I'm just trying to figure
that natural bit of apprehension.
He once went on a radio show.
It's a good thing. It's
and he opened a portal. He did an European spell and opened a portal
find
over
out.
the radio
It's
station.
It's still
through the
the
transmitter.
connections,
Also.
then
I'm
it
not sure.
Yeah,
adds
let's
to your
do
list
that.
of
Let's
things
get
that-
let's
yeah,
get
it's hard to
Alan
say
Audrey.
without more
We're gonna
information,
need
but
Alan
it could have
Thanks,
been
Nina,
I
for
think,
coming on.
some
Yeah.
kind of spiritual
Thank you.
kind of
He'll do
stuff,
it.
great question. Or it
I
could
know
have
he
been
will.
alien,
He might even do video
or
too.
some combination.
I hope so.
Because like I said, they operate in the
Fantastic.
same realm.
Yeah.
Like when I asked my friend Gene, who's in the spirit realm,
Actually,
I said,
I'll be
"Tell
a
me
bishop
something
soon."
about aliens." And I thought, oh, that's a great question for him. He should know. He's in the spirit world, right? And
I never
he
talked to
said,
you about
listen,
magic
he
stuff.
said,
I know.
we are the aliens.
just barely asleep, and I heard
Yeah.
It's all a
believe
secret
that.
space program.
That's pretty cool. And I asked for an explanation. What do you mean, like
That's 'cause I love
you,
this
like
topic.
Gene and all the others who passed away in spirit, you guys are the aliens? And he said, no, you don't understand.
in like the hall.
We are all
I wrote books on it.
bedroom. Now what?
So in other words, we're all
paranormal
connected.
Thing,
Yeah.
Right.
The aliens are really us. These are we are
James
connected
Davies,
to. That's what
we're right in
Anzar's
the
told
middle
me
of
too. That we are
redoing our
connected.
store.
That this is more
for
of
our new website.
It's more of a reunion.
And once that's
than
up and
anything
running,
else.
we'll have some really cool
And,
swag there.
and maybe they
with
only
the
want to
SOR
take us
logo
so
and
far. I think it
everything.
was,
So
the
we'll,
late John
make
Max
sure we
say
get that out for you, okay?
information,
Just,
the
be
psychiatrist,
patient and,
some kind of
and
spiritual
we'll,
at
get some
Harvard,
stuff
right?
out there.
He's passed away, but he wrote several books.
Appreciate
Yes.
that.
And one of his clients,
Yes, I
he
have
asked,
a- I have an
because
idea.
like I said, they operate in the same realm. No, his client had asked
when I
this
asked my friend
Gene that she had had. I said, why, why all the secrecy, why all this stuff, what's, that's a great question. And the alien told
Anything
her,
Greenfield, man,
John Max,
okay?
Dr. Max
I
client
totally
said,
game.
we want you to believe in us, but not too much.
Yes, and if you haven't read the
believe
secret,
that.
secret cipher and UFO
Because when you think
all right,
about
we
it,
got 12 seconds here.
I'm very lucky in that
Flat
my
Earther,
wife
Wayland,
Ginger,
Black
she's very
Dragon,
practical.
Space
She's
Cow,
very
Sunny
smart, very
Chat for the
intuitive,
super
very
chat.
practical. We are
So we go with
I'll
hours
tell her
for
all these
everyone.
remarkable things. Oh, I was just on this
So, in
spirit
other words,
walk
we're
and I
all
talked to these ghosts, these
Yeah.
spirits,
Right.
and I talked to Anzar, and she goes, that's really great. She's very
like to
supportive,
connect with
that's
us?
great.
Head to
And then she said,
spacedoutradio.com
but can you help me,
for all your latest show
dig some
info.
holes and
Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much
I got to keep
for
both
joining
feet
us.
on
We
the
really
ground.
do
I
appreciate
can't
earning
just
your
living
listening
in
ears.
I mean, if she was a
this beautiful
professional
planet we
psychic
call
or
Earth,
something,
we want to say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America
and ethereal
and
world.
digitally
So
on
no,
Talk
I think it's
Live,
important to be
Revolution
grounded.
Radio,
So I really understand that.
all of our archives are free by going to youtube.com/spacedoutradio.
And
Just do
you have to live the life.
hit that
during
subscribe button.
Our whole life
The
is
Desert
not.
Clam
We
has
want
set
you to
the
believe.
password
I'm
for
not on
tonight
a
in the
paranormal
SOR
show
Space
all the
Travelers
time.
Club.
You know,
And Paleo Beyond.
this is what I,
You know I
in the
pronounce
evening, and
that
then other,
wrong.
I'm grading
That's your
papers
password
about
for tonight.
World War I.
As the Clam sets the password each and every night right here
You
on
also
Spaced Out
had
Radio.
some
Our
experience
website
with
is
angels.
spacedoutradio.com, where we have a
well, the first
including
that
Rocky
healing
Oak to
experience in
Bumblefoot,
northern Norway.
reading
That
up
was
on
an
Catholic
angelic
Church
experience,
SOR
angelic
Newswire. Follow us on
and also
Twitter
one
at
of my
Spaced Out Radio,
one of my
and on
spirit
Instagram,
guides. I have two spirit
Spaced Out
guides.
Radio Show.
So
For the
one
final
is
time
named
tonight, we bring
Theodora,
in
and
from
she's
Paranoia
female,
Magazine,
and
Mr. Olaf
she's
Phillips is
angelic
here.
and being
He's been
back
roasting
to Earth.
marshmallows
And the other
all
one
night long,
looks like a
talking
Native
to UFOs,
American chief,
aliens, and
living
secret
in very
programs.
rugged-looking Native
and
American
to be
psychic.
discussed.
He doesn't talk.
He's in here
His
like a
name
dirty
is
shirt,
Ozzy
doing
Osbourne.
a dirty Carhartt shirt.
I think of Ozzy Osbourne.
Thank you for having
But
me.
he doesn't look like Ozzy Osbourne.
Greetings and
I really understand that. Or an elder, and he's really the physical, kind of the bodyguard.
Right before the break, we started
the
talking
life
about programs
during,
like MK
our whole life,
Ultra
the
and
protector.
Labs.
When I do
Why
my
would
spirit
the-
walks,
why would the
he's
government
the bouncer all the time. You know what I mean?
really.
And Theodora, and then is this angelic, and,
it's a good question.
and she is the one that helps facilitate the.
I don't know.
Some people, psychics, call it raising the vibration. I call it raising my
especially around
consciousness.
Ultra.
Yeah, well,
when they were doing Ultra, they had a thing
lift
called
me up
Operation
so that I can meet
Climax,
the spirits or
where
the
they ran
aliens
a brothel in San Francisco.
because
and
they have to come
the
down to our
prostitutes
level
would get the
to
Johns
meet
to
them
come up to their room.
Otherwise, that
And then
connection.
they had a two-way mirror, and they would
It's not very
observe
good.
it, and they would
It can sometimes work.
dose the
But it's kind of like those old radios where you tune in American and you kind of get. Sometimes you get a really good connection. You can hear the music.
They realized
He
that
doesn't
wasn't
talk. Other
working
times
so
it's
well.
kind of like between
And this
channels,
guy
a lot of
actually jumped out
static.
a window.
It's not always
So then they
so
kind of switched it, and the guy that
but
ran
she
the
helps
program
with those
actually turned it
connections.
into like
And
a
Ozzy protects me.
sex warfare program,
malevolent entities,
and wrote a manual for the CIA on sex warfare. So they do some around things like ultra.
Before we
they
go
do some
on, I just want to thank our sponsor for this.
When I do my
but I guess the impetus would be that they could take people and do whatever they want. Plant these screen
and they have a lot of
they're kind of like
the
person when they get done, they're so confused that there's no way to track down what really happened. Were they abducted by aliens?
Thank you.
Who knows?
She helps facilitate that to lift me up so that I can meet the spirits or the alien entities halfway.
How can I learn how to talk to Enzar if I'm
down to our level? We have to meet them. So, okay, this is a very interesting question because it's not very good. At first, he was just talking to me, right?
Maybe to
but it's
test,
kind of like, and then I asked him, I said,
distribution.
do you talk to other people? And he said, not to get a really good connection, not right now. So I said, well, that's interesting. He said, I'm specifically for you, and
this is a very specific thing.
We're going to have this
so let's say that I get abducted.
And then, but I was always open to other people. It's not that I didn't want him to talk to other people.
And they release
that
back into the wild, so to speak. And I go and tell everybody,
I told you about my friend Lucy who saw it. She heard it.
Experience,
and so she was able to contact. Now she doesn't contact him anymore. She doesn't
release this person back into the wild.
And then my friend Terry Lovelace, who I mentioned earlier,
can we weaponize?
He is very interested in my contact with Enzar. So anytime I come up with
because if I go back and
he wants me to email him and send him what Enzar told me. Well, he went and found a friend of his who's a psychic, and they made contact with Enzar, so now
the CIA
he has had
knows
contact
that they planted the memory. They're perfecting their ability.
So I don't see why you couldn't, Jenny, if you wanted to.
Well, how would you do it? Like going to do some meditation?
And then I asked him, I said,
the
CIA?
Do you talk to other people? And he said,
well, if you're talking about Mill Lab,
it depends on what you want to do. I start by asking, I say a prayer, and whatever your belief system is, use that. And then, but I was always in the Norwegian Lutheran Church, so I have a set of prayers that I do. And then I ask Theodora and Ozzy to help me make this connection to raise my consciousness or vibration, whatever you want to call it, and to have protection until I'm done that anymore. And then I will welcome everybody that I want to talk to. And then I welcome all my relatives, my grandmothers and grandfathers, my aunts and uncles, my brother and sister who's passed away. And he wants me to email a couple of spirit friends that I have, including G. And then also I'll invite Enzar, a friend of his, other psychic. And then after I do all that, then I press record right on my phone, and then I start asking questions. Or sometimes I don't see why you could just listen. I'll say, okay, I'm just going to do freestyle. I'm going to listen for what you guys are telling me. I'm not going to ask any questions. I'm just going to hear what you're saying, and I'm going to speak it into my recording. Depends on what you want to do. My voice recorder by asking, and so sometimes I do that. So your belief system, as long as you have protection and you use whatever kind of protection, prayers or whatever you want to do, and then just ask, and then I ask him directly.
Because this is kind of the Manchurian
Why do you put a recorder? Can you pick up something on the recorder?
Just no, I don't pick up their voices at all. Just what I hear them say, or sometimes what they show me. It's not always
okay, so you don't actually see it. It's on your
genetics were messed with.
I see images.
You actually see him.
Sometimes I can see him, not every time.
No, you have your eyes open, or
she was part like.
And no, they have to be open because I'm walking on the side of a brother, so I gotta have them open. And then after I do all that,
okay, so you see him with your visual eyes.
And
then I start asking questions, or sometimes I will.
Another person.
Just
then there's the Kathy O'Brien.
Well, I see what looks like the best way I can describe it. Like when I have a vision, I see like a holographic image. It's not a solid image like I would normally see. So sometimes I do that.
Really interesting.
So that's what I see. Sometimes it's clearer than other times. Protection. Sometimes I just hear their voices or I hear their thoughts.
I mean, that almost sounds like something right out of.
Sometimes they show me, like I said, like a film,
Born Identity
clip from a film
is
a visual. Just I don't pick up. Sometimes they'll show me what I hear symbolic, or sometimes what they have. It's not always
super soldier program.
Playing and go
that is something that is more about
brainwashing.
You actually see him,
some cases,
sometimes I can see him
advanced training, or
a couple of different ways to answer that.
Manipulation.
When I go into that meditative state,
and when you think about that, right, just remember that,
on that,
I don't know if they did it this year, but the last time
quantum realm. So that is a different realm than what we're in right now. So that's why I have to record what I'm saying and what I'm hearing, because the first few times I did it, it's like great, and then I
like these Germans had an entire group,
and then it's not. What did they just tell me? I forgot.
Mentally conditioned
because I was in a different. I was in that meditative state, so I couldn't. That's why sometimes it's earlier than other times. So I didn't miss out. Sometimes I just hear the. In terms of craft, I don't normally. Sometimes they show me. I don't want to go on a craft. I'll just put it that way right now. I have been on one in a previous experience I didn't talk to you guys about. Show me in 1973.
Well, because they did it.
Experience where I was taken up into the crowd, and so I don't request that.
But I'm a military unit that's abducting you, not aliens.
It was pretty frightening, although ultimately it ended up being a good different. That's where I met when I go into that meditation. I've seen this guy do a couple times, an insectoid who looks like a cross between a Jerusalem cricket and a black site. So that is a different realm, which is pretty frightening right now.
Northwest Territories.
And he's a doctor, or I call him Dr. Bud,
a sleeper assassin.
He was a dog, business owner, prepping 24/7.
He was like, well done. Yeah, not when you choose as part of your
begins at Office Depot, Office Max, where everything my kids need to start the year strong is in one place, like a laptop for my high schooler,
but he was there, and so he wasn't torturing
all of the
me,
above.
but he didn't have very good bedside manner. Although he did admonish a couple of the little gray guys who had put this like a harness device on my head.
That was a nightmare, wasn't it?
Hi, I'm Tito Beverage, founder and master distiller of Tito's Handmade Vodka. I've been doing this for 20 years, but success doesn't happen in a vacuum. Thank you for helping me move this thing along. You helped me get this thing going in the early days by telling 20 of your closest friends about Tito's. They told 20 more, and it kept going from there. We wouldn't be where we are today without your support. Thank you very much. Go to Tito'sVodka.com and pick up some Tito's gear. All proceeds benefit our charity partners.
That was in
1973. Handmade vodka distilled and bottled in Austin, Texas. Tito'sVodka.com.
I was 15.
Put a trigger word in. The trigger word is.
And did he abduct you from your bedroom, or was it somewhere else? It was like a wilderness.
You want to blow stuff up. That's how
right
it
out of my
But in order to
That's around the same time
your
as
disappearance
Travis
and
Walton was
reemergence,
abducted.
I put
in
a
73.
I
Around the same time, I'm not sure.
70s were pretty active. He was there because I had another experience in 77, and then he had another one in 78.
You weren't doing any kind of hallucination.
What I'm saying though is it opens up an entire bank to the conspiracies, whether the government has a list of everybody who's been taken.
And he told them to take off.
They have some sort of
and then I asked
way
what
to
all this
detect
about.
or
In fact, my friend Terry Lovelace, his
extraterrestrials
experience was in
and
77.
And some people believe that
I had a dual experience with. I was on a road trip,
extraterrestrials.
driving
they worked out a
City.
deal.
My friend
One
and
of the theories
I call him
is that
Ernie.
they worked out a deal
Because
with
he
the
wanted me to change
extraterrestrials
How long
that
ago
showed
was that?
a certain
We went
number
from
of people
Seattle,
who
I
were
made it
abducted
to
track
1973.
for
Black Pine
advanced
Peak in the
technology.
wilderness of
That's one of
Idaho.
the
You were quite
And
young.
it was
that
pitch
was
dark.
the one with-
We were trying to find a
From your
campground,
bedroom,
and
or was
we
it
just parked on the
somewhere
side
else?
of a road.
I
I was in my
believe
dirt
that
road,
treaty's
and
right out of
that's when all the stuff
That's
started to
around the
happen.
same
We
time
Because
as,
I don't
started to
Travis
see
Walton.
lights. We heard weird
73?
noises. The
I don't
lights were
believe that
coming like
we have
cars,
anything
like
that they
pretty
want.
from up above.
If we're real,
And I started.
if that's real,
I felt like
I
there
don't
was
think that
people
there's
or
anything
entities or something
that we
outside
could really
of the
offer
car.
them that
You
they
weren't
couldn't
doing
just take
anything
by
with
themselves.
So all of this
And
stuff
there's no
I remember
evidence
consciously.
that they directly
And then
interface
I just kind
with
of
any governmental
blanked
agency.
out. I
In
didn't
fact,
know. Yeah, I didn't know it was
if
happening.
you look at actual
And,
UFO abductions,
I did a
and UFO
hypnotic
activity,
regression.
It's
lady
harder now because everybody
I
has
was able to fill out,
but they tend to be very aloof.
And
the abductions
so
are
what
very
I found
strange.
out
There's
was
a
that
dual
experience.
the
My
cash
friend and I,
instruments
these
and
were
everything.
alien entities.
That was
I
kind
was
of
able
like
to describe them more clearly what they looked like.
It was more like an accidental contact.
I wasn't taken in that experience, but my friend Ernie was. Seattle, we made it. He was taken. So what's interesting, I pieced it all together, and then I called my friend Ernie and I said, we were trying to find Ernie. I want to talk to you about our experience. And I didn't start off with aliens. I just started, what do you remember about our trip? And he explained everything. Oh yeah, we pulled off side of the road. There was lights. It seemed like there were people outside. I felt like I went through like cars. I don't really remember much beyond that. And I said, Ernie, you're not going to believe this, but I did this something outside of the car. I found out that those were alien entities. You were actually stuff I remember. And then he got really, really mad. And then he got really mad. I blanked out. And he didn't want to talk to me anymore. And he said, if you would have told me that I did it, I would have hung up the phone.
But that was more like
he said, you're not going to publish this story and use my name. I was able to fill out, Ernie, why are you so upset? I'm just trying to get to the bottom of it. And he was really hostile. And so he hung up the phone. I tried to email him several times. Finally, he emailed me back. And he said, I do remember what happened. And I remember in some cases, one of the aliens said,
I had this shocking revelation.
What's with this guy? He's really squealing. So I think he's never seen it. And then I called my friend. You think he never said
for sure.
Like pincers, right? I want to talk to you about so I didn't start off.
That is something that.
So he told me that in email, and then he hasn't spoken to me since.
Really?
Side of the road, talked to me. And I talked to other people about it, who like Terry Lovelace and others who had dual experiences with other people. That's very common that one person will deal with it and want to get to the bottom of it. The other person will shut down. And the friendships or the relationships, the marriages have broken up.
Because they didn't want to go back and justify 80 years of covering stuff up.
It's always
fascinating.
So, but he said, you're not in that little story. I knew I had written some poetry after that said, I'm trying to get to the bottom of it. So I dug through all my papers. I collected all my stories. I tried to keep writing and I found the poem that I wrote. And the name of the poem from that 77 trip, that experience, was I Sold Out to the Aliens. And in that poem, at the bottom of the poem, I mentioned
all this stuff. When we got done, he went, so Archie still wants disclosure in the belt.
Like the comments that he said. And when I read that, I hadn't remembered that until I read. I knew I had the poem, and it had something to do with that trip. But that my blood ran cold when I read that, and I thought, and I talked to others. There's some kind of corroboration. There's not only corroboration from my friend Ernie, but also this physical document.
I think that right now in the world,
source document from that shutdown,
whether it's political radicalization,
it was it's pretty
spiritual
bizarre
radicalization,
stuff. Pretty mind blowing, and it's very sometimes
we can't.
People say that's so cool. I wish I've had alien experience. And that little I knew it's both a blessing and a curse. Trip in 1977 when I got home.
That would be.
So I dug through my own papers, collected all my
we've got the Chinese and the expansion,
and I found
the Russians and
Lovelace related to Linda.
How did I know that was coming up?
It's a very stable time, so I don't think that people could really rationalize
very unusual name.
that as well. You go from 18 months where you go from everything's fine to having shortages where I go to the store and I can't literally bring home food. There's no toilet paper. It seems ridiculous, but
my question is,
a fundamental thing that everybody wants.
Friend Ernie,
and then we have this tumultuous political
stuff like that
environment, and then it's like, oh, by the way,
when you first started,
we
don't know what the hell they are. They're just flying around like
pretty mind-blowing.
Talking
I don't think people will say
the other people that are talking to him now.
On our best day a few years ago, everybody was pretty happy with each other. Yeah, we could do fine. But today,
imitating
him?
No, that's a good question. It's a very good question. I've had demonic experiences too that I haven't really talked about. Like serious stuff that was happening. So I know what that feels like.
Blame the Democrats.
This does
not
some
feel
sort
of like socialist trick, and
like I said,
Democrats who can't Republicans.
To keep love in my heart and operate in that position. Is that love? Now, if he was using that, if he was a demonic entity and was using that as a clever way, he wouldn't be saying that, and he wouldn't be saying it over several years. So
I think
I'm convinced that he is.
I deal with
not malevolent, but benevolent.
But how do you?
And that he is who he says he is. And it's interesting, my friends, including Terry Lovelace, who's had contact with him now.
So,
also, and they told me that. They said, I wasn't really sure about your story when you first told it, but now I'm sure, because I've told them all the,
and I asked them, I said, well, how do you determine what's true and
some
what's
of
not
them
true?
have come true.
And he says,
and because of the continuing very positive information
what the starting point and ending point of it is.
They believe.
So it's like, for me personally,
that he is,
if you come to me and you tell me that the sky is
I'm convinced.
I'm going to believe you until I go outside and look and see.
And I have had demonic experiences.
It's like, I take the point of view. This is an intelligence officer. It's like, I take the point of view that you're telling the truth until I can prove you otherwise.
They can trick you.
He said, but that being said, I don't trust you. I don't trust anybody.
Right.
So that's kind of where I come out.
It kills them.
I believe that if somebody who's listening to you right now sends me an email and tells me about their abduction, I'm pretty much glad because I'm always interested.
Well, thank you very much.
I like stories.
I want to know, like, where can we get, like, if someone wants to buy your book.
My friend.
But if you come and tell me that you had an abduction,
my website has everything on it. Bruce Olaf. They told me that. They said
not working.
I wasn't really sure. So my full name when you first told it, but now I'm no spaces in there. If I've told them, or you can get my books. Look up Solheim, Bruce Olaf Solheim on Amazon. All my books are there. One of my comic books is there too, which is also about aliens. So
did you draw illustrate the
they believe it. No, the illustrator who I showed you that picture. So I'm convinced the reptilian. Yeah, Gary Dunn, who's had been illustrating since the 70s. Very comic books experience. I got him to illustrate my comic books for me. So I write them, I design them, and then he does the artwork.
Probably something logical.
Yeah, so that's where you can find me. And people, I love people contacting me. My contact emails on there on my website, and I love to answer questions, help people out. Hopefully they are interested in the books. So just I just always end things by saying, what Anzar always tells me to keep love in your heart and operate from a position.
I have no proof.
Yeah, my website has everything. Thank you guys, I enjoyed it very much.
It's much more fun.
I enjoyed your
That's how we build the woo around here.
Great.
No spaces.
Yeah, it was.
Or you can get my books. Look up Solheim, Bruce Olaf Solheim on Amazon. All my books are there. One of my comics,
even though you have it on the church,
is also about aliens. So
did you draw illustrate? That's great. I mean, I'd love to talk to him.
No, the illustrator.
Start practicing.
No, seriously, I would love.
Yeah, Gary Dunn.
It would be so cool to be
very true.
It would be so cool. Well, I don't think I could ever into a meditative that deep.
So I write there,
to be able to meditate that.
And then
what
he
is
does
happening
the
to
art.
them.
I think there's just so much out here right now.
You can't
concentrate
on
on
people.
questions.
I love
that
people
need to be
contacting me. My
like you said
contact
that
emails
when he
on
was
there
talking
on my
about
website.
telepathy and how
And I love
you
to
can
answer
hear
questions,
everybody's
help people
thoughts.
out.
That's how I
those who are
interested in the books. And so just
I
just always end things by saying, what Anzar always tells me, to keep love in your heart and not
very real.
Thank
yeah,
you.
it was pretty
I
good.
will say this: when you did that thing with the zero, I'm sitting here and I'm concentrating. I'm like,
that was great.
that's a circle. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I did.
I used to do that. Yeah, I used to have cards because my mom was real into ESP, and we would do that. I mean, I took all kind of
times that you don't know about. We got all of coming
back. I was all into that. I'd love to talk
right
to
now.
I can if I think of somebody, they'll call me. Or did you ever do this where you're thinking or something that's going on in your life, and you see a commercial or a TV ad, and everywhere you go, like
you know me. I've done your show.
I don't know the plot of a story, like if you're watching your whole stories about something that's going on in your life. It's like, what the hell?
Yeah, that's number 4.
Like you said that.
Not so much TV,
what I was saying
for me,
I'm going to believe
on the
what you're
radio.
saying is true.
Yeah, that's it.
And then, I'm going to
or you're driving down the street.
I don't trust my internet, so I'm going to go through it and try to get it.
Whatever you're thinking, maybe you've been thinking of buying or having a connection with God, and all of a sudden, I'm not kidding you, I was praying, and all of a sudden, this big tractor trailer, and it said God on it. I said, oh my God, that's so crazy.
And
I was like,
a long fun night of
hard to
serious
remember.
watching.
Yeah.
We love it when you
Jesus,
bring it
and
right
we
after
do
you'll
that.
see.
I mean,
And
I
it's
try
always
to-
welcome
Gentleman's
here.
Club ahead
But
of 2
do us a
miles.
favor in the next 2 minutes. Tell everybody where they can find you.
No,
your
you're right. Out
articles,
west.
Paranoia
I
Magazine,
find
everything in
outlets.
they'll
between.
call
Yeah.
me.
Sure, it's
Or
Paranoid
when you
Magazine.
do
But,
this where you're
Or
thinking
quotes on
or
Facebook.
something's
what are
going
your
on in your
plans
life,
for the
Magazine on
weekend
and you
there,
see a
then?
commercial
Me.
or a
Paranoid
TV
Magazine.
ad,
Instagram.
I'm going to
If
spend
you're
the
on
evening
Clubhouse,
with my
yeah.
son.
I teach
The
Okay.
plot of a
class
story, his wife is
occultism,
dying. The whole story is
occultism,
about something that's
and
going
occult
on in her
science
life. It's like,
every
what
Tuesday
the
night
hell
at
is
7
going
p.m.
on? So we're gonna
Not so
Find me at the
much,
Celestial
not
Lodge
so
at
much
Sirius.com.
TV, but for
I'm
me,
really
we're
easy to
watching a
find.
movie. He has this gigantic
I was
TV. It's bigger than his
I love
house.
talking.
that's
Or he's
big.
driving. Finally, I
Well,
asked
you
him, I
definitely
said,
do.
when are you going to
You
invite me
definitely
over and
do.
watch
You
a
are
movie?
one of the good
Like,
guys
whatever you're saying,
in this field for sure, my
Right.
friend.
Thinking about
And,
us, I can't wait to do
it's
that.
always a pleasure to have.
You better not,
Hey,
but
Jason.
I'm not kidding you.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
really
Show. We absolutely
Jason,
love you here.
tell Jenny
And,
about
what's
our
next for you?
investigation.
Yeah, let me hear.
Oh
Let me hear about
Well,
it.
like I said, I teach
Is
these
it a
classes
good
every
one?
Tuesday
I always
on
like driving down
Clubhouse.
the highway.
Yes,
Yes, I believe
Do you
so.
have any?
I've been doing
Evan.
some
Yeah.
research
Mhm.
I want you to
into
share
occult
that.
ciphers,
I have to review it.
some stuff like that, and I'm working with.
Oh, that'll be fun. And what?
No,
No,
you're
tell
right.
me before you tell me about your. Before you get into
It's
details,
complete secret cipher
I want you to make sure you go and snap your
reconstituting
picture
hermetic
in Jenny
theory of
Wade's
light,
house a couple times and
which
see
is
if you
a
catch me.
very interesting
All right.
Don't forget.
organization.
Okay.
So we've been kind of trying to work on that.
No, his wife is.
And I'm trying to write
Not
a
a
book
problem. We will. We'll
Okay,
definitely.
go ahead and
occult
tell me about
ciphers
this
and
week.
another book on.
All right, so
So
we were
I'll
in
tell you about later.
Katanning.
We're gonna
But
have
I'm just trying to keep busy and
It
do
wasn't that
interesting
far
stuff
from
on the
movie.
trip.
It's
we were going to give him the
gigantic
presentation,
TV.
so we just stayed up
Very
there.
cool, very cool.
So we get to help these people.
It's always a pleasure to have
Yeah.
you on
Yeah.
Spaced Out Radio.
In
Thank
the
you
woods.
so much for taking the time to join us once again, my
dirt
friend.
road,
And
no
we'll do it
street
again very
lights,
soon,
no
very
cell
often,
service.
because we
Yeah.
love you
in
right there.
October.
Jason,
Okay.
tell
It's like,
Jenny
where are we
about
going?
our
You know?
investigation.
Yeah, let me
It's
hear.
a huge
let me
honor
hear
for
You know,
about
they're,
it.
on the show.
they're talking about experiences
Is
in
it
the
a good
show,
one?
up and everything.
I love
Yep.
So we get
Yeah.
there and we have to talk
Do
to
you
the
have
family.
any-
And
Thank you, buddy. Your check is in the mail, much like all of our subscribers that we bought on this program. Ola Phillips, everybody. Coming up next, we have the Unbiased UFO Report with John Hudson. The Stetson Man is back. We got the news, the thought of the day. Stay tuned. We continue right after this.
wasn't there.
All right.
They were taking
Don't
like a
forget.
selfie and they
Okay.
didn't catch
Okay.
it. So that was pretty fascinating. And
Right, buddy.
also
Not a
in this
problem.
girl's
We will.
room,
We'll
she
definitely.
used to
Go
live
ahead,
there.
tell
She
me
left her
about
fiance.
Oh,
now
that's
and
all
they
right.
moved
Shit
out.
happens.
So we were in Katanning. They were talking about how
Like bones.
something would always
wasn't that far from
like grab
where we were
angles
gonna
and
be
stuff
getting
while you're
the
trying
All
to
right. Well,
sleep.
you have a good rest of the night.
So,
We'll talk
so we got
soon.
all this
I'm gonna hit you
information
up
going
about
on. We live in an old
Alan
so we're sitting,
coming on.
we're down in the living
Oh, yeah,
room. All the
that's
lights
my
are
pitch
off.
black.
Everything is
That's
pitch
road.
black in this
Yeah,
house.
bro.
No street
Like super
Can't see
ultra
anything
peak
from
blue.
your face. So I got a
Good.
camera
I will
rolling.
call you this week.
We have K2 meters
Sounds good.
going.
All right,
where
buddy.
we're going, you know.
Okay,
and
bye.
You take care.
We start doing,
You know, they're
try to do
talking about
the
Ola
K2
Phillips,
session.
everyone.
Growing up and everything.
The
And
Ola
not
Phillips.
really, you know, it's just
Love
more
him
of a
around
feeling
here.
kind of thing at the
daughter,
moment
she
because
Oh, Chad
none of
Smith,
our
I'm
equipment
going to
was
get
hitting.
two little
so much
moles.
play out of that
I had the
BS.
camera running.
Always
So much
following her
play.
Start asking more questions.
Oh,
I kept
Amy,
just
thank you
flashing
so
on the
much for
screen
that
and
wonderful
say real
super
fast.
chat.
Now, it's a night
Aren't
vision
you just a
mode.
divine
It's
darling
really
there?
high-powered.
They showed
Catch
us
us flash from the kitchen. I wasn't sure what it was. I
Big
looked
thank
up,
you
I
to
didn't
Justin
see
as
it.
well.
Window.
Flat Earther,
So I said
Wayland,
there. So that's all
Black
flash.
Dragon
I don't know
times
what it
2,
was.
Space
Okay.
Cow,
I'm not sure.
Sonny,
So that was pretty
and
fascinating.
Chad
And,
Smith.
questions. Also,
The
in this
Chad
girl's
Smith.
all of a sudden, what it
used to live there.
was,
She lives with her
there's
fiance
Banner, it's
they
coming.
had those,
That's all I
fake
could say.
candles.
They
come out the 32nd of every month.
Off switches,
like grab
the one in the
And the
kitchen window
30th of
turned
February.
on. Like something actually
So we
flipped
got
the
all this
switch on,
information going on.
and it stayed on, and we're sitting there.
Oh,
like,
wow.
We're sitting.
Oh my
down
goodness!
in the
What,
living
you know,
room.
what's
all the
going
lights
on?
are on. Everything's
Something
on.
turned that
Pitch
on,
black in this
and
house.
the homeowner's like, we turned those all off. They were in the off
I got a chemical bear again.
yeah, we saw that because obviously the lights were out. And we're asking it, can you try to turn it back off? And you can see it tried, but it was unsuccessful. I guess it needed more energy. More of a feeling kind so they got up moment because they go over. None of our equipment was. They turned this candle off. So and as soon as they turned that one off, there was one that was in the room next to them in the dining room.
And this all happened. You saw this, Sean.
Yeah, it's on video. It's on video.
This is a residential house.
Yes, an old homestead house. So I said, so now the crazy part about this investigation, it might have been a fluke, I'm not sure. Let's go to the room upstairs. It used to be the daughter's room. And I took her fiance up first because he's had some experiences. He was a little skeptical,
fake candles.
that had on-off batteries. He wanted to tell the side of the story, so I said, "Okay, let's go up." Well, the one in the kitchen, he was explaining to me how the room used to be set up. Actually, flick the switch on, would grab your ankles. And it stayed. All right, this is interesting. Oh my goodness, let's see what we can find out. So I had him sit on the far end of the bed. I was like, "All right, let's do some communication. I'll film. Yeah, we saw that. If anything happens, let me know how you're feeling. Like I want you to be fully interactive.
There it is.
Turn it back. So we started asking questions.
Fat guy,
but it was unsuccessful. Telling the spirit, someone's here. So they got up, pull ankles, they go over, whatever. They turn this candle on.
Ozzy Steve, thank you for a wonderful.
Standing there filming this. This is all on video. I have it all.
Dining room. And this so happened. You saw this, Sean.
My left foot is starting to move.
It's on video. It's on video.
This is a residential house.
Yes. My first thoughts are, okay, anybody can move their foot. But the way it was curling, it was almost like if something grabbed it and started rolling. I took her fiance up first because he's like, this is
my dog the other day took off down this hill and ran into this guy's yard.
He literally froze, like his hands were clenched. He was frozen.
Okay, let's go up. Look at him.
And then what's going on over there? Humans pointing,
what's going on?
I was stabbing your ankles. I'm like, so I'm still. This is interesting. I'm on the fence. Let's see what we can find out.
He is a gorgeous.
Then all of a sudden, I had him sit on the far end of the. Something started to push me down. All right, let's. And like I said, he was frozen up. Film. He starts getting pushed backwards. Let me know how you're feeling. And I said, well, if you're okay with it, just ride it out. Let's see what happens. So we started asking questions. You could hear in his voice, he was getting scared.
Hey, buddy, how's it going?
Good. I'm just admiring my black bear from earlier today.
Something's definitely
whatever. Yeah, it's a beautiful bear.
And so whatever it was.
Any idea? I imagine you have enough experience with him. Give any guess on like what is actually like weight or anything like that?
Oh, he was a couple hundred pounds.
He's like, it's pushing on me. I can't move.
His coat was so shiny.
I said, stop. My first thought so shiny. Say that 3 times. On the 3rd time, his whole body just went the way it was curling.
I was when I got the video.
I heard right, they're more vicious.
Ghosts aren't supposed to hurt you.
They're more dangerous than grizzlies, or is that not true?
I feel like it was definitely something. It wasn't hurting
Justin,
him.
I do like ufology.
To me, it was more like
I just don't like a lot of what's going on.
I'm going to mess with you kind of thing.
That answers your question.
Yeah. So there's a couple more parts to this.
Dave doesn't like being back.
So after that, I said, okay, I'm going to sit down next to you.
No,
I'm going to film.
Something's starting to push me down.
I'm going to see if anything happens.
Like I said, he was frozen up.
Because I told him, I said, you're more afraid of it. I'm not.
Tell me about it.
So I'm sitting there.
Tell me about it.
I'm like, if anybody's here. Now I'm sitting on the bed and my feet are dangling probably this far from the floor. Okay. And I got boots on and everything.
He's like, I'm fighting it. He's like,
if anyone's here, can you grab my foot
all the way down
or whatever? I'm going to see what happens. I'm curious.
I can't move.
Well, it's actually
I started feeling like this tension on my left foot area, and it caused a pain in my left knee.
The 3rd time, his whole body just went.
All right, now this is getting interesting.
Like something just completely.
So I'm like, well,
the ghosts aren't supposed to hurt you. So
now this whole time I have an EMF pump running.
I feel like it was definitely something.
It
wasn't hurting him.
Juice out there.
It was just spirits. To me,
this thing started ramping up. I've never heard it do this.
Yeah. We rounded 3rd. We're heading for home tonight on Space Down.
Yeah, it's just ramped up. Okay.
My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. I want to remind you that if you've missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Kirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show.
So I had her sit the same spot.
Oh, yes, it is time once again for our man of space. The man who always wears a black Stetson when he comes in to SOR HQ, John Hudson, and the unbiased UFO report. Let's get right into it, John, because it's been a tumultuous weekend in news. And you know what? I'm just curious.
Well, we're going to go
pretty good started. Did you get a chance to see that conference that came down, that virtual conference?
Are you going to go back?
somebody
we
was
might
under the bed.
I saw small portions of it. Most of what I got of it was through the very, very hard work of Joe Merja, who was doing some fabulous reporting of it.
It's all documented.
He was
and
I could figure out how to
what you doing?
Oh, hey, Dave. I'm just making a list of things that make me feel really, really good.
Wearing Bombas socks.
Trust me, that's number one on my list. Bombas socks feel so good because we use the smartest design and best materials, making them the most comfortable socks ever.
Plus, because socks are the number one most requested clothing item in homeless shelters, we donate a pair for every pair purchased, and that feels pretty good too.
To shop Bombas or learn more about how your purchase supports those experiencing homelessness, go to bombas.com/comfy and get 20% off your first purchase.
It's my daughter's having a sleepover with
Joni
5
wants
of
to
her
know,
friends.
did you get
But
rid of it?
I know just the place to go to get something for everybody. And just a little something for myself too. There's a meal for every moment on a McDonald's $1, $2, $3 menu.
Like a four for $4 drink. Get a McDouble and apple.
They just kind of want
fries and a medium soft drink for $4.
Try to figure out who it is.
But what's the core
We got a lot of
information about it in little video snippets, and it was kind of what I expected. No new information, but perhaps delivered in a way that some people might
Thank you
understand
all
it better
for
than the last
joining
time they
us
heard the
tonight.
data.
I'm so glad
The only
you
one I
have
found really
here.
interesting, which
If
is
you
what
have
I
any
expected,
ideas
was what
for
Eric
shows,
Weinstein
definitely
talked
put a
about.
comment.
Well, I can say this:
Either
when you
Pittsburgh
get the same
Paranormal
people
or Pittsburgh
at
Paranormal
every
Chasing
conference saying
Prophecy
the
Radio,
exact same thing,
or send us an email
doling out a lot of money
Chasing Prophecy Radio
for
at gmail.com.
that type of information.
Okie-dokie.
Thank you for
Good
joining.
night, guys. Yeah.
Thank you.
And if you think about it,
you.
it's a broken. The reason why it's a broken model is because when all this started,
That was really fast.
the only time you got to see these
Johnny wants to know.
your local habitants, right? And so they could take them on tour to 6 different states because each state could only see them at that one time, and so it made sense to have the same people report the same thing over and over again. Now, when it's a universal delivery system, that whole model breaks.
Who it is, and
It's very true.
so we're
very true.
We got a lot of.
I talked to
lot of
some
reviewing
people
to do.
who really liked it.
Okie-dokie.
They loved how virtual
Time to go?
the MakingContact.com website
getting
was.
ready for mine.
Felt like a
Okay,
video
well,
game, but I also talked to
Thank
people
you
who were
all
like,
for joining us
"This is
tonight.
crazy."
I'm so glad
One of the
to
biggest
have you
complaints
with
I
us.
heard from the
If you have any
conference
ideas
was,
for shows,
you pay all that
definitely
money,
put a comment
and
in either Pittsburgh Paranormal
you're
or
supposed to
Pittsburgh Paranormal
wander
Chasing
around in your
Prophecy
little
Radio,
action figure
or
person
send
on the
us an
screen,
email at
and the people you were supposed to be talking to or want to talk to, the guests you're
Thank you for
supposed to be
joining
able to
Torture
chat with
Tuesday.
those who are
Yeah.
speaking,
Thank
they
you,
were
thank you.
nowhere to be
Torturous,
found
but it was good.
anywhere.
Okay.
So the minute that they finished their conference, they were logging out and not interacting with people. I'm sorry, but
It's like a real conference.
I'm sorry, but at $250 a ticket, I want to speak to somebody. So, either way, I'm not gonna give credit where credit is due. Okay, the credit due is it was a great idea by Mark Sims and Danny Sheehan. Okay,
And some flavor of this is the future, right? It may not be this
Absolutely.
exact instantiation, but some flavor of this is the future.
Yeah, but you know what? I can say this: whether it's this conference, whether it was Contact in the Desert, or other conferences that have been virtual this year, I don't like them. And let me tell you why. The beautiful part about going, if you've never gone to a conference before, okay, there is something really fun about conferences. And believe it or not, for those who are not on the speaking end, okay, because I've only been at conferences where I've been on the speaking end, we're all usually there to hang out with. All you got to do is come up to us. If you want to if you want to hang out,
we're desperate for companionship.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, that human contact is needed. I talked to the group with Contact in the Desert after their virtual conference, and as much as they enjoyed the efforts in trying to get it going, and it was difficult, they weren't fans of it because it took away from that humanity. And, if you go to a UFO conference, right now I'm scheduled to speak in 2022 at UFO Con in San Francisco. Lori and Fenton.
That's going to be fun. That's 45 minutes away from me, so I'll get to go to that one.
Yeah, I mean, when I go there, I want to meet my fans. And, every person I talk to, whether it's Grant Cameron, Steve Bassett, Lori and Fenton, Melinda Leslie, we all want to meet you. You're part of the community. We're just the loudmouth, big mouth voices. Right?
Yeah. Well, and let's face it, we're the safe ones to talk to. Right? I mean, we're the ones that aren't going to start, usually, right? we're the ones that, believe what you believe, right? So it's like, it's camaraderie,
Could you imagine the lineup for autographs that Chad Smith would have?
Oh, it'd be like a new iPhone coming out. It'd be madness.
Miles.
No, I think until we get VR, I don't see this whole conference thing taking off. Because I've had some VR experiences that I've tricked my senses with, because your senses are having a hierarchy, and it's crazy. I've gotten motion sick, like standing in the middle of my living room. It's amazing, but it's still very clunky. It's still very expensive, and it's still very out of reach for a lot of people. It's going to take a while.
Very true. Very true. All right, let's move on to tonight's news with you. Number one, let's go into a little bit of politics here, because the Pentagon reportedly set to declassify space laser capable of destroying satellites and spacecraft. This is interesting, John.
So this is a hard one to tackle. So this is one of the reasons why I'm excited about talking about it, because the tendency that everyone's going to have is to focus on what the program is, because it's an interesting program. It's some sort of a significantly advanced defense system for outer space. There are some people that believe it's ground-based, some people believe it's satellite-based, some people believe there's all sorts of hypotheses how it works. There's supposed to be a visual demonstration, so woohoo, it could be something real pretty. And so, and it is an SAP program, and so we're getting to see what it takes to get an SAP program declassified, which is a dry run for everything else we're talking about, right? We now know it takes the DNI and it takes the president. It takes all this coordination, right? So this is a really good way for all of us to see what does it actually take to get an SAP program declassified. So all that is all really interesting, and that's what's going to attract your attention. But that's not the important part. The important part is the article that I linked goes into a lot of detail about the mood swing and the cultural change that's going on in the military, specifically related to space assets. Because historically, secrecy was seen as an asset. And what some people, a larger group that's growing every day, is starting to realize is secrecy destroys your investment when it comes to space assets. You have to advertise what you have. You have to demonstrate what you have, because if you don't, no one knows about it, and it's not a deterrent anymore, right? If you really want to be a deterrent, you got to advertise it. And so this is a huge cultural change that's starting to happen, and if it continues to snowball and it continues to catch on, this could radically change the entire presence of the security apparatus. Surveillance is always going to be secret, because that has to be secret. But offensive weapons, if you really think about it, an offensive weapon kept secret is intended to be used. An offensive weapon that's publicized is intended to deter. So this is a much more mature approach to defense, and it specifically has to do with space assets. And so this is very pertinent to us, but it might be one hell of a signal that there is change going on that might explain why now.
It could very well. It could very well. But do you think that these protections are just built for earthly adversaries, or do you think they could be part of some sort of extraterrestrial defense as well?
Dave, I think that if you were heading that program, that irregardless of what you actually believed, you would write it, you would spec it, you would talk about it, and you'd present it as if its only focus was Earth-based assets. However, a big freaking gun is a big freaking laser gun. And if you can track 1 meter objects in orbit and pick them out of the sky and destroy them to a degree that you do not create debris falling back to the Earth, that is one hell of a weapon, and it could be used for all sorts of fun stuff.
Well, that also opens up the question, too. This will be my final question for this one, is, do we have a defense mechanism already up there in place for any type of adversarial extraterrestrials?
I don't believe so. I've heard reliable murmurings of a deep space network that monitors incoming objects, but it's not great. We won't hear about an Earth-killing asteroid until it passes Saturn. So basically, if anything's going to take out Earth, we're going to get maximum 2 days notice. And when it comes to closer objects, we've been doing offensive satellite stuff. So satellites that are able to defend each other for at least 25 years. You can find that in the declassified satellite reports that come out about on a 25-year cadence. You can see that 25 years ago, they were starting to really focus on defensive maneuvers. So satellites have had defensive capabilities, but as far as the ability to actually offensively strike an incoming object, it's possible, but if we have it, it's probably what they're about to announce.
All right, moving on. Luis Elizondo has been pretty silent in the last month and a half, ever since the couple weeks after the DNI report, yet he's starting to speak again.
Yeah, I figure the poor guy probably lost his voice. So this is fun, and what's neat about this, and I'll post links to it, is that this is the next Gov conference, and I got to look through my notes. I think I might have presented at this conference before. I can't remember if I have or not. It's not a conference that normally focuses on UAP stuff. It's a conference that normally just focuses on next generation technology that the government should be paying attention to, right? And so, but both Lou Elizondo and Senator Reid both were at this conference and both were interviewed, and they are actually, those interviews are posted, which I'll post links to. Elizondo's interview is interesting. It's a little more forthcoming. It's a little more personal. It's a little more emotional, in my opinion. But it's not topics that we wouldn't necessarily cover. What's super interesting is what our dear friend Senator Reid talked about, because there is a 44-second clip which I will be posting, that basically where he talks about the fact that I believe it was the Omaha basically saw a football-shaped object the size of a football field come out of the water. It was seen, it was photographed, there was ELINT and all sorts of optical electrical data captured on it. He said that because of the data that was collected on it, it was the first real scientifically sane photographs that we had of an object, which I think was an interesting way of phrasing it on his part. And it then went back into the water. And so what that means is this is not the triangle that we've all been talking about for a while. This is a different case. And that's a big boy that came out of the water. And so that as far as I know, I mean, there's possibly other people already knew about it, but for me personally, that was a new case that I didn't have any knowledge off the top of my head about. So thank you, Senator Reid.
Was there any reason, or did Elizondo speak as to why he had been silenced the last few weeks?
No, he did not. However, I saw a couple of days ago. He was meant to be on with I think it was Christina Gomez, and that got postponed because of flight problems that Lou was having. But before it was going to be postponed, she had some language on her thing talking about what they would talk about, and one of the things she mentioned was there being a new news embargo. That there was some indication, and I don't know if that was her guess or if that was a tip that Lou gave her that they were planning on talking about. And so part of me is actually a little suspicious now that there has actually been a sort of a temporary news embargo, perhaps to let people digest, perhaps to, who knows the reasoning behind it. But he did not mention anything about that in the interview I saw.
All right, and finally tonight, let's go to, I don't know what to think about this one, but Robert Salas, who has been a longtime researcher and especially on UFOs and nuclear weapons, is wanting to set up a GoFundMe account?
So my initial reaction was similar to yours, and the more I read into it, the more I liked it, which is the whole reason why I wanted to say something about it. And that is that yes, what this is a GoFundMe for a conference on the nuclear aspects of the UFO issue, right? And but what's interesting is that the way he's written it is very intelligent. It's very professional, and he's only asking for $10,000. But what's really interesting is you can see who gave and how much they gave. And I was amazed how much money he was getting and who was getting it. There were some interesting names on that list of people that were donating to him. People giving $500 and more. And he's already raised, actually, last I checked, I haven't looked in a couple of days. Last I checked, he'd already raised $5,500 of that $10,000.
I'm going to look right now.
I think he's got a good chance of getting that 10 grand. And let's face it, I mean, we all know how humans work. If he actually gets that 10 grand, then he and everyone else involved in that conference are going to work their bloody tails off, and they're going to make that one hell of a conference. And so it could turn into something interesting. And I applaud him for trying to do this, considering the fact that he probably gets absolutely no love from anyone when he tries to do anything like this and get it supported or sponsored by anyone else. This is not a topic most people want to talk about. It's very uncomfortable.
Well, he said $5,576 of his $10,000 goal so far.
That's not bad.
Until he brings in everybody who has done it before. Kevin Knuth, scientist, $500. Not sure who Jared Tarbell is, $1,000. Jim Semivan, maybe that's just a throw-in name, same as Chris Mellon, maybe just a throw-in name.
Hard to say.
$100 and $500. We'll never know.
Yep.
Robert.
But I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. John, thank you so much. We're going to have to call it the night with you, my friend, but we always appreciate you coming on the Unbiased UFO Report, heard every couple of nights here on Spaced Out Radio. We'll talk to you in a couple days.
Thank you much, sir. Have a good evening.
You too, buddy. The news is always changing. That's why we bring you the SOR Newswire at the back end of every show, where we bring you the weird, the wacky, and the odd. And you know what? We're going to start right here. The fastest accelerating roller coaster in the world has been suspended until further notice after multiple customers reported broken bones from the ride. Since December, at least 6 riders sustained bone fractures after riding Dodonpa, a roller coaster that goes at super dense speed in the country's popular Fuji-Q Highland Park. The park's operator said 4 of them said they broke their neck or back. Holy cow. The incidents, alerted to authorities on August 17th, are baffling officials. Built in 2001, the ride goes from 0 to 112 miles per hour or 180 kilometers per hour in just 1.56 seconds, making it the fastest accelerating roller coaster in the world. But the park said it was the first time riders broke their bones on the ride since it went into operation 2 decades ago. In 2017, the ride was even modified to bring the top speed from 172 kilometers per hour to 180, but the park said there were no reports of serious injuries, including bone fractures, until December. There's been no technical issues found upon initial investigation. The ride's manufacturing company, Sansei Technologies, apologized to the injured customers, but said it also didn't know what caused the injuries. I don't know about you, but I want to ride this thing. If there's something you do not know about me, I am a roller coaster fanatic. I want to go on this now. All right, Elon Musk is at it again with the Tesla bot, a humanoid AI robot that he claims will eliminate the need for physical work in the future, bringing us closer to 1984. The book, not the year. It's basically going to start dealing with work that is boring, repetitive, and dangerous. Unveiling the 5'8" 125-pound robot at Tesla's AI Day. In the future, physical work will be a choice, it said. Now, the bot, tentatively dubbed Optimus, is built for similar materials as Tesla's notoriously fallible autopilot software. It can carry 45 pounds, lift 150 pounds, and run 5 miles per hour. In other words, I will never have to mow my lawn again. I'm looking forward to this one. And finally tonight, here's a good story. A customer at a Florida restaurant thanked the staff for showing up and working hard by leaving a $10,000 tip. The Wahoo Seafood Grill in Gainesville said in an Instagram post that a recent customer asked to speak with the eatery's entire staff during a visit. The workers gathered in the dining area where the man thanked them for showing up and working hard. Then he announced that he would be tipping each of the 10 workers $1,000. Good for him. Thank you so much for everybody listening into the news tonight. Brought to you by Captain Shirky Poo, John Hudson with the UFO Report, and of course Olaf Phillips talking all the major woo that we could handle for tonight. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thaw rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out.
I'm a business-owning, meal prepping 24/7 supermom. But who isn't nowadays? And for me, first day of school success begins at Office Depot Office Max, where everything my kids need to start the year strong is in one place, like a laptop for my high schooler, backpacks and notebooks for the little ones, and hand sanitizer for all of the above. I can even order things for my business. It's all available in-store and online at OfficeDepot.com and at low prices all season long. Office Depot Office Max. Their business is to keep school going.
It's the My Daughter's Having a Sleepover with 5 of her friends, but I know just the place to go to get something for everybody and just a little something for myself too meal. There's a meal for every moment on the McDonald's $1, $2, $3 menu.
Like a 4 for $4 deal. Get a McDouble and that 4-piece chicken McNugget, small fries, and a medium soft drink for $4. Prices and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with combo meal.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Benetti, and along with Joe Montaldo, we host News on the Flip Side. Come join us every Saturday night at 7 p.m. Central for our 3-hour program. We have opinions on everything, and we're not afraid to share them. False history gets made all day, every day. The truth of the new is never on the news, but you can find it here with News on the Flip Side. Remember, don't be politically correct. Just be correct. Join us.
Tune in to UFO Undercover, Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, with your host, Joe Montaldo, right here on the Paranormal Radio Network.
Welcome to another episode of The Dawn of Shades. I'm your host, Gia Scott, and we've got a great program for tonight. But before we start off on that, I got a few things I got to remind you about. First of all, if you would like to send in questions during the program, the absolute easiest way to do it is to do it via Twitter. You can just put in your tweet with that at Gia Scott, Giascott after it, and it will pop up on my handy-dandy little notification screen, and I will have your question. You can also send in your questions via email. Just send them to giascott@exogenynetwork.com. And Exogeny Network is spelled EXOGENYNETWORK.com. That's two easiest ways to get your questions in. And I am now just going to move right on forward and introduce the guest for our first hour. Katana Tully, would you please introduce yourself to the audience?
Well, my pleasure. Thank you very much for having me on your show, Gia. I am Katana Tully. I'm author at this point, author and coach. And I coach, I specialize in coaching adult adoptees who do not look like the parents who adopted them. In other words, typically African American, African Asian, and possibly children from India who were adopted into a white world. I have the experience of having many years ago been adopted by a German family in Guatemala. I am black, and so I grew up within culture and a society that looked different to my own. It is not necessarily something that is all that common, but it is becoming increasingly popular to adopt children who do not look like the parents, or parents to adopt children that don't look like them. And so a few years ago, I decided to write a book about my experience. The book is titled Split at the Root, a memoir of love and lost identity. So in many ways, I had a charmed life. My parents were very privileged people who lived in Latin America. And so I grew up as a very privileged child. I was the only black child in my neighborhood in the city of Guatemala at the time. And you can imagine I started having all kinds of issues about not looking like everyone else. But the stories I was told by my parents were wonderful, and the fact that German culture is extremely seductive for a child. Christmas pageantry is amazing, everything was done just simply for me to be happy, content, and have all the privilege imaginable. I attended excellent school. I spoke 3 languages right from the get-go, German, Spanish, and English followed when I was about 6. But the long story is that I had a successful life. I attended boarding schools. I then studied in Germany. I became an actress and a fashion model in Europe. And I was always the unusual one. I was always the exotic, and I loved it. I loved being different. I never really registered whether people in the various societies I lived in were prejudicial against me. I just didn't move in those circles, social circles. The matter of class quite a bit has to do with that. And so when I met a really gorgeous man, a white American actor. I was an actress. We met, fell in love, and married in Europe. And after 5 years, we had a son. And to keep the family together, I moved to the States. And coming to recognize myself as being black, and like it. I had nothing to compare it to. I had not looked. I had not felt as if I belonged to black people. And the media rap for blacks is negative. At least certainly in the 1970s when I came to the States, it was negative. And every crime that was committed would be shown the person who had committed it, and it was always black people. They really didn't show white people committing crimes. So for me, it was extremely uncomfortable and unpleasant. But I moved in white circles, and my friends and my husband were all very protective of me. However, with a son who was mixed race, and with me being black, and not wanting to be an actress or to be in show business anymore, I decided that I needed to complete my education. I had attended the language academy in Munich in Germany, and so I didn't want to become an interpreter. That's why I became an actress. But long story short, in attending the university in the States, I had to identify, and I had to identify obviously as a black. And that was something that bothered me tremendously. So, long story short, it was time for me to have some therapy, and I met up with quite a brilliant therapist who told me that I needed to look at my upbringing, which of course I considered stellar. But in growing up black with a white mentality, I actually did myself a great disservice, and my parents, as much as they had wanted to give me everything they could in life, and everything when it came to just the social graces, as one would say, perhaps, they just didn't give me the security that I would need as far as my identity is concerned. I didn't have an identity that represented me and that would give me a solid backbone. And it took years of therapy, but in the end, I completely understood had gone wrong, and I can see the blessings and the pitfalls of such a situation, and that is why I wrote Split at the Root. And so now you have me here interviewing me, and I wonder whether you have a question, if whatever I have said has been said in a way that's understandable.
Actually, it's very understandable, and I did read at least a sample portion of your book, which is, by the way, very well written. I mean, you really.
He was here right now. He'd tell you it's real.
Now, granted, one side of my family happens to be German, and
how many people do you have in your crew that work in all your mines?
We have six total.
Okay.
We bounce around, like the ore that you have gotten from me is actually from that mine. It's called the Victor Empire. And that was where that ore came from, is the one with the Tommy knocker.
Not heard.
Oh,
so there was
now, and your other mines, your other
there's some differences, but some similarities
have
too.
you experienced?
So I kind of, it was like you did bring it to life for me, and I really, really enjoyed reading it.
Which is up in the Yak. If you ever watched the Mountain Man series on Discovery,
which, by the way, folks,
it's up there in the Yak, Montana, where Tom Moore is.
You can get it on
I'm
Amazon.
only
The same
9 miles south of Tom Moore's house.
It is very well written.
Thank you.
That mine, when I first got that mine, it actually connects up on top of the mountain is another mine. It's called the Keystone Mine, which is gold mine. And they ended up punching a raise, which is like a shaft, but it goes at an angle.
Nowadays, one can actually do it quite well.
From the lower workings of the Keystone, they punched it down 1,800 feet down to what they call the Hammond Tunnel, which I have, which is part of that gold deposit. And when I first got in there, it goes back perfectly straight for 1 mile, and you can be back there and turn around where the big horseshoes are, and you can see daylight.
Adoptions are really common. We see a lot of celebrities adopting children from other races and often other
uneasy
countries.
feeling of
so
not
there'll be a black child or an Asian child or a child from India being raised by some obviously very white parents.
And so I started doing research.
And you wonder,
guy 21 years old in 1933
is it
fell down that race and ended up all the way down at the bottom.
Is something that
and he had
discouraged?
died, of course. But
and I know a lot of people
could feel that when I went into that mine the first time that something tragic had happened.
And is it good or is it bad?
But nothing to do with the Tommyknockers, huh?
It is a hard question, and the reason I wrote it was exactly
in that mine.
Seeing
we got it because I'm trying to work on getting the upper workings. And so that was unclaimed, so I went in and claimed it. We've done a little bit of work in there, but nothing major. So we haven't experienced anything in that mine yet.
My greatest
now,
difficulty
back to the mine that we're talking about with the Tommyknockers.
I hated
your other guys that is on your crew that go in with you. Did they experience
in any way as being
black? Every single one I brought in there, some of them. And, they didn't believe in them at first, and now they talk to them and they leave them offerings of tobacco and all that.
And other people who just
they have told me that they never go into detail of what they've experienced, but they go, the Tommyknockers were pretty active today talking to us.
And to me, that is awesome to hear. I enjoy hearing that because, because the only time Tommyknockers actually got noticed is when Stephen King wrote that book.
Just by the simple fact that
for some reason, I just felt that they do exist, and I believe they're not out to harm anybody.
But
here, I was doing some research,
who do not
and
look like our
in 1956, a company closed their mine down. I don't know what the company was.
I think
all the Cornish miners petitioned the mining company
brings out
to open the mine back up.
The anger,
and that was to set the Tommyknockers free. So they could go to other mines.
Want to know about
but what really blew me away was the owners of that mine. They complied with it, so they opened up the gates to let the knockers go out.
Very beginning,
to me, I would think that Tommyknockers are like little guardian angels
on their forehead.
Well,
now,
who do I belong?
If you look up Bunker Hill Mine in Kellogg, Idaho, look up some of the history on it.
Compared to the others of my race
the old boys back in the 1800s and that were, all the way up until the mine shut down. They're actually trying to refire that mine. They're sitting on one heck of a reserve.
And it is important
and the only reason why that shut down was because lead prices and that plummeted.
That they become very knowledgeable.
There's actually a lot of written history from those miners about Tommyknockers there, and the Sunshine Mine and stuff like that. So, over in Kellogg, Burt, Wallace, and that, and even in Butte, Montana, there's a lot of written history about the Tommyknockers.
And growing up white,
seasoned miners,
growing up American.
There's some that are still, they're saying, it never happened, or it never, they're not real. But the majority of us hard rock miners, we 100% believe in them.
Okay, now, do you have people who have their own companies that have experienced in their own minds that they were Tommyknockers?
Yes, I have. Matter of fact, when I was first breaking out hard rock mining, well, just to give kind of a little background about me,
the elevator.
I started placer mining for a guy when I was 13, and he paid me in gold. We had a wash plant and was running heavy equipment now. And then when I became 18 years old, I went to work for the U.S. Antimony Mine for John Lawrence. And one day he approached me and says, "Hey, Robert, would you like to go down by Salmon, Idaho? I ended up with a gold mine down there. Would you like to work underground?" I said, "Hell yeah." Because John was kind of a hero of mine growing up.
That's raised by parents.
When I was working,
share
running the
any
Jack
physical
Lake,
similarities.
and
often, like,
there was another guy named John. He was 72-year-old miner.
The custodial
looked like he was
or the parent that's
200
doing
years old.
exclusive child raising.
Working underground,
and then maybe ends up with a step parent that looks more like
he was
their
pushing
other
out
parent,
one
and
of the
nobody in the
loaded
family
ore
looks
carts.
like them
I'm
except
sitting there
them.
drilling, and I heard three knocks, rocks on rocks. It's noisy. A Jack Lake drill is freaking noisy.
And acculturated very, very well.
So I kind of looked around
in the various societies
that I kind of looked around
until we settled in the States.
And I just shrugged it off.
Talking to him
it's in
now,
my head, whatever.
I
It might
realized
be the
that
drill
he was
steel.
very aware of anything
and I was sitting there
anyone
drilling,
in
and all of a
school or
sudden I
anywhere
heard,
said, and
plain
he
as
was
day,
very
somebody yelled,
to
"Get out!"
having had a dark mother and a white
no one
father.
around. I looked down the drift.
So,
no one coming, no lights.
And also,
turned back around, started drilling, and I felt somebody grab my shoulder right here. And pull me and scream, "Get out!" And I let go of the Jack Lake, and I ran. And I had this real uneasy feeling. I come around this corner, and there was John, my partner,
upstate New York.
and he stopped me and he goes, "What's the matter? What's the matter?" And I said, "Somebody yelled at me to get out and grab my shoulder." He goes, "Let's go." He didn't ask no questions, nothing.
Were in the same
we got to the shaft station there, and he said, "Well, let's just sit down and eat our lunch."
Brown kids would get together
he goes, and give it a little bit. They don't want us in there. And I said, "What do you mean they don't want us in there?" And he goes, "The
everyone was expecting them to become friends
so,
because they were dark.
I don't know anything about Tommy Knocker, but I'm new at this
They had no reason to be friends.
And it was about
they were always
maybe 5 minutes later,
to one
there was
another,
a big blast
and they always winked.
And we got done eating our lunch, and he said, "Well, come with me, kid." And we walked back there, and there was a big slab right where I was standing, came down.
Those kids never came over to my
he
house,
proceeded to tell me that it was a Tommy Knocker.
So,
and when I came topside, I was talking to John Lawrence, the owner of U.S. Antimony Mine, and that's when they filled me in on Tommy Knocker.
Okay.
Now, you don't have cars.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that's when I started learning about Tommy Knocker.
To have only, a physical characteristic
every
in
miner
common,
that I've ever been around has had some
when I meet somebody else that has eyes as dark as mine, it doesn't mean that they're going to be my friends.
Now, getting back to the companies, the people, the owners. Now, nowadays you get companies that all they care about is making money. They don't care how people are and blah, blah, blah.
Features. And racial characteristics.
People who own all the mines, the owners, do they
be aware of the fact that we're not going to see what the mine their friendship.
The miner, the guy who owned the American one,
because
kind of respected the Tommy Knockers.
In a predominantly black neighborhood.
No, I don't believe in this stuff.
We're kind of like weird people who live on the corner in the spooky house.
Yes, there is.
And kids are all afraid of us.
Okay.
We had a really huge silver and copper mine here. They were using 988 front-end loaders, jumbo drills,
kids
big
riding on
huge
bikes
haul trucks all around.
They're not around kids on bikes. Of course, all children, doesn't matter what race they are, on a bicycle, they're evil. So, maybe dogs barking, but the kids tend to be universally afraid of us.
I knew a lot of the employees,
not one child from our door.
And now, part of it would say, fellow miners would say stuff like that. They're like, "Well, get in there and do your job."
An older established neighborhood, and we're in the process of renovating it. We have
there's companies out there that are in
trees
green.
and we're gradually cutting.
They don't care about. I've worked for a couple of them. I'm not going to say no names for who I've worked for.
what is your ethnic background? Racial, ethnic, what is
kind of thrown out the door.
Both of us are Native American and part Caucasian. So both my husband and myself.
For the environment.
So, we're kind of get along with everything usually.
The employees and making money, you have to care about your employees. Your employees are number one.
Our neighbors.
Your environment is number one.
The kids are the adults.
And see, that's what we're about, Snapshot Mining a Million. We have to take from our environment, but we have to give back to our environment.
And so we don't, hang out all the time or anything. We talk over the sandwich.
I don't want my kids to take their kids there and say, look at this mess your grandfather.
Our neighbors do too.
I want them to be proud of their dad going
with their own thing,
Yeah, but it's hard to explain this to us. Our environment is worth more than
I have no idea why.
The God Almighty dollar.
You plan to have
some of these big corporations, it's because they have financial backers. All the financial
having children now would be a really big.
So when it comes to the safety of the guys, the safety of the environment,
real big surprise. I remember after Halloween when I was a kid, but
for the environment,
big surprise.
I had absolutely no idea. I have no idea what you look like or what your age is.
Yeah, well, I'm on one side of 15. I have a granddaughter who's going to be 4 this year.
Well, like for instance,
congratulations. That's so cute.
There's a lot of people that aren't aware of such environment, but we have to, you're underneath the water,
look like a
and it's actually
literally looks like a China
it uses
doll.
water
We
to
don't
move
want
water.
hair,
And so when you're sucking up
the green eyes with the blue ring around them, which are really unusual, but her mom had the same kind of
water like mercury.
And
because people have to realize a lot of the old boys, it's hard to explain, they didn't know the effects of using mercury or lead in the God Almighty, what it would do to the environment, because I can guarantee you they would have found different ways to do it.
Expanding so fast.
And so when we're sucking
questions.
What it does is it picks up the material and distributes it the same as it picked it up. So that goes up, all the rock is sucked right up and put right back the way it is.
I'm glad that you
But when you're doing that, you're creating food for the fish because you're the bugs that are hiding in the water. The fish are right in there just eating, having a field day.
A lot of stories to see.
But for instance, you're taking pictures, you got to take big boulders and move them out your way.
Nobody else will go.
So you are putting down gravity behind the suction bridge for them to spawn in. And it's like a because they need that sand and that gravel to make their nest and to lay their eggs, to keep their eggs.
When it's going to thunder and lightning, and we're going to be sleeping in a tent.
And so when I say we get back to the environment, what we're doing is we're taking what the old boys put in there, the mercury and the lead, we're taking that out. We take that with us and we dispose of it in the proper way.
Yes.
They would have we sell the lead to recycling, and so we don't get a lot of lead, but like I tell people, even if it gives you $1, that's $1 of gas. So you at least have $1 worth of gas.
Every time I get there, she says,
we retorted it, and it's kind of like doing whiskey still.
Off chance, I might have one.
What it does, it takes the mercury, heats the mercury up, which vaporizes the mercury.
And she's my one and only,
it goes through a tube and you got to take big boulders down, move them, and you have pure mercury come out the other end.
No, I don't have grandchildren.
It vaporizes off the atmosphere because there's seal and all that. Because they need to collect the gold that's in the mercury, and then we sell the mercury to places that buy mercury for, when I say we get back to the environment, and it goes to our defense department. So we sell it to people that are licensed to buy that mercury and sell it where it needs to go, or dispose of it. We don't. And then like
in my case, my daughter has a lot of health problems. Recently she's lost her vision and she can't drive, which is why I am there much more often than take her to
most of our hard rock mines, believe it or not, people aren't even aware that
this is the one and only that we didn't
besides a compressor and a power plant out on the waste dump, we're constantly cleaning the environment. And what I mean by that is, up on my mind, it looks like a park. We're constantly stacking brush. During the springtime, we burn the brush.
And she's now a little dancer. She had her first dance recital this past time.
We have names for every moose.
Of course, she was traumatized
one of them I have is Maggie,
but that was okay.
She actually has two twin calves, and he will almost completely walk right up to her. She lives right there at our mine, lays in front of the porthole during the summertime because the cold air coming out.
We put up birdhouse,
That's cool.
A performer.
That's cool.
We maintain it. We have grizzly bears that walk right in. I planted a whole bunch of blackberry bushes that I went around
martial arts and stuff too.
And they come right in. They eat the huckleberries.
Something that we just regarded as
why we're there working.
Training
They'll
is
sit there and watch out on the way.
helpful
we're freely giving back to the
one thing that I never had, and no dance teacher in the world could ever give it to me. I was always clumsy. I will probably always be clumsy, but very creative in other ways. I just couldn't move creatively. Well, moving is creative, but not in ways that are intended.
How about UFOs? Maggie, I have seen UFOs. I've had some weird experiences. I wasn't just a miner. I'm a jack of all trades, a master of none. Years ago, in the summertime, I worked a big gas drilling rig, put up birdhouses, started in 2003, started working down in Wyoming.
However,
I had the opportunity to go overseas and offshore drilling.
I would have to drive quite some distance
Norway.
to find an instructor.
But
actually, I had,
we had
things
seen
like that.
I did
do martial arts when my daughter was about the age of my granddaughter. She also took classes at the same dojo I did.
Out of this world, they were unexplainable. And when you go and talk about it, they just say, "Oh, those are radar glitches."
But it was a good physical
leave it as that
because of the sparring and whatnot.
I've seen some weird stuff.
It's a good way to vent aggravation.
You might as well say UFOs because I don't know what they were.
I couldn't do that sort of thing now. I do have a disability that kind of restricts a lot of movement. But Tai Chi looks like something that even when you can't move, I have an arm that doesn't work, I can't move my head very much.
There's people out there that go, oh, whatever.
Just probably
you know what? It's my show. It's my show. So you can talk all you want.
We, up in the same area where some of my mines are, I was interested in another mine I had years and years ago. And I was working out a deal with a company that actually had it. So we were up there
by doing that.
And one night we had something circling our camp. Now you guys got to realize I grew up here. I'm a woodsman. I'm always out in the woods. I'll go up in the thickest grizzly bear habitat without a gun because I trust grizzlies. I know how grizzlies are. I know to give them their space. And I've had a couple little run-ins, but nothing major with grizzly bears. So, anyways, what this was not acting like any animal I ever experienced before, nor the two other guys that were with me.
I know a lot of nerve damage originating from a neck and shoulder injury that it causes strange tension in my body as well as spasming.
It was huge.
So anything that can make me,
you know what? It's my show.
Not endure those spasms.
They or what?
I
should say they were pointing with us. They kept on circling. I was interested in
and so I may feel like I've got an electric bolt traveling through my body, and when all of a sudden muscles
Mike and
seize
Bill,
up
the two
and
guys that were with me, they were both in their tents,
you know, and so on.
I was sitting there just staring at the fire, ready to doze off, and all of a sudden there was a thickest grizzly bear habitat, like a log hitting it because I trust grizzlies, and we all jumped up out of our bed. Give them their space. and having guns drawn because it was probably like 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, that isn't very comfortable.
So we started screaming and yelling at the animals. And we thought, well, maybe it might be a bear toying with us. Well, anyway, so we just shrugged it off. It was quiet that night. Next night, same thing.
It might be potentially helpful.
Kept on happening. Well, then all of a sudden, we heard
period of time
and then in the creek, a big, huge
I would have to do it for years before I know.
Oh, wow. And
often,
we started shooting up in the air,
therapy and whatnot. They would try something new.
That morning, I should say, we crossed the creek, went over where we knew the noise was coming from, and there was about a 6-inch round chunk of tree.
If something's going to hit another tree, by the time
on that great tree, you could see the mark, and we could see where the boulder was, and we could see on the other boulders in the
most things
where it had hit.
Worse, but when you find something that is,
it was about 3 days later. We were looking for this mythical mine, and we all know one of those ones people are like, oh yeah, there's a mine up there, we don't remember where it's at,
my weight
really knew the area of it.
My spine
So we were up looking for it, which now I did find, and on the proud owner of it, but
I had about 3 days of blinding headaches, and I was like, you know what?
There was some snow on the ground, and I happened to look down, and there was big, huge footprints that were, well then all of a sudden,
that was not,
similar to human, but they were about 18 inches long.
When
on the right foot, the big toe was like it had that morning, it was off to the side.
And when I told her what had happened, she said, no,
the strides were about 8-9 foot strides through the snow.
Anyway,
exploded.
And
we could see where the boulder I do believe in it because up in this area, it's so
I've described your child
that I feel
as an adult. I know,
and I've had weird experience. I've heard noises that were one of those ones almost like
birth mother again
out in the woods. I know every animal that exists out in these woods.
Kind of a spoiler.
Right. We were what they sound like a mountain lion, a grizzly bear, all that kind of stuff. This is not like that, and there was big,
while I was living in Europe,
so I believe that they made. I'm not saying 100% for Tommy knockers. I 100% feel that they are real. And when it comes to Bigfoot, I do believe
I have a very good relationship
that they could exist because
they live in the States.
There's grizzly bears that people don't get to see because the minute they smell or hear a man, they're gone.
I have a very good relationship with my
Bigfoot. The minute he smells or sees man, he knows danger, and because
I have been able to work.
It's so brushy.
Thank you. But we're running out of time here.
Okay.
And I would like to have you back on the show. You can talk more about the Bigfoot and the Tommy knockers. Just send me a message.
African American literature,
anytime.
European literature, European language, French writers.
To find information on you in your mind, and how would our listeners get a hold of you?
I have a YouTube channel now. Bear with me. I'm on my YouTube. I'm a very busy man. So I don't get to post a lot of videos like I would love to. Bigfoot, I do believe that shot. They could mine and milling on YouTube.
To have the time to write a book for
and then you can also look me up on Facebook, Robert Beardell, or hear me on Facebook,
children and for anyone.
And then I have a snapshot mining and milling on Facebook
to slavery.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you for being on the show tonight. And everybody out there, you're welcome. And everybody out there, and I'll have you back on the show. We can talk more about the
people understand that when Europe discovered America, Europe was in the trenches of the Middle Ages.
On Facebook.
And Africa was more advanced.
Anytime.
And Asia was more advanced. India was more advanced. They had much greater knowledge
on you. In your mind,
metallurgy, medicine, astronomy, architecture, just about every field.
Bear with me.
And also
on my YouTube, I'm a very busy man, so I don't get to post a lot.